The story began with a boy who thought there was absolutely no chance for them, yet he wondered faintly if there could still be some possibility. He then states that if that happens, then they should not meet each other again. The story shifted towards a girl who was quietly praying to God, begging for help and passing her college entrance exam. Her name was Jeong Yi-Han, and on that very day, the final admission results were being released. She felt overwhelmed with frustration and fear, worrying that if she failed, she would not have the courage to look into her aunt's and uncle's eyes. The very thought of not making the cut made her sick to her stomach, and she muttered to herself in despair. She knew especially that Chio would not let her live it down if she failed. On top of that, her gaze fell upon a photograph, and she admitted inwardly that she would feel too ashamed to face her mother and elder brother in heaven. 11 years earlier, on a cold February day, both her mother and brother had tragically lost their lives in a car accident. A bus had slipped during a heavy snowstorm and collided with the vehicle they were in. At only 9 years old, she was left completely alone in the house, and for various reasons, she continued living there even after the accident. The only reason she managed to survive until then was because of her uncle, her aunt, and Chio Oppa. She reminded herself that it was useless to indulge in pessimistic thoughts. She thanked in her heart the family next door who had cared for her all these years and convinced herself that things would work out as long as she continued praying. When she finally looked at the results, she discovered she had successfully passed and secured her place in the art college's design department. A surge of joy filled her, and she rushed next door, calling out excitedly for her aunt, uncle, and Chio as she stepped inside their house with beaming happiness. She declared proudly that she had passed. Her uncle and aunt stood stunned for a moment before her uncle's eyes welled up with tears. With his voice trembling, he said that as he had expected from their little girl, he knew she could achieve it. Her aunt shook her head at him, remarking whether he was seriously crying on such a happy day. They both told Jeong Yi-Han that all her hard work had finally paid off and that she had made them truly proud. Jeong Yi-Han thanked them sincerely, her heart swelling with gratitude. Then she asked about Chio's whereabouts, only for him to suddenly appear from behind, teasing her by asking if she had been looking for him. Surprised, she questioned when he had come in, and he simply replied that he was now her junior and offered her warm congratulations. Jeong Yi-Han thanked him, hugging her aunt again, while her uncle continued wiping his tears. Her thoughts drifted back to 11 years ago when it was Chio who had comforted her in her darkest times. She remembered telling him she had no one left in the world, but he had scolded her gently, asking why she would ever think that. He promised he would always be with her, loving her even more than a mother and father could. From that day onward, Chio, though only 2 years older, treated her like his real younger sister. When his parents learned of her situation, they opened their arms to her as if she were their own daughter, and her aunt even told her when she was young to call her mother from then on. Thanks to Chio, she had truly found a place in the world. Her aunt's voice interrupted her thoughts, reminding her that she had not eaten anything yet because she had been too nervous about the results. They had already expected this outcome and prepared a feast in advance. Jeong Yi-Han laughed nervously and asked what they would have done if she had failed. Her aunt dismissed the thought immediately, asking why she was even saying such a thing. Chio spoke up, telling her that the food would get cold and she should not worry about such matters. He added that even though she lived just next door, she should at least enjoy a warm meal with them. Jeong Yi-Han thought to herself that they did not have to go through all that trouble, and the kindness made her feel as though she might be intruding. Looking around, she noticed some packed items and wondered what all of it meant. She asked her aunt when she had prepared everything, but her aunt only told her to make sure to eat slowly since there were many dishes. Chio, looking at the feast, remarked with mock annoyance that when he had passed, they had only given him a card. His father responded with a laugh that he should only compare things that were actually comparable. Her aunt then urged Jeong Yi-Han to eat plenty of ribs since she liked them, and Jeong Yi-Han agreed, commenting that they were indeed delicious. She added softly that they really did not have to go through such trouble for her, insisting she should be the one thanking them. Chio cut in, insisting she should thank him instead, since she had passed because of him. Jeong Yi-Han sighed, thinking how he always brought that up, but she admitted inwardly that it was indeed because of him she had managed to succeed. Chio excelled in both academics and practical skills, earning the top admission spot at Korean University. Yet, being unpredictable, he enlisted in the military right after his admission. When he came home on leave, instead of visiting his friends, he came directly to see her. She had then asked him why he would not visit his friends during leave, and he had shrugged, saying he had none since he enlisted immediately after admission. She remembered Chio glaring at her when he teased her, saying that once he was discharged, she should make sure to do well on her CSA SAT so she could apply for the same university and same department as his. His words had spurred her on, and she had gritted her teeth in determination, devoting herself to studies. Back then, he had been quick-witted and mature, but nowadays she often found herself unable to figure him out. Her uncle then reminded her gently of something she had said earlier. He told her that she was family, and that it was disappointing to hear her talk as if she were a burden. He reassured her that they had never considered it any trouble and only wanted to show that they cared. No matter what anyone said, she would always remain the youngest daughter of their household. Jeong Yi-Han was deeply moved and thanked them again, scolding herself inwardly for having spoken so carelessly. She realized that both her uncle and aunt treated her with such love, yet she had doubted it for even a moment. As the meal continued, Jeong Yi-Han thought it was fortunate she had studied so hard. She kept eating, the dishes piling up in front of her, making Chio wonder where all the food was even going. She promised herself that once she secured a job, she would repay everything she had received from them. No, she would give back even more. Her aunt laughed warmly, warning her to eat slowly, or else she might upset her stomach. Jeong Yi-Han asked if it looked like they were redoing their interior. Her aunt, with a saddened gesture, called her name. Jeong Yi-Han answered quietly, noticing how her aunt's expression had darkened. Her aunt placed a gentle hand on Jeong Yi-Han's hand and told her that no matter how far apart they were, they would still remain family, as she and her husband had always thought of her as their real daughter. Jeong Yi-Han felt delighted hearing those words and was about to respond that she also considered them her real parents. But her aunt suddenly apologized and explained that they were moving tomorrow, as the grandmother living in Busan had grown weaker that year. She added that they had no choice but to go, confessing that they wanted to tell her earlier but could not bring themselves to do it, fearing it might be too difficult for her. After some time, Jeong Yi-Han went to Chio's room. She knocked on his door loudly and asked if she could come in. Chio gave her permission. Jeong Yi-Han thanks him as she stepped inside. She noticed immediately that his bags were already packed. Sitting down on a chair, she thought about what she should say. With his parents, she always felt at ease, but being alone with him made things strangely difficult. She asked Chio if he would not be starting school immediately. He replied vaguely, saying something like that. Jeong Yi-Han grew frustrated, thinking he had once insisted he wanted to attend school with her, yet now he acted casually, as if it had meant nothing. She wondered if his words had been empty talk, and if she had only expected too much. Wanting to always be together seemed to be her selfish wish alone. Chio asked what it was and leaned closer, telling her to speak if she had something to say. She replied that it was nothing. Chio teased her, asking if she thought he would eat her. With a bitter smile, he added that she must have felt disappointed at the thought of him leaving, and asked why she wanted to live with him. When she stood, he looked at her seriously, urging her to be honest. Shocked, she inwardly admitted she could not say it, though he already seemed to know. Chio thought she did not know how to be greedy. Jeong Yi-Han then said it was fine, reminding him that they were not real family anyway, and the fact that he had looked after her all this time was already more than enough. Chio answered that if they were not real family, then his question had been pointless. As he left, he patted her head and apologized, leaving her shaken. She realized she had spoken words she never truly wanted to say. Of course, she wished to live with him, but even if she said it, nothing would change. She wondered if she was about to be left alone again, the same way she once was, in a cold and empty house. Her aunt's words echoed in her mind, about still being family, no matter the distance. But Jeong Yi-Han thought otherwise. If they were apart, they were not family. Being the only one left behind felt no different from being truly alone. Jeong Yi-Han stops the Chio and states that she had not meant to deny their bond. She only feared being left in the darkness once more, and in her sorrow, words slipped out without thought. Even if she spoke honestly, nothing would change since the decision was already made. Still, she wished she could live with him. For the first time, Jeong Yi-Han expressed her true feeling. The anxiety that had long weighed her down seemed to fade slightly, as if speaking the words aloud might make them real. She thought Chio must have grown tired of her, yet to her surprise, he praised her. He told her she had done well to finally say what she wanted, encouraging her to stop being afraid and to allow herself to be a little selfish sometimes, assuring her he had no problem with it. Jeong Yi-Han was taken aback by his words, realizing he was still as mature as she remembered. But then he added that she should not make people worry about her over such matters. At that, Jeong Yi-Han took back what she had just thought about his maturity. Chio then remarked that since she had said what she wanted, it could not be helped. Confused, she asked what he meant. He only told her she would find out tomorrow. The next day, as her aunt and uncle prepared to leave, they mentioned hearing from Chio the night before. Her uncle jokingly warned her to be careful with him. Surprised, Jeong Yi-Han asked what they had heard. Her aunt explained that Chio had told them she wanted to live with him, and that thanks to her, they now felt relieved. Shocked, Jeong Yi-Han could hardly respond as her aunt continued, saying they were glad she had decided to take responsibility for their troublesome son instead. Her aunt reminded her to eat well and advised her to kick him out if he misbehaved. Her uncle told her to visit them often. As they left, they promised to contact her once they arrived in Busan. Chio waved them off, asking them to tell grandmother he sent his regard. Jeong Yi-Han, still stunned, turned to Chio and demanded to know what was happening, asking if it was because of what she had said the day before. Chio looked at her calmly and asked why she looked so surprised, reminding her that she had told him she wanted to live with him. Finally, with a faint smile, he told her to take care of him from then on. Jeong Yi-Han thought that a place called home felt strange to her, as it was nothing more than a space enclosed by 4 square walls. But when it was filled with warm voices calling to one another and the smell of dinner drifting through the rooms, it became a real home. To her, though, it was just a space that could never be filled again. She had already forgotten that feeling until Chio said he was looking forward to living with her. Jeong Yi-Han wondered what it was like to live with someone again. Her face warmed, and she admitted she was looking forward to it as well. Then she grew flustered, asking what he meant by that. Chio reminded her that yesterday she had said if possible, she would like to live together with him. Jeong Yi-Han quickly clarified that she had obviously meant living together with mom and dad. Chio, however, replied that he had taken it as her not wanting to be apart from him. He repeated the same thing again, stressing it in a way that left her frustrated. She wondered who in the world would interpret it like that. Then Chio lowered himself and asked if she was kicking him out now. His words only made things harder for her, since that was not the point at all, and she could not find a way to answer. When she exhaled, Chio noticed her cool breath and suggested suggested they talk inside since it was cold outside. She agreed and turned toward the door, though she hesitated before opening it. Seeing her pause, Chio told her to just open it. She stubbornly refused. Chio teased, asking if she was hiding something dangerous inside or perhaps a man. Flustered, she denied it, saying it was nothing like that. Then Chio states that honestly though, he looked more suspicious than her at that moment. Leaning close to her ear, Chio whispered that since their middle school days she had never once invited him in, even though he had waited as promised. He said he had kept waiting until she called him, but she never did, and he admitted he was a little hurt by it. Clenching her fist, Jeong Yi-Han finally opened the door. She told him it was not because she had not wanted to invite him, but because she simply could not. Chio frowned and asked what she meant. She explained softly that she had not wanted him to feel hurt. Confused, Chio stepped inside, only to be stunned by what he saw. The home was completely empty. Nothing filled it, and the hollow space under the roof felt like a bottle filled with loneliness. It was wide, bare, and desolate, eerily similar to Jeong Yi-Han herself. He questioned if this was really all there was. Jeong Yi-Han smiled faintly and replied that it might not look like much, but it was clean and easy to tidy up. Since she lived alone, she did not need much. Chio shook his head, saying if she truly thought this was okay, then either he had a problem or she did. He reminded her that she had not been like this when she was young. Jeong Yi-Han smiled again and admitted she had been too young back then to know what to do. By the time she came to her senses, there had not been much left worth keeping, so she had thrown everything away. She ended with a forced smile, claiming that was all there was to it. Trying to brighten the mood, she confidently added that Yi-jun's Oppa room was perfectly fine, while her own room was a complete mess. Chio looked at her in confusion, asking if he was supposed to praise her for that. She nodded seriously, saying yes, that was exactly what she meant. He then asked if his parents already knew about this place. Jeong Yi-Han said of course. They had plenty to clean here. That made Chio realize they had simply left him out. He glanced around again and muttered whatever, which confused Jeong Yi-Han. She asked what he was trying to say. Chio replied that if there was a lot to fill, then it was good for him, as he slipped off his jacket. His words left Jeong Yi-Han puzzled. Then she noticed him shivering and grew shocked. Jeong Yi-Han had forgotten why he had even come there in the first place. She asked directly why he wanted to live there. She reminded him that he had been planning to extend his leave from school. Chio corrected her, saying he had never said that. It was only her assumption. Her irritation rose at his words. She snapped back, asking what he thought mom and dad would say. Chio revealed calmly that actually they had liked the idea. His father had confessed they were worried about her living alone, so living together was much better. Even his mother had admitted she worried that he might be too much for her to handle. Jeong Yi-Han grabbed onto that, muttering that knowing them, it was very likely true. Chio agreed. He added that by the time he checked, all the nearby rooms close to school had already been taken by freshmen. The cheaper ones left were either in basements or in terrible condition. Then he looked at her seriously and asked about a certain room. Jeong Yi-jun's Jeong Yi-Han stiffened in shock before confirming it. Chio asked if he could use it. He entered the room and found it surprisingly well maintained and perfectly clean. No dust at all covered the space. He examined a medal on display and asked if it was real gold, saying it looked convincing. Without thinking, he put it in his mouth. Jeong Yi-Han froze as a memory flashed. Her brother had once done the same thing. The moment felt painfully familiar. Jeong Yi-jun commented that it tasted fake. The curator might have said it was real gold, but in his opinion, he had been scammed. Chio then called her name and asked what she was thinking about. Jeong Yi-Han quickly took the medal back, scolding him for acting like a child. She reminded him he was not a kid anymore, so why would he put it in his mouth? Chio laughed and replied that he had only been curious. He then sat down on the chair, leaning back comfortably, and commented that even the chair fit him perfectly. Jeong Yi-Han muttered that Yi-jun must have been a pretty big boy. Jeong Yi-Han called Chio Oppa and told him she would say it one last time. Chio looked at her and questioned what it was. She firmly said he could not live there with her. She asked if he did not realize how strange it would look to anyone else. Chio replied casually that she did not need to worry, since no one would get the wrong idea. She answered that she could not help but worry. She reminded him she was already 20, a full adult, and they went to the same school and even the same department. She asked what if someone saw them together. For her, no matter how close they had been since childhood, the truth was that they were not real siblings. She added that it would feel uncomfortable for him too, and for her as well. She only smiled and told her he was not uncomfortable though. Frustrated, she raised her voice, demanding that he take her words seriously at least once. He raised his opinion that it was fine. Then he asked her if it was really something worth worrying about. He pointed out that the odds of them seeing each other that way were 0, not even 1%. Jeong Yi-Han frowned and asked what if. Chio looked at her seriously and said if there ever was such a chance, then they would never see each other again. Jeong Yi-Han was stunned on hearing it. He told her she was Yi-jun's sister, which made her his sister too. His words left her stunned. The way he spoke so easily about never seeing each other again shook her. He then added that some lines should never be crossed. It was the first time she had heard such words from him, and she could not believe he could speak about family so casually. Kahaz and Tubid reached out and took her hand, asking what her answer was. Jeong Yi-han's thoughts became tangled, and she apologized, admitting that even if he was her oppa, she could not bring herself to agree completely. Chio then said that just until he found a place, it would be fine between them. He asked her if that much was okay. She looked at his bags and asked if all his big things things had already been moved. Chio replied that the larger items were still next door. She nodded and told him she would head out while he unpacked, adding that he should call her if he needed anything. Chio gave a simple okay. As she walked out of the room, her cheeks grew warm. She asked herself what in the world she had just agreed to. The thought of actually living with Chio for a while made her heart race, and she admitted she had said yes too easily. She wondered if she should bring the matter up again, but then thought if she took it back now, he would have nowhere else to go. She questioned herself, asking if she was the only one finding this situation complicated. Her mind replayed his earlier words about them never seeing each other again. She told herself not to overthink it. Chio was Yi-jun Oppa's friend, which made him practically a real brother to her. While they were living together, she would just pretend everything was normal. She decided to think of it as slowly repaying her Oppa until he found a new place. Jeong Yi-Han reminded herself she did not have time for this kind of confusion. She thought the least she could do was help him get settled. Opening the door, she asked Chio if there was anything she could do to help him. To her shock, when she looked inside, she found him in the middle of changing his clothes. As Chio, startled, called out in surprise, asking what was wrong. Embarrassed, Jeong Yi-Han stammered that she had not known and should have knocked first. She quickly added that she would leave immediately, turning to go, but her foot stumbled forward. Before she could fall, Chio reached out and pulled her against his chest, asking gently what the matter was. Pressed so close to him, Jeong Yi-Han felt her face burn bright red. Her voice shook as she muttered that she had only been wondering if she could help him. Her thoughts scrambled as she tried not to look directly at his bare chest, questioning inwardly why his clothes had to be off at that exact moment. Chio chuckled and pointed out that she was the one who had walked in without knocking. To lighten the mood, he added that he had simply been cold and wanted to change into a long-sleeve shirt. Jeong Yi-Han mumbled that she had not turned on the furnace yet, so perhaps the house was still taking time to warm up. But Chio grinned, saying she was really funny, and asked why she was so shocked. After all, she had seen him like this countless times when they were children. His words stirred memories within her. She remembered those summers at the beach when they were in middle school, how freely they had played under the sun without caring about such things. Still, she pulled back slightly and insisted that it was different now. Chio stiffened at her words, his expression unreadable. Realizing the weight in the silence, Jeong Yi-Han hurried to explain. She apologized quickly, promising she would be more careful in the future, telling herself she should leave right away. But Chio suddenly asked her if she meant they were different now. Confused, she tried to clarify, insisting she had not meant it that way. She muttered clumsily that it was not them. The vague phrasing only seemed to agitate him further, and she noticed he looked oddly ticked off. Scrambling to fix her mistake, she blurted out that what she meant was that his body was different. The realization of her own words hit her too late, and her face burned hotter. She admitted awkwardly that it was her first time seeing an actual guy's body. Chio blinked, stunned by her statement, and asked what she had just said. Unable to bear the weight of the moment, Jeong Yi-Han stuttered something about needing to change the blanket and hurried toward the laundry. She insisted she would also wash his blanket and told him to let her know if he needed anything. She promised to bring him a new blanket later, then ran off before he could say another word. Chio was left laughing, shaking his head. Stuffing her face into the blanket, Jeong Yi-Han groaned at how much she had embarrassed herself. She thought that she had said far too much. From the other room, she could still hear Chio laughing, and she muttered for him to stop. But Chio only thought to himself that she was driving him crazy. She had always been this way, awkward, clumsy, and endearingly foolish. He told himself he should not have changed there in the first place, then thought about how much she still reminded him of the younger sibling he had grown up with. As the washing machine hummed in the background, Jeong Yi-Han sighed and told herself it had been a while since she last washed the blanket. Suddenly, a sound behind her caught her attention, and she turned quickly. To her surprise, Chio was already outside lifting the sofa. She rushed forward, asking what he was doing. Chio, straining with the weight, explained that he was moving his thing. Jeong Yi-Han's eyes widened as she recognized the sofa from his parents' house. She demanded to know why he had brought that with him. He explained that his mother had told him to take anything he needed. Jeong Yi-Han frowned, reminding him that he was only supposed to stay until he found a new place. She asked why he was bringing so much if it was temporary. Chio shrugged, saying that everything his family needed was at his grandmother's place anyway, so it was fine. He pointed toward the wall and remarked that the television should be placed across from the couch. Jeong Yi-Han cried out, telling him to wait, but Chio waved her off and told her not to even think of helping him. He warned that it would bother him if she hurt herself. He added that he was the type who needed to work up a sweat before he could sleep anyway. Jeong Yi-Han stood frozen, unsure of how to respond. Her gaze shifted toward the plants sitting nearby. She thought silently that filling them with life only meant they would eventually wither and die. Leaving them empty was easier. There would be nothing to lose, and nothing painful to remember. Chio, glancing at her silent figure, wondered what kind of reaction she was having. Meanwhile, Jeong Yi-Han slipped into her room and lay on the bed. She whispered to herself that Chio deserved to be comfortable while he stayed here. Then she scolded herself for being an idiot. She asked what was so wrong about having a piece of furniture in the house. She realized the truth. She had not wanted to live with him because she was afraid of being seen in her vulnerable state. Her thoughts drifted to a memory from long ago. She remembered a day when she had pleaded with her mother not to leave, telling her she felt sick with a fever. But her mother had apologized, explaining that her brother had a competition and she had to take him there. Jeong Yi-Han had cried out in frustration, accusing her mother mother of caring only for her brother. She had shouted that her mother liked him more. Shocked, her mother had raised her voice, asking what nonsense she was saying. Her mother had insisted that Jeong Yi-Han was precious to her, apologizing for neglecting her. She had asked what Jeong Yi-Han wanted to eat, promising to bring it back. Still upset, Jeong Yi-Han had said she wanted cake, knowing she was being petty but wanting her mother to think of her while she was gone. Her mother had smiled gently and told her that her brother would win a gold medal that day, and that Jeong Yi-Han's fever would soon get better. She had promised it would be a good day. Jeong Yi-Han awoke from the dream with tears stinging her eyes. She muttered bitterly that it was the same dream again. Just as her mother had promised, that day had indeed been good. Her brother won the gold medal, her fever faded, and her mother had kept her promise, returning with the cake. But after that came the accident. Jeong Yi-Han clenched her fists, wondering if she had not asked for the cake that day, would her mother and brother still be alive? She whispered an apology to her brother, believing her childish selfishness had driven them away. She told herself she could not fill this house with things, because if she alone was happy here, it would feel like betraying her mother and brother. But with Chio in the house, she felt her happiness being measured by fleeting moments of time. Glancing at the clock, she wondered how long she had been asleep. She hurried out, apologizing for dozing off, but then froze. The entire place had been transformed. The blankets were neatly laid out, the furniture arranged, the space warm and lived in. She stood in shock, realizing Chio must have worked hard by himself. Stepping outside, she whispered that he must have gone somewhere. She decided to get some fresh air and headed toward the rooftop. The chill wind made her shiver, but the cold cleared her thoughts. She told herself she was awake now. As she leaned against the railing, her gaze drifted toward the pole. Suddenly, her breath caught. There was someone there. For an instant, she wondered if her eyes were deceiving her. The figure standing by the water looked so much like her brother. Her heart thudded painfully. She whispered his name in disbelief. Yi-jun. Once in a while, Jeong Yi-Han wondered what Yi-jun would look like if he were still alive. Would he have grown taller than her? Would the smile in his eyes still be the same? Would his voice sound just as she remembered? She thought about whether he would have continued as a judo athlete or chosen a completely different path. The figure she had only ever imagined now seemed to be standing right in front of her. She tried to compose herself, thinking that she must have been mistaken again, as this happened every year when his death anniversary approached. She questioned herself, asking why she was acting like this once more. When she blinked her eyes, the person seemed to wave at her. She froze, unable to contain the rush in her chest. Without another thought, she ran out, telling herself that even while running, some part of her already knew it was just a delusion, meaningless and fleeting. Yet even so, she still wanted to check just once more. She still wanted to believe for a moment longer as she ran out calling for him. Just then, Chio was coming in, thinking about Jeong Yi-Han, who always had a way of making people worry. He noted that she didn't seem sick, at least not outwardly. He told himself that maybe bringing something would cheer her up a little. He smiled faintly, thinking that even if she said she wouldn't eat, she always gave in eventually. He thought she looked quite shocked when he brought groceries without asking. Still, he realized she must already be on edge with the death anniversary approaching. He admitted to himself that he shouldn't have stirred things up, but decided that when he got home, he would try to calm her. As he was walking, he caught sight of Jeong Yi-Han running out. He questioned why she was outside, wondering if she came looking for him because he hadn't answered. But seeing her running in the middle of winter dressed so lightly filled him with concern. He called out, stating that he was right there, but he was left shocked to see her in such a state. He ran towards her, grabbing her shoulders, asking what had happened while he was gone and whether she was hurt. He urged her to let him see her face. She shook her head, saying that she had only seen a man walking nearby. Chio demanded she tell him who it was, insisting that he would take her to him himself. Jeong Yi-Han, stammering, tried to explain. She said she thought she had seen Yi-jun. She knew it must have been someone who looked like him, but still, she admitted she wanted to see him just once more. Crying out, she confessed that no matter how much she looked, she couldn't find him. She told herself she should stop, yet she didn't know how. Chio noticed how tightly her hand clung to him, though her memory clung to someone else entirely. He thought about how far he was allowed to comfort her. Kneeling down, he told her that not knowing how to stop wasn't wrong. Forgetting someone wasn't easy, and it didn't make her foolish. If she wanted to keep searching, she should, but she must not confuse herself, because Yi-jun wasn't someone she was meant to find anymore. Yi-jun was someone she needed to let go. He thought she didn't have to question how long she had to keep chasing someone who would never return. Jeong Yi-Han took a moment, staring down at her shoes, which looked far too big and awkward but still familiar. Wearing them made her feel a little steadier. She quietly thanked Chio and suggested they go home. As they walked back, Jeong Yi-Han wondered why they were still holding hands, almost embarrassed by the thought. She questioned him, but before she could finish, Chio reminded her about the groceries. Pulling out a slightly crushed fish, he explained that he had shoved it into his pocket in a hurry. It was fish, though now degraded. He told her that when she was little, she used to wait all year for winter just to have one of these. He said with a sigh that winter probably didn't mean much anymore. Before he could tell her to throw it away, Jeong Yi-Han surprised him by eating it. Shocked, Chio asked why she was eating it when it was old. She smiled faintly, saying it still tasted good, and it had been such a long time. She thought it was still warm somehow, and while eating, she called out to him, stating that she was glad they were like family. She told him that she really liked him. Chio blushed furiously, muttering what nonsense, though inside he was moved. He thought that just like that, their new daily life had begun. It didn't take long for them to realize that living together required more effort than expected. For example, standing in front of the fridge, Jeong Yi-Han stared stared at the emptiness, realizing how unprepared she was. She admitted to herself that she hardly ever ate at home, so she never thought about stocking up. Now, she would have to be more responsible. She sighed, saying that they would just eat ramen for breakfast, proudly showing her large collection. Chio frowned, saying he suspected she had been living on ramen all this time, making her nervous. Embarrassed, she quickly offered to go get groceries immediately, but Chio stopped her, saying he would just order food instead. She felt relieved and thanked him. Later, when the delivery arrived, the delivery man looked surprised. He muttered that it had been a while since he had seen her face. He remembered vividly the first time he delivered here and met a beauty he couldn't forget. Since then, he had looked forward to every delivery. He thought to himself that the orders were always for one person, and he had never noticed any sign of others living there. He assumed she lived alone in this big house and worried, thinking it was dangerous these days for a woman to live by herself. He even wondered what would happen if she came across someone creepy. As the door opened, however, Chio appeared instead, leaving the delivery man stunned, while the man, still petrified, asked what had happened. He asked whether she had moved out, saying he thought a woman lived here alone. He questioned if he was mistaken. Before Chio could reply, Jeong Yi-Han appeared behind him, asking what was going on and whether something was wrong. Delivery man quickly nodded, confirming that she did still live there, but Chio smirked, shutting the door with a firm statement. He declared that she didn't live there alone anymore. This was no longer a single-occupant home. Afterwards, Chio called out for Jeong Yi-Han, asking if she thought she had been ordering takeout a lot lately. Jeong Yi-Han denied this firmly, though Chio pressed her, asking if she was sure about that. Taking a moment, she stated that maybe once a month at most, and questioned why he was suddenly bringing this up. She wondered aloud if something had happened earlier. Earlier that day, Chio had commented that this was no longer a single-occupant home. Chio had immediately demanded to know how the man knew about this. The delivery person had nervously explained that he had not meant anything strange by the remark. He had stammered, saying that she was simply a regular customer, and sometimes, when making frequent deliveries, he tended to make small talk. He had added that he understood how dangerous it could be for women living alone these days. Chio had acknowledged that it was indeed dangerous, though he had also warned him that one could never be sure who might only be pretending to be friendly. Still, he had thanked him politely for worrying about her. The delivery man had left with a forced smile, but outside, he had cursed under his breath, disgust written all over his face. Chio, however, had acted as though nothing had happened, leaving Jeong Yi-Han slightly unsettled. She told him directly that he had worried her once again. Jeong Yi-Han grew confused, wondering why he was making that serious face since earlier. She even questioned inwardly if he was simply hungry. Chio, however, continued to stare at her and told her not to order delivery anymore when she was alone at home. Jeong Yi-Han asked why, her words implying that it was not such a big deal. Chio replied that it was not just about safety but also about cost, pointing out that delivery was hardly cheap these days. Jeong Yi-Han nodded in agreement, acknowledging the truth in his words. Before she could say more, Chio excused himself, saying that he needed to use the bathroom. Jeong Yi-Han thought that it was fair. After all, it was already lunchtime, and no wonder he was starving. She resolved that next time she would just go to the grocery store in advance. As she opened the order, she noticed her pajamas and wondered if she was perhaps not wearing a bra. She reassured herself that she was fine, thinking that he had probably not noticed. Meanwhile, in the bathroom, Chio washed his face. Jeong Yi-Han thought quietly that ever since the morning he had been acting strangely, and she decided she should be more careful in the future. After the meal, Jeong Yi-Han thanked Chio for treating her. Chio, however, told her directly that if she was done eating, she should just head to her room. Jeong Yi-Han refused, saying that since he had paid, she should clean up. But Chio grabbed her wrist and told her firmly to go, claiming that he was feeling bloated after eating takeout since morning. He added that he would watch television. Perhaps it would help him feel better. Jeong Yi-Han felt uneasy, thinking that he had not made eye contact once during the meal. She wondered if the food had been so bad. She insisted she should at least clear the table, but when she grabbed the order slip, she froze at the bill. She was shocked to see that a simple meal for two had cost nearly 50,000. She thought grimly that from now on, utilities like electricity and gas would also double, because living together meant every expense would multiply. She retreated to her room, her mind sinking into heavy thoughts. She thought about how her aunt had even paid for her tuition, and once the semester began, there would only be more expenses. Though she would be receiving some birthday money, it still did little to ease her worry. She called her aunt, who greeted her warmly, asking what she was up to and whether she had eaten lunch. Jeong Yi-Han replied that she had just eaten with her brother. Her aunt, relieved, mentioned that she and her husband had also finished eating after spending the morning buried in unpacking boxes. Then her aunt asked with a teasing note whether anything had happened last night with Chio. Jeong Yi-Han felt her body stiffen as jitters ran through her. Remembering what had actually happened, she quickly denied it, insisting that nothing had occurred. Her aunt remarked that her voice had cracked slightly. Jeong Yi-Han calmed herself and repeated that nothing had happened, all the while apologizing inwardly. She thought sorrowfully that if she told her aunt the truth, it would only break her heart. Her aunt, sensing her insistence, let the matter go. Just hearing her voice made her aunt miss her even more. From behind, her uncle called out, promising Jeong Yi-Han that they would come visit her soon. Jeong Yi-Han smiled faintly and affirmed that she would wait. Her aunt then mentioned that she had not called only to check in, but also to remind her about the money she had sent earlier, asking if Jeong Yi-Han had checked her balance. When Jeong Jeong Yi-Han looked. She was stunned at the large amount. Her aunt explained gently that since she was now living with Kyo, she would need more money. She told her not to stretch herself thin, only to use it when necessary. Jeong Yi-Han hesitated, but her aunt insisted firmly that she not argue, saying she would be sending this regularly from now on. Before hanging up, her aunt said she would finish unpacking and call her again that night. After the call ended, Jeong Yi-Han thought that she could not just sit around idly. She opened her diary and began writing, deciding that she could not let her worries pile up any further. She resolved to start searching for a part-time job. Meanwhile, after washing up, Kyo felt refreshed but puzzled. He thought critically about how Jeong Yi-Han had been living. The toilet paper was folded oddly, almost like origami, and there was barely any shampoo or toothpaste left. Yet she had acted as if everything was normal. He wondered how she could manage like that. With breakfast out of the way, he thought that maybe they should go grocery shopping together. Before he could bring it up, however, he noticed Jeong Yi-Han rushing out. She called back, saying she would be late. Kyo stopped her, asking where she was going. Jeong Yi-Han answered that she had a part-time job interview as she tied her hair up. Hearing this, Kyo grew exasperated, thinking that she really would not give him a moment's peace. He called out again, asking if she was certain about this. Jeong Yi-Han explained that since classes had not yet started, she figured she could find work in the meantime. Kyo asked if she was short on money. Jeong Yi-Han denied it, insisting that it was not like that. She thought inwardly that she had received too much already, and if she confessed to him that she felt pathetic for accepting money she did not deserve, he would only worry. So instead, she told him that she simply wanted to earn her own allowance now. Kyo paused, then asked her to turn around. Jeong Yi-Han looked puzzled, asking what was wrong. Kyo told her to hold still as he reached out to tie her hair. Jeong Yi-Han was caught off guard, reminiscing silently that her aunt had never really tied her hair when she was a child. It had always been Kyo, even with his clumsy fingers tangling her hair. She remembered how she had never minded. Now, as his hands brushed against her, she felt strangely aware. She thought that maybe he missed the little girl who had once let him do this, not the woman she had become. Kyo, lost in thought, noted that they happened to be using the same shampoo as always. He wondered if she knew that it was not just her hair he wanted to hold. Jeong Yi-Han broke the silence, asking if he was finished because she had to get going. But instead of letting her go, Kyo wrapped his arms around her, hugging her from behind. She froze, her mind racing. Something about him felt different today. His voice, his expression, maybe even her own feeling. She questioned silently whether she was being too insensitive. After all, it had only been a day since they started living together, yet everything already felt like it was changing. As Kyo asked Jeong Yi-Han if he asked her, would she stay out, Jeong Yi-Han realized his unfamiliar gaze and serious tone. The face she had always known suddenly felt distant. His words were not dramatic. Neither were they casual either. There was a pause, almost as if he left room for an answer he could not bring himself to ask for, in that quiet moment where boundaries blurred. She did not know what to say as Jeong Yi-Han stated that she even wore new clothes today, which made Kyo flinch. Jeong Yi-Han added that she splurged on them and should probably go out. Kyo chuckled, hearing this, affirming that sure, she could go out as far as she could, which made Jeong Yi-Han question why he was so cold. She thought he had something important to say, but Kyo denied it, stating that he just wanted some company and wanted her to hang out with him. Jeong Yi-Han asked if she thought it was something serious, for which Kyo cried out, questioning if she did not even feel a little sorry for this poor upperclassman who was back at school with no friends and no classmates. Jeong Yi-Han thought that he always acted like this as she became nervous for no reason, and she called out for him, laughing, stating that the face he made when he asked had made her actually think about staying for a second. She added that anyway, she would be really late if she did not go now. She would call him when she was done, asking him not to worry about her, gratefully thanking him for helping her tie her hair. As Kyo was left alone, he was baffled that just like that, with a smile, she left. Reaching the cafe, it was Jeong Yi-Han's first interview, and no wonder she was nervous. She reminded herself that she should avoid panicking like this. She had not even started yet, and she really should not panic. She was determined that she would just face it head on. A few days later, she did not get any part-time job at the cafe. They preferred someone with previous experience at restaurants. They needed someone to clear tables who could be physically fit. At a convenience store, she was told that she was just going to quit when the semester started anyway. Jeong Yi-Han cried out that all those listings had no experience or gender preference requirements. Her phone rang, and it was Kyo calling, asking how today's interview went. Jeong Yi-Han, quite baffled by his teasing, stated that she was still at a cafe nearby, just killing time. Kyo stated that she was not going to get it either way and should just come home already as he was bored. Jeong Yi-Han stated that was not true, she would just get this one. She had just faced bad luck so far. Kyo asked which interview it was today. Jeong Yi-Han stated that he knew the building. The new board game cafe was opening there. Kyo asked her, stating that the semester started next month and she should not need to push herself so hard. Jeong Yi-Han thought that she supposed he was going to have a lot on his plate as well, and she did not need to stress about this now. She thought that since he was already looking for something permanent, would it not be better to work somewhere he could apply his major? Kyo asked her not to stress herself unnecessarily, which made her think about how this was how he cheered her up. She thought they really were different from others. Kyo stated that it was time time for her to find her own part too, as she did not really get to enjoy anything during high school. All he wanted was for her to start university without any worries and not to worry about money, as he would cover her expenses. Jeong Yi-Han laughed it off, thanking him. She stated that if this one did not work out, she would take it slow. Anyway, it was time for her to go now. Chio tried to stop her, but Jeong Yi-Han thanked him for worrying about her as she laughed. Chio realized that just now it felt like she drew a line. Sometimes it felt like the wall around her suddenly grew taller. He thought he knew her well. She had always been by his side, but that was just an illusion. Jeong Yi-Han only ever showed him what she wanted him to see. She never had any intention of showing him more than that. Jeong Yi-Han thought that it was not like she did not want to take time for herself, but if she let go of all this, everything she had worked for until now might come crashing down, and that terrified her. From behind, someone called out for Jeong Yi-Han, stating that they were leaving. She recalled a friend saying they were heading to the karaoke, questioning if she was going to come. Jeong Yi-Han denied it, saying she did not want people at home to worry about her being late. Others affirmed, questioning what was the point of asking then, remarking that she did not have a little compassion. She thought that making sure Chio did not worry, that was her job, and it was not something anyone forced on her. It was her choice. She got a notification about the interview location and the pinned map. She realized that the location had changed. She moved to the location where a person welcomed her, asking how he could help her. Jeong Yi-Han stated that she was there for the 4 interview. A person came in, thinking that she was early. He was the manager there, and they would hold the interview inside. Jeong Yi-Han affirmed, thanking him, thinking that he seemed gentle and it was a relief. She thought that this time around, she was passing this interview, although this place looked a little odd. The narrow hallways and cluttered rooms kind of felt like a cheap dorm. She thought it was a bit run down, questioning what kind of office this really was. As they opened the door, she questioned if they were doing the interview there, going into the cramped room. The manager stated the cafe was not ready yet, but they were using the office for now, hoping she would understand. Jeong Yi-Han affirmed but thought that she was feeling something was off, hoping she would understand. The manager stated that they should begin. Jeong Yi-Han finished her thoughts as the manager assured her not to be nervous, and just think of it as a chat. He would ask simple questions while keeping things casual. Jeong Yi-Han thought that hearing this relaxed her a bit as he moved on to questioning if it was her first part-time job, if she was at an age where she probably had a lot of friends, and if she thought she could work on weekends. Jeong Yi-Han affirmed that she had plenty of free time and not many friends, so it was all good. After that, the interview felt natural, like a real conversation. It flowed smoothly. The manager laughed that she was quite respectful, and that was not easy to find these days. If she was okay with it, he would love to work with her. Jeong Yi-Han was delighted, thinking that she was worried it would not work this time either, but she was really glad it did. Jeong Yi-Han thanked him, stating that she would do her best. The manager said that someone was happy. She stated that she was actually kind of desperate to find something soon. The manager asked if she was a student at the university, as the tuition must have been quite expensive, stating that her parents must have been helping her. Jeong Yi-Han said that her parents had passed away, so she was receiving help, but she wanted to take care of her things herself from now on. The manager apologized, stating that he should not have brought that up, but Jeong Yi-Han denied it was an issue, as everyone had their own story. The manager stated that, to be honest, he thought she was suited for something different, which made Jeong Yi-Han question him about it. The manager stated that he did not say this to everyone, but quite innocent-looking, calm people like her. Customers usually like that. Jeong Yi-Han thought that something about this felt wrong. The manager stated that she should just think of it like being a companion, and all she had to do was chat. He stated that nothing serious, just pour drinks, no pressure, no skills needed, and even students did it. In today's world, would it not be better to earn money efficiently rather than working for minimum wages? He suggested she try it once, just for experience. Jeong Yi-Han stated that she would pretend she did not hear that and would be leaving now. He stated they all said that at first, but people like her came back again. The manager followed Jeong Yi-Han, stating that she was special, while Jeong Yi-Han was scared, thinking that what truly broke her was not the fear. He saw right through her situation. It was the familiarity of it all, knowing that she was helpless. Just then, the manager grabbed her hair to untie her ponytail, stating that he could see right through her, that she was quite pretty. Jeong Yi-Han was about to cry, thinking that she was standing there, hurt and pathetic. In that moment of collapse, the name that surfaced in her mind was Chio. Just then, Chio appeared before them, sweating, warning the person not to dare lay a hand on his sister. Chio hadn't always called Jeong Yi-Han his little sister. At first, their relationship had been simple. She was the little sister of his next-door friend, and for her, he had been her older brother's friend from next door. There had been nothing special between them, just occasional encounters now and then, small moments of conversation and trivial shared laughter. But on that day, Chio had called Jeong Yi-Han his little sister. In that moment, Jeong Yi-Han remembered the furious Chio, how he had yelled and aggressively told the manager not to lay a hand on her, on his little sister. She had felt deeply moved because that was the first time she had sensed a boundary of protection surrounding her, a line no one could cross. Yet she had been puzzled. How had Chio even known she was there? As Chio had looked toward the manager's hand, he had noticed Jeong Yi-Han's hairband. He remembered how earlier that morning, while fixing Jeong Yi-Han's hair, she had mentioned it kept slipping because of the way he had tied it. He had replied that was why he needed to keep her trying. He had thought about all the other pains Jeong Yi-Han might have endured in places like these when he wasn't around. Chio realizes that silence seemed the perfect response in the quiet tension, a raw raw shield for what could not be said aloud. Chio moved in front of Jeong Yi-Han and remarked that the atmosphere felt strange for a job interview. There had been no board game room anywhere in the building, no sign, and the basement office had not a single CCTV. He had stepped close to the manager, staring into his eyes with a furious glare, and declared that anyone could see this was not an interview but a setup. He then asked the manager why he hadn't explained what he was holding, and what Jeong Yi-Han's hairband had to do with today's interview. The manager calmly said that Jeong Yi-Han's boyfriend had gotten the wrong impression because of the shabby office. Manager thought he had messed with the wrong person, and now it was going to be annoying. He told Chio there was no need to worry. It wasn't what he thought. He had only exchanged a few words with Jeong Yi-Han. Chio interrupted, called Jeong Yi-Han, and stated that the manager shouldn't address someone else's little sister so casually. The manager remained calm, remarking that Jeong Yi-Han's boyfriend was a bit noisy, and then provoked Jeong Yi-Han by saying children without family were vulnerable, clinging to anyone, just looking for something to lean on. He added that while the relationship might feel like family now, he's seen too many girls get tossed aside after meeting the wrong man. At first, they might pretend to care, but once there was nothing in it for them, they always vanished. In this world, people leaned on each other only enough to survive. Chio's anger had surged. The manager continued by saying Jeong Yi-Han needed to wake up and think about where she truly belonged. Jeong Yi-Han cursed under her breath, and Chio had stepped forward. Jeong Yi-Han told Chio that it was okay. She hadn't expected it to be useful, but she had felt a strange instinct from the start and had recorded everything just in case. She asked him to stop now. There was nothing more she needed to hear. Her hands had been shaking, but the truth was she hadn't recorded anything. She wondered what to do. If she stopped now, he would find out for sure. But her body had trembled too violently to speak. While she hesitated, Chio had grabbed her hand. He told her she had done a great job. His words hadn't been solely out of concern. They had been meant to put the manager down so Jeong Yi-Han wouldn't be shaken. Chio couldn't let her be unsettled like that. Jeong Yi-Han then told the manager to come to his senses. It was hardly the time to worry about someone else. The manager had grown furious and asked if she was trying to lecture others when she didn't understand her own situation. Jeong Yi-Han replied that lacking a family didn't mean one clung to just anyone. Giving one's heart away, whether out of love or pity, wasn't something everyone could manage. Jeong Yi-Han added that the office wasn't shabby, but the manager's twisted way of looking at people was. If he had anything else to say, she suggested he think carefully before speaking. One more word, and she would call the police. As she had left, she told him that if he was curious about where he belonged, he could keep going on with his statement. Outside, Chio asked if she was okay. Jeong Yi-Han said perhaps her adrenaline was finally coming down, and it felt like she couldn't walk. Chio then suggested carrying her, but she refused, insisting it wasn't that bad. He smiled and remarked that she had seemed different while talking to the manager, meaning it positively. Jeong Yi-Han thought inwardly that it was all thanks to Chio himself, recalling his words and feeling a blush rise across her cheeks. She asked Chio how he had known she was in the basement. Chio said she shouldn't even let him start, as she had no idea how much trouble she had caused him. After receiving no contact from her for a while, he had grown worried and decided to pick her up, only to discover there was no board game room in the building. He looked around, thinking she might have given the wrong address. Then he returned to the building front, noticed stairs going down to the basement, and followed a hunch that he must check downstairs. Jeong Yi-Han then mentioned there had been someone in the office lobby. Chio said it was empty when he arrived. She then noted that was fortunate. With furious exasperation, he scolded her for feeling relieved and not contacting him immediately if the location had changed. Jeong Yi-Han apologized, saying that hearing him scold her actually made her feel better, as she didn't think she had anyone but him. Chio got confused by her words. He said she must have been terrified and apologized for yelling. Jeong Yi-Han thanked him for worrying about her. Then he asked why she had told the man she had no family. Even if it had been a bluff, how could she say something so cold? He reminded her of the decade he had spent by her side and added that if their parents had heard, they would be saddened. Chio had paused, guessing she didn't really mean it. Jeong Yi-Han, taken aback, realized she needed to correct herself but was met with a flashback of past after her mother and brother passed away. One saying they had never considered her family. Speechless, Jeong Yi-Han later had lain on her bed at home, muttering that she was insane for not speaking to Chio. Days had passed without seeing him properly, and that evening it seemed they would eat separately again. She thought it made sense. Perhaps he was hurt by her words. She told herself she needed to apologize but didn't know what to say. Suddenly, Jeong Yi-Han had received a notification from a classmate inviting her to a group chat. She identified the sender as a fellow from the Korean University Design Department. They greeted each other formally, and Jeong Yi-Han realized it was a freshman group chat. The classmate suggested they get to know each other over drinks. Jeong Yi-Han then agreed, and they had arranged to meet Saturday night. She later realized Sunday was her mother and brother's Memorial Day and worried she wouldn't be able to go, but eventually she had found herself out the day before, hoping to avoid awkwardness with Chio and distract herself from past events. Her friend interrupted her thoughts, asking if she was okay. Blushing, Jeong Yi-Han said she was fine, just not used to these situations. Her friend noted everyone was new and suggested they drink. Jeong Yi-Han friend introduced herself as Hong Da-eun and asks her name, and Jeong Yi-Han replied that her name was Jeong Yi-Han. As she poured drinks, Jeong Yi-Han picked up her glass. Hong then suggested they get along well. Jeong Yi-Han thought it was her first first time drinking, and as she cheered, the next moment she found herself in her room. Confused, she realized she had been drinking just moments ago. A hand approached, and she wondered who it was. It had been Chi-Oh. He reminded her that she said he could enter. 2 hours earlier, back in the party room, Jeong Yi-Han's friend Hong asked her if she wanted a drink. She replied no, insisting that she was fine. Hong teased her, asking, was she already full? Jeong Yi-Han only thought that she had not even drank that much, yet she was already exhausted. Even though drinking might make her feel better, just like in movies or dramas, Jeong Yi-Han guessed it did not always work that way. She wanted to have fun, chat with everyone, and maybe have a little more to drink, but the more she drank, the more her head hurt. Then she thought that perhaps it was because tomorrow was Memorial Day. She felt awkward, sitting stiffly in the middle of the room, wishing she could join the conversation, but the place was so loud that she could barely hear anyone clearly. A fellow student sitting directly in front of her noticed her glooming expression, but the place was so loud that she could barely hear anyone clearly. He called to her, asking if it was too much and whether she wanted to step outside for some fresh air. Jeong Yi-Han realized his name was Taiwan and asked him to repeat himself. Taiwan replied that it was too loud to hear properly and moved closer, saying she looked drunk and asking again if she wanted to go outside. Suddenly, someone from behind interrupted, teasing, "What were those two doing? Could it be the birth of campus couples already?" On hearing that, everyone nearby started gossiping about them. Jeong Yi-Han worried that people would get the wrong idea. Then her friend Hong jumped in, announcing, "Did they hear that there's a super handsome upperclassman in their department?" The other students joined in, gossiping eagerly. Jeong Yi-Han silently thanked Hong for changing the topic. The conversation shifted to Chi-Oh. Students mentioned that he was apparently the ace of the department, but enlisted in the military right after graduation, technically making him a first year. Jeong Yi-Han realized instantly that they were talking about Chi-Oh. The gossip continued, noting that he was rarely seen on campus because he was famous across the university. They remarked on how handsome he was, some only having seen photos. One asked his name aloud. Jeong Yi-Han already knew who it was. Suddenly, Hong stood up, interrupting the chatter, announcing Chi-Oh's arrival. Senior Chi-Oh was there, she said, pointing as he entered the party room with his friends. The girls surrounding them greeted him and began to gossip about his appearance. Some commented that he might look scary, while others suggested that he came because he knew people from their department. One pointed out that he was technically a first year like them. Everyone crowded around to greet him. Jeong Yi-Han felt her face heating up. She thought, why is Chi-Oh Oppa here and what should she do? She didn't tell him anything before she left. And if we bump into each other, he's definitely going to be mad. She doesn't think he's seen her yet. Then she thought she should at least say hi. Hong noticed her hesitation and asked where she was going. Jeong Yi-Han quickly said she was going to get some water, praying that Chi-Oh had not heard her name yet. Unfortunately, he was looking straight at her, completely busted. Jeong Yi-Han thought she came out so he could rest comfortably at home, but now he looks upset. She decided she should at least greet him. As she approached, Chi-Oh turned to face her. Hong called out, offering her water and asking if something was wrong. Jeong Yi-Han wondered if he was pretending not to know her. Hong asked if Jeong Yi-Han suddenly looked sick, and Jeong Yi-Han replied that she was pretending not to know her. Taewon offered to get her a cold drink. While Jeong Yi-Han reflected on everything, she had not apologized for over the past days. Speaking casually in front of everyone felt strange. Blushing, she told Taewon it was fine, but Chi-Oh's behavior still left her a little hurt. Meanwhile, Chi-Oh's friend called out to him, complaining about how long it had been since they hung out and how difficult it was to see him. Another friend asked why he was so silent. Chi-Oh glared furiously at his friend and asked what they were talking about, and his friend waved it off as nothing. During discussions and drinking, Chi-Oh misinterpreted the situation. He thought Jeong Yi-Han was ignoring him as if they were strangers. He left the house out of consideration for her, worried he would make her uncomfortable on the day before Memorial Day, but she was already planning to slip away without a word, making him perceive her as cold-hearted, partying without a care and disregarding his feelings. Chi-Oh worried. Was Jeong Yi-Han planning to ignore him at university as well? Suddenly, one friend called out, "Then why are he drinking alone like a coward?" Chi-Oh apologized and began to explain, but another friend reminded him that he had not contacted anyone after his discharge. Another friend said not to get started, claimed he dragged out Chi-Oh and states that it's because of his little sister. Shocked, the friends questioned Chi-Oh about his sister, as he had never mentioned her. They were told she was grown up, making it seem ridiculous that he refused to leave the house. Someone asked if she was pretty. Chi-Oh replied bluntly, yes, she was very pretty, and his friend demanded to see a photo. Jeong Yi-Han watched Chi-Oh enjoying himself with his friends. Taewon asked if she was okay, noting she looked drunk. She recalled the incident after the interview, remembering herself to apologies to Chi-Oh. She never intended to ignore him deliberately, even if her actions made him feel responsible. She avoided being a burden, knowing it would hurt him. Watching Chi-Oh with his friends, she realized he could smile freely around them. She wondered if he could forgive his foolish little sister for her previous mistakes. Later, back at home, Chi-Oh carried Jeong Yi-Han to her room and laid her on her bed. While fixing her hair, he asked if she finally sobered up. Jeong Yi-Han asked what happened and how she ended up there. Chi-Oh explained that she suddenly got drunk and frightened him. She replied that she remembered nothing. Chi-Oh scolded her, telling her to drink in moderation. Jeong Yi-Han asked what happened next, and Chi-Oh explained that he carried her home. She vaguely remembered the act and laughed. Chi-Oh questioned why she was laughing. Chi-Oh said she just sobered up and suggested they talk tomorrow, but Jeong Yi-Han Yi-Han held his hand, saying she did not want to wait. She suddenly pulled him onto her bed and hugged him, shocking him, saying she had something to tell him. Blushing, Jeong Yi-Han admitted that they had not talked properly for days. Chio nodded and thought she seriously needed to be banned from alcohol. Jeong Yi-Han asked if he remembered a certain day. Chio asked which day. She mentioned the day he called her his sister for the first time, back when she was in second grade. It was raining non-stop for a week. On that day, he saved her after she was left alone at home. She reminded him of his words that he would love her even more than her parents could, and everything would be alright. Even now, thinking about it took her breath away. He said exactly what she needed to hear. She passed out after that, letting her guard down. She vaguely remembered her heavy breathing and the rain on her face. The next thing she recalled was waking to the strong smell of medicine in the hospital. She opened her eyes, noticing Chio arguing with a nurse. The nurse asked for contact information for an adult or a family member. Chio shouted that she was his sister and he was her brother. He begged the nurse to save her, tears in his eyes. Jeong Yi-Han felt emotional, realizing she could never forget that moment. In truth, she passed out from hunger and felt guilty for worrying both him and the nurse. Even thinking about that makes her hungry even now with all the food her uncle and aunt gave her afterward. She did not understand why she still felt hungry. Jeong Yi-Han clutched Chio's arm, apologizing for what happened a few days ago. Chio hugged her tightly, acknowledging that he remembered that day as well, because that was when Jeong Yi-Han truly became his little sister, the day he was at his most. The term younger sibling is a convenient label, yet those words alone always reminded Jeong Yi-Han of her position, how far she could go and where she should stop. Still, there were quiet moments when she wondered about something that she couldn't say aloud. As since the spot beside Chio had always remained empty in his family, she questioned whether she had unknowingly taken that place. And if she truly had, she wondered whether anything would have been different had she not been there at all. When morning came, Jeong Yi-Han slowly opened her eyes and found herself in an awkward position. Chio's arm was tightly wrapped around her as if she were some kind of pillow he had claimed. She lay still, trying to recall how she had ended up sleeping like that. She remembered falling asleep beside him, vaguely recalling her drunken rambling as she had buried her face against him. She remembered how she kept reminiscing about the past while her voice had probably been slurring. Yet after a certain point, everything was blank. She remembered the gentle pats on her head, the warmth of his hand, and how he kept patting until she drifted off completely. It must have been him who stayed awake while she fell asleep without a care. That thought alone brought a strange heaviness to her chest. But before she could dwell on it any further, she realized the heat between them was becoming unbearable. Deciding it would be too awkward if they woke up tangled like that, Jeong Yi-Han attempted to slip away before Chio opened his eyes. She moved carefully, trying not to disturb him, but the moment she shifted, Chio tightened his arm around her, making breathing a little difficult. She froze, wondering how a real sibling was supposed to handle such a situation between supposed siblings. She wondered whether real siblings went through moments like this, or if it was just her misfortune. Unknown to her, Chio was already awake. He had stayed awake for all of the night thanks to her presence and had decided it was only fair that she should struggle a little that morning. He wanted to see how she would react. Just then, Chio became aware of something else. Jeong Yi-Han's hand was resting directly on his chest, while one of her legs was positioned between his. That realization sent a jolt through him, and he instantly yelled. Jeong Yi-Han flinched and asked if he was alright. Chio quickly backed away and muttered that it wasn't her fault. He had only felt too heavy and had tried to push a little. Jeong Yi-Han immediately apologized, insisting she hadn't intended to wake him. Chio waved it off, saying it was fine as long as she understood. He mentally noted how dangerously close that moment had been and decided not to dwell on it. He cleared his throat and remarked that since she was already awake, they should get prepared to visit the memorial park. He casually asked about her hangover. Jeong Yi-Han replied that she was fine, trying to compose herself. After getting ready, they stepped outside, only for a car to suddenly stop in front of Jeong Yi-Han. Jeong Yi-Han blinked in surprise and asked when Chio had gotten a car. Chio revealed that his father had left it for him, mentioning how he had said one never knew when it might come in handy while they were living together. Jeong Yi-Han then hesitantly asked what his uncle had said about it. Chio brushed that aside, telling her not to worry and to get in. Once she sat down, he leaned over and fastened her seatbelt. He glanced at her and asked if she was doubting his driving skills. Jeong Yi-Han denied it, saying she just felt uneasy for no particular reason. Chio chuckled and assured her she had no need to feel guilty. He recalls that his father had warned him that if he ever gave a ride to any woman other than Jeong Yi-Han, he knew what would happen to him. Chio smirked and stated calmly that she was the only one he planned to drive around anyway. With that, he started the engine and told her to hold on. Jeong Yi-Han only nodded as they began moving towards the memorial park. But her mind lingered on his comment, the only one he was going to drive around. She stared out of the window, repeating those words in her head. She wondered if she was overthinking again. Chio called her name and asked if she was listening to him. Jeong Yi-Han blinked and asked what he had said. Chio repeated his question, whether she had slept well the night before. She answered yes without hesitation. She wondered why her mind kept circling back to that earlier line. Chio seemed to have sensed something, because he added that he had asked only because she usually struggled to sleep before Memorial Day. He wanted to check if she had been alright. Jeong Yi-Han almost said she had slept well because he had been beside her, but she stopped herself and simply reassured him once more that she was fine. He wanted to check if she had been alright. Chio nodded, satisfied. Then another realization struck her. She hadn't dreamt of anything that night. Normally, she would toss around restlessly when she was alone. She wondered whether sleeping next to Chio had given her unexpected comfort. While she was lost in her thoughts, Chio wondered whether he should stop talking altogether because she had gone quiet ever since he had asked that. So, he decided to remain silent too, at least until they arrived. Meanwhile, Jeong Yi-Han noticed a faint tightness in her chest. She did not know why. Upon reaching the memorial park, she thanked tightness in her chest. She did not know why. Upon reaching the memorial park, she thanked Chio for driving. They walked forward, and he asked if she felt cold. She shook her head and said they should continue. She stared ahead at the familiar place where her mother and brother were resting. Nothing there had changed despite countless seasonal shifts. It felt as though the place had been waiting for her to grow up and return someday. While standing before them, Jeong Yi-Han felt the same sense of longing as always. She greeted her mother and brother softly, saying it had been a while since her last visit. Chio said he had to return to the car to grab the flowers he had forgotten. Jeong Yi-Han offered to join him, but he refused, saying he would be quick and she should stay. Every year, whenever Jeong Yi-Han stood before her mother and brother, she apologized for not being able to visit more often. And brother, she told them she had missed them dearly. Standing there made her feel like a child again, as though the longing she had carefully folded and tucked away had returned to its original place. She quietly updated them about recent events in her life. As she spoke, she sensed someone approaching from behind. She assumed it was Chio and quickly stood up. She turned around slightly and murmured, "Back already, brother?" To Jeong Yi-Han's surprise, it was her aunt who appeared before her. The woman asked casually how she had been doing lately. For Jeong Yi-Han's surprise, it was her aunt who appeared before her, as she was one of the most difficult people she knew. Her aunt remarked that it was the first time she had seen her since middle school and asked her current age. Jeong Yi-Han replied softly that she was now 20. Though they had once lived together briefly, they had never grown close. Her aunt then sighed, commenting on how much time had already passed. Jeong Yi-Han thought bitterly that in this world, her aunt was perhaps the one who despised her most. Even during the funeral of her mother and brother, the woman had slapped her in front of everyone, blaming her by saying it was her fault that her sister had died. Others had rushed to stop her and had questioned how she could act that way toward a grieving child, but the wound had stayed deep in Jeong Yi-Han's memory. Her aunt gave her a long look and remarked that if she was 20, she must be preparing to find a job, as work was not easy to come by these days. Jeong Yi-Han carefully replied that she had actually been accepted into Korean university this year, apologizing for not telling her earlier. Her aunt's expression darkened as she questioned how Jeong Yi-Han had entered university and, more importantly, where she had gotten the money. With a grim and unpleasant look, she told Jeong Yi-Han not to say she was still freeloading off that family. She reminded her harshly that she had warned her many times about them, claiming that they were only interested in the insurance payout she would inherit. She said the money had come at the cost of someone's life, and Jeong Yi-Han was simply going to hand it all over. Jeong Yi-Han protested firmly that they were not like that. Her aunt ignored her defense and shifted to criticize her father. Anger filled Jeong Yi-Han's voice as she told her not to even begin with that subject. Her aunt frowned and asked what she meant. Then, with a furious glare, Jeong Yi-Han declared that she had no right to call him her father, as she had never once thought of him that way. Her aunt then glanced at her watch, choosing to leave it at that for the day. She said she would be in touch soon regarding the insurance money and told Jeong Yi-Han to keep her words in mind. Before walking away, she warned her not to take her words lightly. Jeong Yi-Han stood still, fists clenched tightly, holding back her emotions. At that moment, Chio returned, carrying the flowers. He said lightly that now he would be able to head back. As he came closer, he unexpectedly crossed paths with Jeong Yi-Han's aunt. He paused, feeling as if she looked familiar, but quickly dismissed it as his imagination. Without another thought, he walked over to Jeong Yi-Han, apologizing for making her wait. Jeong Yi-Han had been wiping away her tears when he spoke. She quickly asked why he had taken so long. Chio explained that he had stopped on the way to buy some hot packs. She gave a faint comment, saying she had thought something might have happened. He looked at her, slightly puzzled, and decided not to ask further. Jeong Yi-Han silently felt thankful for his kindness in not pressing her for details. The fact that she could hold herself together at that moment was because of his quiet consideration. She knew if he ever found out the truth, the act of kindness would remind her of someone else, and the thought would only bring sadness. She could not bring herself to mention it. Later that day, back near Jeong Yi-Han's home, a boy stood quietly in front of her house. A neighbor noticed him and addressed him as a young man, asking what he was doing there. She pointed out that the handsome boy from the house next door, referring to Chi-Oh, had left earlier in a car with Jeong Yi-Han. She asked if the boy had business there. The young man nodded slightly and replied yes, saying there was something he needed to see. The next morning, Jeong Yi-Han stood before her wardrobe, wondering what she should wear on the first day of class. Time kept slipping away as she debated with herself, and at that rate she would soon be late. It still felt unreal that she was now a college student. Simply throwing on anything felt lazy, but putting too much effort into dressing up felt excessive. She wondered what kind of outfit would make her look approachable, like someone others would want to befriend on such an important day. Her mind wandered back to her uncle and aunt, who had always helped her get ready on such occasions. Her aunt used to suggest outfits with an easy smile, praising her by saying she could pull off anything, but that something neat always looked better for formal occasions. Her uncle had a habit of joking that she was so pretty that plenty of guys would refuse to graduate just to stay in the same year as her. Remembering those moments made Jeong Yi-Han miss them deeply. She quickly reminded herself that it was not the time for such thoughts. Chio was waiting outside and she needed to get ready. She told herself to just pick something and get it over with. But before she could reach for anything, a hand suddenly reached past her shoulder. She leaned in and remarked that she could probably spend the entire day picking clothes at that pace. Startled, Jeong Yi-Han asked when he had come in. Chio casually replied that he had been there for a while. He had assumed something might happen, so he had watched quietly. Without waiting for her response, he declared that he would choose her clothes for her and warned her not to complain later. Though feeling slightly uncomfortable by how close he was standing, Jeong Yi-Han reluctantly agreed. She tried to keep calm while Chio flipped through her wardrobe, muttering about how everything looked the same. Standing so close to him made her uneasy, but it no longer felt like simple discomfort. There was a strange tension in the air that lingered between them like static. Chio glanced back at her, noticing her silence and the faint redness on her face. He asked what she had been thinking. Before she could answer, he suddenly stated that he could not allow the situation to continue like that. Confused, Jeong Yi-Han asked what he meant, but he only reminded her that she had promised not to complain, so she should remember that. Eventually, they left for college. Jeong Yi-Han looked at herself in the reflection of a window and questioned why she had ended up in a hoodie and cap. She turned to Chio and complained that she looked too casual. Chio asked what was wrong with that, saying she looked exactly like a college student. He asked if she thought she was going on a school trip. He then added that comfortable clothes were the best for students, as anyone spending hours in stiff outfits would find their grades suffering. Jeong Yi-Han admitted that, now that he explained it, it did make sense. But after a moment, she asked why he himself was dressed so nicely. Chio shrugged and said he would still look good even in rags. Jeong Yi-Han sighed internally, thinking he was saying strange things again. She then asked if their first class usually ended early and suggested that they should eat lunch together afterward. Chio responded that there was something they needed to discuss. Curious, she asked what it was, but he only told her to wait. As they reached the campus, Jeong Yi-Han looked around in awe. She had only seen such scenery in dramas, and now she finally understood how it felt to walk through a university as an actual student. However, her excitement faded slightly as she remembered that she was attending alone. Chio had insisted that they should pretend not to know each other at school. She asked where he had gotten such an idea. Chio replied that it should have been obvious. She had not acknowledged him the previous night, so acting close now would make things even stranger. Jeong Yi-Han reluctantly admitted that she did understand, though she still felt it was a little too cold. Chio added that if they openly spent time together and others found out they lived in the same house, it would cause unnecessary trouble for both of them. He reminded her that she had already said she cared about such things, given that she was now an adult attending the same school and even the same department as him. Realizing he was right, Jeong Yi-Han stayed quiet. Chio then reached out and patted her head lightly, telling her not to worry. He said he would be careful and she should focus on starting her new college life properly. Being a junior in the same department would not be too difficult for her. As Jeong Yi-Han entered the main building, she told herself that she could not rely on Chio forever. She only needed to make friends, blend in, and focus on her studies. She eventually found her way to the visual design department and stepped into her classroom. She looked around, wondering where to sit, when she heard a familiar voice calling her name. It was Da-eun. Jeong Yi-Han greeted her and mentioned that it had been a while. Da-eun agreed, saying it was nice to see her again. Then she glanced at Jeong Yi-Han's outfit and jokingly asked if she had overslept, referring to the cap and hoodie. Jeong Yi-Han replied vaguely that it had just turned out that way, silently blaming Chio in her head. The professor entered shortly after, and the entire class stood to greet him. Da-eun asked Jeong Yi-Han whether she had returned home safely the previous night, and Da-eun followed up by asking if she was feeling alright after drinking. Jeong Yi-Han replied that she was fine, and had made it home without any issues. She thought that thanks to the excuse she had come up with, she had slipped away smoothly. Da-eun commented that drinking that much would naturally leave anyone exhausted. After Jeong Yi-Han had left, the other seniors had slowly dispersed as well, so the gathering had ended on its own. Da-eun admitted that she had been worried but was relieved to see her unharmed. Jeong Yi-Han thanked her and quietly thought that Da-eun truly seemed like a good person. The professor then introduced himself and announced that he would be teaching the foundation of visual design for the first semester. The professor explained that he would go over the syllabus, assignments, and overall structure of the course. The subject focused on learning how to visualize and express concepts through form. Listening to him, Jeong Yi-Han felt motivated, determined to work hard and earn a scholarship no matter what. While the professor continued speaking, Da-eun slid her notebook toward Jeong Yi-Han with a message written on the page. She wrote that she had been curious about something. Jeong Yi-Han picked up her pen and asked what it was. Da-eun wrote again, asking if Jeong Yi-Han had attended Yuhan Middle School. Jeong Yi-Han asked how she knew that, and Da-eun revealed that she had also gone there. Jeong Yi-Han apologized for not recognizing her. Da-eun replied that she had not been certain either, then added that it was not the only reason she had asked. Jeong Yi-Han wondered why she hesitated and thought that although she had not known Da-eun had gone to the same middle school, it was still a relief as it might help them become closer. Da-eun then wrote that she actually knew a little about Jeong Yi-Han's situation, so if she ever had trouble adjusting to college life, she should promise to talk to her. Jeong Yi-Han was startled by that comment. Da-eun enthusiastically wrote that she should just trust her. Jeong Yi-Han stared at the note in silence while the professor continued giving instructions at the front of the room. The boy sitting behind Jeong Yi-Han asked his classmate why she had been staring in one direction the whole time, referring to her as Kwon Mira. The classmate replied that it was nothing serious. She had just thought she had seen something slightly concerning. Meanwhile, the boy from before was struggling to concentrate. His friend noticed his distracted expression and asked whether something was bothering him. The boy, Seo, Yujin, hesitated before apologizing. His friend told him not to apologize and to speak freely. Seo, Yujin admitted that he still had not found a place to live. The friend was surprised and asked where he had been staying during the break. Seo, Yujin responded that he had been staying at a sauna. The friend exclaimed at how ridiculous that was, but Seo, Yujin insisted it had not been so bad. He said that perhaps because he had been sweating so much, his skin had even improved. The friend shook his head and called him a weirdo. Before he could say more, someone called out to him referring to him as Park Juman, so he told Seo Yujin that he would be right back. As he walked away, he advised him to just move into a place temporarily before the coach noticed him still stalling. Seo Yujin thought that it was not that he had been picky. When he had left the orphanage, he had believed that he could manage on his own with the self-support allowance. However, with that amount, renting even a single room in Seoul was nearly impossible. The rooftop rooms he had looked at a few days earlier had decent prices and good locations, but he had foolishly gone without contacting the landlord in advance, so he had not even been able to view them. He thought that staying in the sauna was not particularly bothersome and did not trouble him much, but he was aware that he could not continue living that way forever. Deciding that he should at least try to move forward, he sent a message in a housing group chat. He wrote that he was a student at Korean University and had seen a rooftop listing. If it was still available, he would like to take a look. The landlord replied that their son was also a student at Korean University. They said it was nice to meet him and confirmed that the place was still vacant. Since they were currently living in the countryside, they could not show it themselves, but they offered to arrange a viewing with their son. They provided the address, meeting instructions, and the son's phone number. Meanwhile, Chio was greeting his classmates while thinking back to his conversation with Jeong Yi-Han. The more he thought about it, the funnier it seemed. He remembered telling Jeong Yi-Han that she should focus on her own college life. She had then asked whether she should not even greet him at all and pretend they had never seen each other. While recalling it, Chio realized that even though it had made sense, he still felt slightly disappointed. At that moment, his mother sent him a message asking whether he and Jeong Yi-Han had arrived at school safely. She reminded him that it was their first day and told him to look after Jeong Yi-Han had arrived at school safely. She also reminded him not to forget to eat lunch with her. Chio replied, asking if that was the only reason she had texted him. He thought that even his own mother only worried about Jeong Yi-Han and not him. His mother quickly wrote back, saying that it was not only that. She asked whether he remembered the house they were renting out. Since he still had the keys, she asked if he could show it to people when he had time. Chio thought that if the house were rented out, Jeong Yi-Han might be upset. His mother added that it was a Korean university student who wanted to see the place, so she had already given the student his number. She was just letting him know. Right then, Chio received a call from an unknown number. Assuming it was the student his mother had mentioned, he picked up. On the other end, Seo Yujin introduced himself and they greeted each other. As Chio greeted Seo Yujin over the phone, Seo Yujin returned the greeting and explained the reason behind his call. He mentioned the rooftop room that had been listed for rent and cautiously asked if it was a good time to discuss it. Chio replied that it was fine, although inwardly his ears were slightly irritated by Seo Yujin's voice, wondering why it sounded like someone narrating from inside an underground cave. He asked Seo Yujin when he was planning to check out the place. Seo Yujin thought for a moment and suggested visiting that evening. Chio responded that tonight might be a little difficult. He could sense that Seo Yujin was in a rush, so he decided to give his opinion honestly. He asked Seo Yujin if he had ever lived in a rooftop room before and told him plainly that such places were extremely hot during the summer and freezing in the winter, so he personally wouldn't recommend it. Seo Yujin, on the other hand, replied calmly that if that was the case, then he was fine with it, adding that it was still better than living inside a sauna. Chio was puzzled by the comment, wondering if Seo Yujin was seriously implying that he had been living in a sauna until now. Realizing the urgency in Seo Yujin's tone, he said that if he was in that much of a hurry and wanted to come in the evening, then he would go there straight after class, clean it up a little, and make it presentable for him. Understanding the gesture, Seo Yujin thanked him. However, as he was about to confirm, an old memory passed through his mind. He recalled someone once saying that children without parents were nothing but a nuisance and should just live quietly without bothering others. With that thought lingering, Seo Yujin quickly refused and said that it was fine and he did not want to trouble Chio unnecessarily. He apologized, but Chio told him there was nothing to be sorry about, thinking that this was something he had to do sooner or later anyway. He still could not quite figure out Seo Yujin's personality and suggested meeting tomorrow or the day after instead. Just then, someone called out to Seo Yujin from the background, telling him to hang up and come over for a second. They mentioned that the seniors had announced a new judo club recruitment that afternoon and everyone needed to gather. Yujin apologized again and said something had come up, so he needed to hang up for now. He told Chio that he would come by in 3 days and would contact him then. With that, he ended the call. Chio stood still for a moment thinking about the word judo and wondered if he should have said earlier that no room was available. Meanwhile, Jeong Yi-Han was still unsettled by Da-eun's earlier remark and found it difficult to focus on the class. She kept wondering what Da-eun had meant by it. She asked herself whether she appeared pitiful in Da-eun's eyes or if Da-eun thought she was in some special situation that needed sympathy. She questioned if she was becoming a burden or if she was only imagining it because of embarrassment. She tried to compose herself and decided she should not think negatively, telling herself that she was the one making things uncomfortable. She looked at Da-eun and thought that Da-eun did not seem like someone who would mean anything in a bad way, so she should be grateful instead of doubting her intentions. She wondered why her heart always twisted everything. While Jeong Yi-Han was gathering her thoughts, Da-eun assumed Jeong Yi-Han might just be sleepy like her. Jeong Yi-Han was gathering her thoughts. Jeong Yi-Han felt that the beginning and end of every emotion only led to her own heart getting tangled. The professor concluded his lecture and announced that the class was over for the day. The students thanked him and began leaving their seats. Da-eun turned to Jeong Yi-Han and asked if she wanted to grab lunch since class had ended earlier than scheduled. Jeong Yi-Han replied that she had already eaten breakfast and was not hungry. Before Da-eun could say more, another girl called her, mentioning it was her first time seeing her after the drinking party and asked if she had been doing well. Da-eun replied enthusiastically, saying she had missed her and called her Ju-young, adding that they were all in the same class. Jeong Yi-Han realized that Ju-young was one of the people present at the last drinking party. Da-eun then introduced Ju-young to Jeong Yi-Han, and Jeong Yi-Han greeted her politely, introducing herself as Jeong Yi-Han. Ju-young smiled and said they should all be friends from then on. She suggested going to the cafeteria together if Jeong Yi-Han did not mind, saying she had been wanting to try the food there. Da-eun agreed to the plan immediately, but Jeong Yi-Han insisted that she was not hungry and told them to go ahead without her. In Jeong Yi-Han's mind, she thought it would be convenient, as she could use this opportunity to explore the campus and get familiar with the place at her own pace. However, Da-eun stopped her and said she should come along as well, explaining that it would be awkward for her too, since it was her first time meeting Ju-young properly. She assured Jeong Yi-Han not to worry and added that she would feel even worse as if they left her behind, so they should all eat together. Jeong Yi-Han tried to respond, saying it was not like that, but suddenly a memory flashed in her mind. She remembered a past moment where people mocked her for refusing something, saying she was not going to go anyway, so why even bother asking her? Another memory followed, where the manager from the gaming room had warned her that at first people might pretend to care about her out of pity, but when they had no reason to stay responsible, they would eventually drift away. With those thoughts pressing on her, Jeong Yi-Han was taken aback for a moment. Then she finally said, "Fine, let's go." Ju-young noticed the sudden change in Jeong Yi-Han's tone and thought to herself that maybe she should not have insisted. As the three of them walked outside together, Ju-young commented that the cafeteria food was not as good as she had expected. Jeong Yi-Han walked beside them quietly, feeling a bit bloated for no specific reason. Da-eun laughed and agreed with Ju-young, saying she had also expected it to be better. Jeong Yi-Han soon noticed that Ju-young seemed slightly awkward around her, probably due to their earlier exchange. Jeong Yi-Han felt uncomfortable from the inside, so much so that even swallowing food became difficult, as if indigestion was about to start. She scolded herself inwardly, thinking she could have simply refused instead of agreeing. She wondered why she always ended up being frustrated from the sidelines rather than expressing things properly. Her steps suddenly halted when her eyes landed on a banner nearby. Ju-young, noticing her pause, asked what she was looking at. Jeong Yi-Han replied that she had not known their university had a judo club. Ju-young looked surprised and asked if Jeong Yi-Han was really unaware of how famous their judo club, saying it was considered the pride of Korean University. She further added that one of their athletes was a star on campus and was currently preparing for the national team. Ju-young then asked if Jeong Yi-Han was interested in judo as well. Jeong Yi-Han shook her head and said she was not. It was just that her brother used to practice judo. Ju-young's expression changed as she asked if Jeong Yi-Han had a brother. Jeong Yi-Han immediately realized she had spoken without thinking and felt the need to change the subject before more questions followed. At that very moment, Chio appeared ahead of them. Without thinking, Jeong Yi-Han instinctively called out his name. Chio recognized her voice and turned around. Jeong Yi-Han instantly regretted shouting so casually. As Chio and Jeong Yi-Han faced each other, Da-eun curiously asked Jeong Yi-Han if she was close with Chi-oh-senpai. Jeong Yi-Han mentally panicked, wondering how she had landed herself in such a situation. To recover, Jeong Yi-Han quickly addressed Chio formally, calling him senpai, and said she was not sure if he remembered her. She reminded him that they had greeted each other at the drinking party, and he had told her to speak casually, so she had blurted out his name without thinking. She apologized if it had made him uncomfortable. Chio lightly brushed his hand over her head and said he remembered her before greeting her back normally. He clearly understood she had called him without thinking and was now trying to cover it up. He asked for her name again to maintain the act. Jeong Yi-Han replied that she was Jeong Yi-Han and silently thanked him for understanding the situation without exposing her. Ju-young then stepped forward and asked Chio where he was heading. Chio replied that he had some time before his next class, so he was just taking a walk. Ju-young said that was perfect because they were on their way to get some coffee, then asked if he wanted to join them. Jeong Yi-Han was caught off guard, thinking she had only just managed to smooth things over. She attempted to stop it by saying that she, OA senpai, might be busy and that they could go on their own. Chio quickly understood her intention. However, to Jeong Yi-Han's dismay, he added that he actually had some spare time and wouldn't mind joining them. He thought this would be a good opportunity to build a natural connection as a senior with his juniors. He told them he would treat them, and Jeong Yi-Han reluctantly agreed while questioning internally why such things always happened to her. Da-eun noticed a slight shift in Jeong's mood and asked if something was wrong. Ju-young admitted that she felt as if she had come off as someone clueless who dragged along a senior despite knowing he might be busy. She said they should ignore her comment and act like they had not heard it. They soon reached the cafe, and Chio bought drinks for everyone. They thanked him for the treat. Ju-young then turned to Jeong Yi-Han and asked why she had not taken her coffee yet. Jeong Yi-Han, who was drinking quickly to leave sooner, did not respond immediately. Chio instead answered on her behalf, saying Jeong Yi-Han did not handle caffeine well. Ju-young looked surprised and asked how Chio knew that, which caused both of them to tense up. Chio realized he had said something that could raise suspicion and casually shrugged toward Jeong Yi-Han before saying that on the day of the party, they had walked in the same direction and talked quite a bit, so he happened to know. He turned to Jeong Yi-Han and asked if he was right. Jeong Yi-Han nodded and said it might have happened like that, though she knew the situation was getting risky if anyone became too observant. Chio then leaned toward Jeong Yi-Han slightly, and in a lower voice asked if he was the only one who found the situation disappointing before telling her to be more mindful of her expressions. Ju-young and Da-eun noticed them whispering and immediately asked if something was wrong. Chio stepped in front of Jeong Yi-Han and said casually that he was just pointing out something on her face. Da-eun offered to check it for her, but Chio said it was not that noticeable. Jeong Yi-Han thought about how irritating it was that he remained so calm while she always ended up being the nervous one. Later, as Jeong Yi-Han walked alone toward her next class, she felt unexpectedly relieved to be by herself. She realized that being alone felt more comfortable than being surrounded by others. The more she thought about what had happened earlier, the more annoyed she became. She wondered how Chio could stay so composed in those situations, as if he was used to them. Her attention was caught by several club members nearby trying to persuade students to join their activities. Some were promoting band class, while others called for English club sign-ups. Jeong Yi-Han considered joining something as well. She had always planned to learn an instrument, but something useful for future jobs might be better. She found herself thinking that choosing was never easy. A voice suddenly boomed from the judo booth, saying even people who had never exercised were welcome. One of the seniors approached her and asked if she wanted to check it out. Jeong Yi-Han politely refused. The senior looked confused and said she had been staring earlier, so he assumed she was interested. As Jeong Yi-Han stepped back, she accidentally bumped into someone wearing a teddy bear mascot head and apologized. The person, who turned out to be Seo Yoojin, silently handed Jeong Yi-Han a leaflet that said even if someone joined and quit later, they would not chase them down for it. Jeong Yi-Han began walking away when she heard a low, familiar voice asking from behind if she was interested in judo. Jeong Yi-Han replied to Seo Yoojin that she wasn't interested in judo, thinking that he seemed remarkably tall and well-built, and the person in front of her must be practicing judo not merely as a hobby, but as a profession. He had the posture and presence of an athlete, and she hadn't realized until that moment that someone could look so commanding in that uniform. Her thoughts wandered further, imagining how his elder brother Yoojin might have looked if he were alive. Surely, he would have carried himself well in the same attire. Jeong Yi-Han immediately shook her head, scolding herself internally. Why was she letting her mind wander with thoughts of a stranger in front of her? Before she could regain composure, Seo Yoojin called out to her, asking if she was all right. Jeong Yi-Han froze, startled, because the way he addressed her, even with the teddy bear head still on, reminded her eerily of her elder brother. She realized that even if it was just the uniform, her reaction seemed disproportionate. She shouldn't be like that on the first day of the semester. For a brief moment, her mind conjured an image of Seo Yoojin speaking to her as Yoojin would have, telling her how she had been, asking if she planned to avoid them now, since they had all died because of her. Did she think she could live happily after causing such loss? The thought made her shiver, and she broke out into a cold sweat. Seo Yoojin extended his hand to help her, but Jeong Yi-Han instinctively recoiled, realizing what she was doing. The sudden commotion drew the attention of nearby students, and all eyes turned toward them. Jeong Yi-Han quickly apologized, claiming she had zoned out for a moment, and then asked about Seo, Yujin's hand. Seo, Yujin reassured her that it was alright, but she insisted, saying she would look at it later on the leaflet. Without waiting for a response, she ran off, eager to put distance between herself and the awkward situation. Seo Yujin's friend, Juman, approached, asking what had just happened. Did Seo Yujin make a mistake? Seo Yujin removed the teddy head, admitting that he might have made Jeong Yi-Han uncomfortable, and offered no further explanation. Meanwhile, as Jeong Yi-Han fled, her mind replayed her earlier thoughts, trying to convince herself that the reaction was just an accident, something she could not have controlled. Her aunt's harsh memory also resurfaced, and she attempted to console herself, though it failed. Deep down, she questioned if she truly believed she wasn't responsible. Her inner voice reminded her of the truth she had long tried to ignore. If she hadn't been so pitiful that day, her mother and elder brother would still be alive. She blamed herself entirely. Jeong Yi-Han finally broke down in tears, fully accepting her guilt, when her phone buzzed repeatedly. Chio had been calling and texting, asking where she had been and when she planned to return. He wondered why she had been so unresponsive. Did she assume he would wait endlessly while she went about her day? Perhaps she believed she had become a proper college student and was managing on her own. Chio remembered the earlier encounter where Jeong Yi-Han had blushed uncontrollably, unable to hide her expressions. He reflected on how foolish he had been to think she could ever completely mask her emotions. Glancing at the clock, he noted that it was approaching 8 and she had still not returned home. He realized this was the first time Jeong Yi-Han had been this unreachable. Rising from his seat, he decided he needed to find her. As then, Chio noticed someone entering. Seeing it was Jeong Yi-Han, he quickly called out, questioning why she was so late. Jeong Yi-Han explained that she had been grabbing dinner with friends. Chio reminded her that if she was going to be that late, she should at least make a call. Jeong Yi-Han smiled brightly and agreed, promising to be more careful next time. She entered her room, mentioning she was tired. Chio sensed something off in her demeanor. The atmosphere felt strange. Chio's eyes fell on her shoes and he recalled the superstition that she had once mentioned to Chi-Oh about shoes symbolizing welcoming good fortune. If the entrance remained tidy, it would influence what came after. Chio asked if anything bad had happened that day. Jeong Yi-Han smiled and replied no. Chio thought she was likely exhausted, perhaps overwhelmed from the first day of the semester, and decided to let it go. Suddenly, the power went out. Chio immediately thought Jeong Yi-Han might be scared and decided to check on her. The silence in the apartment felt eerily familiar, reminiscent of the quiet tea. As Chio tried to open the door, Jeong Yi-Han called from inside, asking him to hold on and leave her alone. She needed solitude to process her emotions. With Chio around, she could not hide anything, and her coping mechanism relied on isolation. Chio understood that the silence she had imposed was her way of managing the overwhelming feelings. He called back gently, affirming that he knew she needed time alone. Jeong Yi-Han admitted quietly that she did. Chio also realized that her greatest fear at the moment was having no one there when she felt vulnerable. Determined, he told her he was coming in. Entering, he found Jeong Yi-Han crying and clenched her cheek gently, telling her that it was alright to be scared. Jeong Yi-Han hesitated, saying that even if she explained what had happened, he wouldn't believe her. Chio asked if he needed a reason to trust her. He assured her that he understood. Then Jeong Yi-Han carefully described what she had observed. The person in the judo uniform who looked so much like her elder brother Yujin. Jeong Yi-Han had perceived him as blaming her for the accident that had taken both her mother and brother. No matter how she tried to live, no matter how much she pretended to be fine, she felt undeserving of happiness, believing the deaths were her fault. On hearing these claims, Chio was shocked. Chio instructed her to breathe, warning her that dwelling on those thoughts could spiral out of control. He took her hand gently to steady her. Jeong Yi-Han admitted that she was terrified because she saw Jujin. Chio then kissed her lightly. After a moment, Chio stepped back and asked Jeong Yi-Han quietly if he looks like Yujin even then. Jeong Yi-Han was baffled by the sudden question, struggling to make sense of what had just happened. Her mind felt scrambled. While Chio had called her over, she could barely process the memory of something brushing against her lips and then being pulled away. Chio observed her, thinking that perhaps Jeong Yi-Han still wasn't in her right state of mind. Jeong Yi-Han, on the other hand, could hardly think straight at all. She tried to understand what was happening between them, feeling her chest tighten at the proximity and intensity of the moment. Chio admitted, almost to himself, that he didn't fully understand it either, since it was the first time Jeong Yi-Han had ever been so close to someone, close enough that their breaths had brushed against each other. Gently, Chio began arranging Jeong Yi-Han's hair while she became acutely aware of her own breathing. Even that small motion made her feel cautious, afraid that the pounding in her ears might be audible. Then Chio called her and stated to her that she should think of this as artificial respiration from then on. Jeong Yi-Han frowned, puzzled, asking what he meant. Chio added that she shouldn't blame him later. Then, without warning, he tried kissing her again. Jeong Yi-Han immediately pulled herself back and, flustered, asked what was he trying to do just then. Her voice trembled with a mixture of shock and embarrassment. Chio held her hand gently and smiled, noting that she seemed to be finally breathing normally. Just then, the electricity came back, flickering the lights around them. Jeong Yi-Han's cheeks burned as she tried to piece together what had just occurred. She whispered, barely able to say it aloud, What? Did they just do it? Didn't they try to kiss? Chio, teasing lightly, asked if she meant that they had kissed each other. Jeong Yi-Han's mind reeled at his shameless tone, but before she could respond, Chio reminded her, first, she needs to answer his question. Confused, Jeong Yi-Han asked, "What question? Which question?" Chio explained that he had asked her earlier. How did he look to her at that moment? Their eyes met, and Jeong Yi-Han felt herself blushing furiously. She looked away, murmuring that he looked like Chio Oppa. She couldn't bring herself to meet his gaze fully, overwhelmed by the intensity of their shared moment. Of course, she didn't realize what Chio had been thinking during the kiss, nor did she consider that this had been her first kiss ever. Blushing and glaring at him, Jeong Yi-Han felt awkward, certain that the entire experience was her own alone. Chio smirked at her expression and asked lightly why she was giving him such a look. He reminded her that he had called it simple artificial respiration, so she shouldn't assign any other meaning to it. Jeong Yi-Han muttered that it made no sense to her. Chio leaned closer and asked again, then what does she think it was? He explained calmly that he had seen her collapse, struggling to breathe, and falling apart in front of him. He hadn't known what else to do except act immediately to prevent her from worsening. After a pause, Chio apologized if he had startled her. Jeong Yi-Han realized something important in that moment. She hadn't been the only one falling apart. Chio had been also falling apart alongside her. Understanding that, she whispered an apology, feeling guilty for being so dependent. Chio immediately reassured her, saying there was no need to apologize. He simply asked her to promise that she wouldn't let herself spiral like that again. Chio hugged her tightly, and Jeong Yi-Han promised she wouldn't. Chio, in turn, replied to her that would be enough. He reminded her to get some rest and leave the rest behind. Jeong Yi-Han, inwardly, berated herself quietly for always relying on Chio to get through difficult situations. She felt fragile and dependent. As Chio began to leave, he called out one last thing to her. If something like today ever happened again, she should think of him, not Yoo-jin. Jeong Yi-Han felt puzzled, wondering if it would really be okay. Chio had replied that of course it would, since he was her elder brother at that moment, and then he had left the room. Once the door closed and she looked back, she realized that her feelings had been slowly growing for a while. All the closeness she had felt with Chio, all the shared moments, made her understand that perhaps she had started liking Chio Oppa. Early in the morning, Chio called Jeong Yi-Han, reminding her that it was early and she should not oversleep since the semester had just started. He wondered how she could already miss classes. To his surprise, Jeong Yi-Han had already left and left a note explaining that she had something to do and would see him later. Chio realized she had run away. At the campus, Ju-young and Da-eun welcomed Jeong Yi-Han, noting that she had arrived earlier than usual but looked tired. They asked if something had happened yesterday. Jeong Yi-Han replied no, though wrinkles under her eyes betrayed her sleepless night. She had not slept a wink, which seemed normal given her state. Soon, she received a text from Chio asking if she had reached school safely. Jeong Yi-Han looked at the phone and realized she had to admit that she had started seeing Chio as a man. Chio noticed that Jeong Yi-Han was not replying and wondered how long this would last. Jeong Yi-Han, meanwhile, questioned whether her feelings were love or merely an extension of her admiration for him. One thing was certain, she could no longer look at Chio casually. She reassured herself that a slightly trembling heart did not mean romantic feelings, and that she could stop these thoughts. After all, the only guy around her had always been Chio Oppa. Being alone with someone for so long sometimes lets such feelings sneak in like illusions. She remembered their previous kiss and reminded herself it had not been a real kiss, deciding not to overthink it. She recalled Chio mentioning in a prior conversation that if they ever crossed a line, they should stop seeing each other. At that moment, Da-eun called Jeong Yi-Han, and she answered. Ju-young added that they had been trying to reach her, and Jeong Yi-Han apologized, realizing she had drifted into thought. Ju-young noted that she had not been listening and mentioned knowing a senior in the PE department. He asked if she wanted to join a blind date group. Jeong Yi-Han inquired about the group, admitting that she felt shy around strangers. Da-eun comforted and encouraged her, insisting it would be fine. Jeong Yi-Han tried to resist, but then considered that joining the group might help her get over Chio. Meanwhile, Chio checked Jeong Yi-Han's class schedule on her phone, as he reached her classroom, planning to just see if she had arrived safely and leave quietly. However, he spotted Jeong Yi-Han sitting at the back. Chio spotted Jeong Yi-Han stating that she would join the blind date group. Upon hearing her decision, Chio felt irritated, realizing that she was trying to run away, and decided that he would have to chase her. Da-eun told Jeong Yi-Han that she had made the right choice. Then Ju-young asked about her idol type. Jeong Yi-Han hesitated, unsure how to answer, realizing she had never really thought seriously about it. Da-eun remarked that it was important to know so they could set her up with someone of her type. Jeong Yi-Han wondered what she was supposed to say, since she had never dated anyone. Revealing the truth might make her appear clueless. Ju-young pressed the question further, insisting she must have some preference, though she found Jeong Yi-Han strangely frustrating. Jeong Yi-Han reflected that everyone probably considered this at least once, but she had never seriously thought about who she truly liked. What kind of person appealed to her? Those feelings had always been pushed aside, leaving no one coming to mind and no standards to follow. Gradually, she pictured Chio, and heat crept to her cheeks. Da-eun noticed the blush and commented on it, teasing gently. Jeong Yi-Han, flustered, replied that she really did not know, having never been interested in dating anyone. Da-eun confirmed that meant she had never dated anyone. Jeong agreed, though he suspected Jeong Yi-Han was hiding the truth. Jeong then thought that Jeong Yi-Han had initially refused but then pretended to agree innocently, and that kind of person Jeong really hates the most. She guessed she might not really match for her. At the sauna, Seo Yujin was cautioned by a staff member about staying so long. Initially, he was supposed to stay only a few days, but he had remained longer than most guests, as it wouldn't cause any problem for her, but seeing a young person sleeping on the floor with just a blanket makes her feel bad, especially since she had mentioned he was training her nephew as well, and the cost of the training gear drained funds continuously. Seo Yujin confirmed the situation was true. The staff reminded him to be grateful to his parents for allowing him to train with money they had earned and urged him to return home, noting that children these days often ran away from home for trivial reasons. Seo Yujin reflected that it had been fortunate he had done an on-site part-time job during winter break without the coach's knowledge. That way, he could cover that round of training fees and manage a deposit for a rooftop room. Checking his phone, he found nothing interesting or suitable under his budget except for Chio Place. As he walked, he noticed a boy and his mother on the street. The mother warned her son not to run, but he ignored her, wearing a tiger suit. Seo Yujin recalled yesterday's incident with Jeong Yi-Han, remembering her shock. Perhaps it was the bear costume that caused the problem, or perhaps it had been him. Suddenly, the boy bumped into Seo Yujin. The mother instructed him to apologize. The boy hesitated, intimidated by Seo Yujin's expression, but managed a timid apology. Seo Yujin assured him it was fine and asked if he was alright. The boy, still frightened by Seo Yujin's demeanor, nodded, and the mother apologized, noting her son's immaturity as they left. She scolded him for judging people by appearances. Seo Yujin considered that his own presence must have been intimidating. Yet, strangely, Jeong Yi-Han's face seemed familiar to him, and he wondered if he had seen her before. A memory of a girl calling him Oppa surfaced, lingering in his mind. Suddenly, Seo Yujin's phone rang. His friend Yu-Man begged him to help, and Seo Yujin asked what problem he had caused this time. Listening to the explanation, Yu-Man instructed him to drop the class immediately. Back at the campus, the professor concluded his lecture, announcing that the midterm would be replaced by a group project instead of a written exam. Since it was a major course, the group would consist of 4 members to allow proper evaluation of individual contribution. Jeong Yi-Han realized she had been assigned to the infamous group project. A boy and girl in the class muttered complaints, questioning the sudden change. The professor explained that the relevant classes would begin next week and urged students to form groups promptly. The boy called Mirai, asking what they should do. Mirai worried about whom they could team up with, thinking Jeong Yi-Han already had 3 members, leaving them unable to form a group. Meanwhile, Da-eun and Jeong discussed the unfairness of having no midterm. Jeong admitted she hated the group project. Jeong Yi-Han, reflecting on teamwork, resolved to try her best not to let anyone down. She realized that since 3 members were already gathered, they only needed 1 more. On hearing this, Jeong nodded in agreement, saying, "Yeah, that's right." While Jeong thought Jeong Yi-Han was timid and clueless, doubting she could even handle a presentation properly, she suggested they might consider working with other groups. At that moment, some boys from a friend group approached Du-young, asking how many people were in her group, since they were 2 and wanted to team up with them. Du-young immediately agreed, confirming it without hesitation. Jeong Yi-Han was shocked, struggling to comprehend what the professor had said earlier. The team could only have 4 members. She tried to explain that to Ju-young, but to her surprise, Ju-young simply said she knew and added that there were plenty of students anyway. What was the big deal if one group had 5 people? Da-eun questioned whether they could even decide that on their own, and Ju-young brushed it off, saying they could ask during the next class. Jeong Yi-Han realized that if the decision was postponed, it might be too late to act. Yu-young then suggested to Jeong Yi-Han that if she was so worried, she could ask the professor herself, and Jeong Yi-Han understood the subtle push. From the back, Mirai arrived, stating there was no need to worry, and telling Jeong Yi-Han to join them. Mirai's friend added that he had just asked the professor, and since the class was large, groups of 3 were acceptable. Mirai said that worked out perfectly, and the boy introduced himself as Oh Hyun-jae, while Mirai introduced herself as Kwon Mirai. Jeong Yi-Han introduced herself as Jeong Yi-Han, silently wondering what she had gotten herself into. Mirai and Hyun-jae assured her they would see her in the next class and left. Afterward, Jeong Yi-Han prepared for the blind date. As she walked, she reflected that today was one of those rare days where she doesn't have classes with others, allowing her to attend quietly and leave without attracting attention. She realized she was used to being alone. It was a preferable situation for her as she won't make things uncomfortable for others. It was always easier to bear a world in which only she felt uneasy. Some people seemed to sense the stains on their hearts, an ability almost ghostly, and while she could not fully hide hers, she could not reveal them outright either. Misery had become a scar that never faded. She thought about how others, like Mirai and Hyun-jae, might have remembered their past interactions, and she guessed that must have been why they invited her along. Not warmth, but cautious consideration. It was too painful to accept fully, yet too hard to ignore. In that vague in-between space, she shrank within herself. Jeong Yi-Han then received a message reminding her that everyone remembered today's blind date at 6 o'clock. She realized that Da-eun likely invited her to join the group date because she worried Jeong Yi-Han would otherwise be left out, explaining why the girls' side had one more person than the boys. Jeong Yi-Han reasoned that they won't go too far yet, so she should overthink only for today. She resolved not to act self-conscious or reveal too much, spoiling the mood. She decided that by attending, she could finally determine whether her heart leaned toward Chio or not. As she checked her makeup using her phone, Chio suddenly appeared, teasing her about the sudden makeover on her way home. He remarked that it looked like she was heading somewhere fun without him. Jeong Yi-Han greeted him nervously, calling him Appa, then correcting herself to Senpai. Chio casually responded with a greeting, and Jeong Yi-Han froze, unsure what to do. Earlier that morning, she had again left a note and came alone. Now it felt awkward to suddenly admit she was going on a group date. Chio, noticing her hesitation, asked where she was going, leaning close. He implied that since he had kissed her once, she now struggled to think clearly, yet was running off to meet another guy. Jeong Yi-Han was flustered, realizing the situation had become more complicated. Suddenly, the bus arrived, and she rose, telling Chio that her bus arrived and she would be leaving, intending to see him later. Chio realized she was running away again, but this time, he accompanied her onto the bus. Jeong Yi-Han blushed in frustration as Chio questioned her destination. She thought to herself that this was not even the bus home, so why was he following her? Chio accused her of keeping secrets from him. Jeong Yi-Han grew more irritated, wondering why he kept reminding her of the day he kissed her and why he insisted on making her think about it. She had spent the entire morning avoiding him for that reason. Pressing the stop button, Jeong Yi-Han resolved that he could not follow her all the way to the meeting place, and she would get off here. As she moved toward the exit, Chio intercepted her. Jeong Yi-Han thought that many people were getting off and she should hurry so he wouldn't have to follow. Yet before she could leave, he stopped her entirely, holding her in his arms and stating firmly that he would not let her get off the bus because he simply would not allow it. Jeong Yi-Han blushed and questioned Chio, wondering what he was doing. She was worried about being late, and besides, what if someone saw them? Chio reassured her not to worry, claiming no one was interested in them anyway. Then Chio revealed that the department group blind date was starting soon. Jeong Yi-Han was stunned and asked how he had found out. Chio explained that he had heard about it by chance. Chio wondered why someone usually uninterested in dating would suddenly agree to a blind date. She simply replied that he did not need to know. She was going there to confirm something for herself. Chio realized that there was a problem she could not confirm with him but seemed willing to confirm with other guys. He added that if she relied on someone she was meeting for the first time to understand something she could not confirm with him, the situation had probably already been decided. He further questioned whether she was really sure she would not become confused when she eventually found the real answer. Jeong Yi-Han felt flustered, realizing he was trying to make her confront her feelings. She hesitated, and Chio said he would not let her go, promising to help her. Jeong Yi-Han blushed as the familiar scent carried by his gentle breath reminded her of the shampoo he used. Even if she got off the bus and met an unfamiliar person, the scent would make her think of him, just as his breath did. She realized that she could not push him away and resolved that if she wanted to understand herself, she would need to understand him properly first. With that in mind, she asked how he planned to help her. At the meeting place, Jeong Yi-Han informed her friends that she would not be able to attend. Yoon questioned the sudden change, and Da-eun explained that Jeong Yi-Han had said she had something important to attend to and that she was fine. Since there was already one more person on their side, it was slightly awkward, but Da-eun was glad it worked out that way. Jeong thought Jeong Yi-Han had anticipated this. Da-eun mentioned that she would continue contacting Jeong Yi-Han to let her know she could join even if it is late. Joo-young called Da-eun to discuss Jeong Yi-Han, intending to give an honest opinion. Suddenly, Seo Yujin entered, greeting everyone and asking if they were from the designer department he was supposed to meet that day. Joo-young confirmed it, while Da-eun texted Jeong Yi-Han to let her know she could join later, explaining that the people who came had already arrived. Joo-young interrupted, saying Jeong Yi-Han must have her reasons and that they should not make things awkward. Joo-young thought it was better not to create unnecessary tension. Joo-young thought she had seen Seo Yujin's face several times before, recalling that he was an athlete. Meanwhile, Seo Yujin wondered what he was doing there. Yu-man had informed him he was supposed to join a group blind date. Yu-man explained that he knew Seo Yujin disliked these situations but needed him to fill in because he could not attend due to their parents. Seo Yujin replied that he had to go home the next day and also needed to work his part-time job in the evening. Yu-man insisted it was fine. Seo Yujin could return home late. and he would cover for the part-time shift. He apologized repeatedly, noting that Minchol Senpai had already added Seo Yujin to the group chat. Seo Yujin was confused at first but remembered being invited. His friend explained that it was a setup by the senpai, warning that if someone backed out, it would create chaos. He begged Seo Yujin to agree, saying he just wanted to get through it peacefully. As Seo Yujin suggested he find someone else, he noticed a picture of Jeong Yi-Han with her uncle and aunt and realized she was someone he had met before. In the present, he reminded himself that her name was Jeong Yi-Han. Meanwhile, Jeong Yi-Han tried to calm her thoughts, reflecting that Chio's presence complicated her feelings even more. She realized the situation with the blind date was no longer just about meeting other people. It was about confronting her emotions toward Chio and understanding herself. Despite the anxiety and confusion, she accepted that she could not avoid the moment. Second, Yujin realized she had not yet arrived at the meeting and he had just wanted to apologize for that incident. At the same time, she received a message from Da-eun stating that if she was not hurt or sick, she should not worry about missing their meeting and that they would see her tomorrow. Jeong Yi-Han felt a twinge of guilt for missing it, but the reassurance brought her some relief. Sitting across from Chio, she questioned him quietly, wondering why he had brought her there. The hotel had calm music, soft lighting, and fresh dishes being served. Jeong Yi-Han noticed it looked quite expensive and hesitated, uncertain of what to say. Chio asked her if she did not like the ambience. Jeong Yi-Han replied that it was not that, explaining that she had come because he had promised to help her, and she had not expected they would be dining. If she had known, she would have suggested coming another time. Chio smiled and explained that since they were practicing for a blind date, the ambiance was fitting. Jeong Yi-Han's thoughts spun as she tried to process that. Then questioned practice. Was that his way of helping her? Chio confirmed, stating that if she wanted to go on a blind date, she should do it with him first as practice. After all, if she wanted to prepare properly, he would be the best partner she could have. Jeong Yi-Han realized she was being tricked again, but despite knowing it was absurd, it strangely made sense. It was her first time experiencing a place like this with Chio, and her heart fluttered uncontrollably. She recognized she was completely doomed. He was definitely here to help. But why did it make her feel so tense? Chio suggested they start eating before the food got cold. But why did it make her feel so tense? Jeong Yi-Han realized she had not even taken a bite yet. She thanked Chio for slicing the food and hesitantly tried a piece, discovering it was delicious. She compared it to the homemade meals her aunt and uncle made, acknowledging that those were far better and more comforting, but this food suited her taste far more than she had expected. Perhaps she thought this was why people ate out. Curious, Jeong Yi-Han asked Chio what he meant by practice. It was unusual for kids her age to visit such upscale places. Chio explained that it depended on the partner. A quieter ambiance helped fill the awkward silences and allowed conversation to flow more naturally than in noisy, crowded spaces. Jeong Yi-Han noticed his careful attention to detail and felt a quiet admiration for his thoughtfulness. Hesitantly, she asked if he had been on many dates. Jeong Yi-Han thought that won't be a surprise, as the Chio apple of an eye of all would have dated many before. He admitted that he had, but emphasized that since he was her date today, he could not afford to make any mistakes. Jeong Yi-Han reminded herself it was just practice, insisting to herself that it was only a rehearsal. Chio countered lightly, pointing out that she was still his date today. Jeong Yi-Han realized that while the encounter might not mean anything to him, it felt slightly unfair. Chio continued, explaining that first impressions were crucial on a blind date. When introducing oneself for the first time, the things people said were significant. Compliments on a name or manners were not mere politeness. They indicated genuine interest. Jeong Yi-Han listened intently, absorbing his advice while feeling her cheeks warm. Chio actually wanted to know what she would say when introduced to someone who was not him. He wanted to see how she would respond, watching her expression and tone closely. While Jeong Yi-Han blushes, he encouraged her to speak freely, assuring her that she could say whatever she wished. Blushing, Jeong Yi-Han replied with a shy but playful tone, telling him that her appa was also good-looking. She hesitated and asked if she could really say that. Chio's response was a warm confirmation. He liked hearing it. At the same time, he realized he was blushing deeply himself, suddenly aware that he might have dug his own grave by encouraging her to speak so candidly. Chio was recalling the past, remembering how a boy once confessed to Jeong Yi-Han, admitting that he liked her. Chio had already known that one day he would eventually be required to send her away to someone else, toward a life that could never truly belong to him. It was a place that had never been his from the beginning, a reality he would ultimately have to accept and surrender. Because of that, he had protected the most complete future they could build together, a future that would allow her to remain in a world he created with his own hands. He only hoped she would not look at him with those soft eyes or speak in that tender voice. She probably had no idea how dangerous she appeared in that moment. He tried to restrain himself, thinking that if she continued wearing that innocent expression with such a beautiful face, any man would lose control and want her. Chio felt that the situation was unbearable and that he truly was becoming that irrational man. He admitted that he liked the feeling as to delight Jeong Yi-Han, while he pointed out that he had only offered her a small compliment, and yet she looked so delighted over something so simple. Chio wanted to respond that he was indeed happy over just one kind word, while Jeong Yi-Han thought that she had not said it randomly, laughing lightly. Chi-Oh felt unsure how to process the warmth rising in his chest, wondering if he was allowed to feel so happy about it. He remembered her earlier words warning that if someone gave the wrong man the slightest hope, things could turn dangerous. He wondered if maybe she was right. When Jeong Yi-Han expressed confusion, he explained that men usually did not appreciate that kind of encouragement, so she might want to refrain from doing it. As he said this, he recalled that his mind went completely blank. Jeong Yi-Han seemed taken aback but admitted that perhaps he was right, assuming that he must not have liked her earlier attempt and thinking he simply did not seem to appreciate it. She wondered what kind of answer he would have preferred and whether she should try again, whether she should continue showing warmth like this. Chi-Oh then called out to a servant, asking if there was a recommendation for a light red wine that was easy to drink. The servant assured him that there was a wine that would be an excellent choice and would pair well with the evening meal. Jeong Yi-Han asked if she could try some too, explaining that she had never actually tasted wine before and was curious about it. Chi-Oh remembered her past actions and experiences, thinking back with a private understanding. When the drinks arrived, the servant presented both the wine and Jeong Yi-Han's virgin mojito. Jeong Yi-Han took a sip and asked if the drink was hers. Chi-Oh told her that it was delicious, encouraging her to enjoy it. Jeong Yi-Han commented that it was indeed tasty, then suddenly questioned if it was truly non-alcoholic. Chi-Oh could barely contain his laughter. Jeong Yi-Han protested that it was unfair that Chi-Oh was drinking wine alone while she couldn't join him. Chi-Oh asked how long it had been since she had last had alcohol, pointing out she was already reacting strongly. Jeong Yi-Han felt annoyed, insisting that he was treating her like a child, while Chi-Oh replied that the atmosphere had already been set and the wine suited the mood. Jeong Yi-Han, watching him drink, wondered why he was looking at her that way. As she continued to gaze at the red wine shimmering in his throat, a thought quietly entered her mind. She wondered how Chi-Oh's lips might taste if they carried the flavor of wine. Even though she had not consumed alcohol herself, a strange thirst she did not recognize spread through her, similar to that moment when he had seemed fully sober, and she had wanted to taste the warmth of his presence again. Chi-Oh smiled slightly and asked if she wanted to try tasting some. Jeong Yi-Han jolted upright at the question, her face turning bright as she wondered what she was thinking. She covered her face in embarrassment, feeling as if she might have gone crazy. She reassured herself that she was not truly a pervert and told Chi-Oh that she was fine, insisting that the drink was tasty enough. Chi-Oh felt amused because she had looked eager to try the wine earlier, but now that she was given the chance, she suddenly refused. Jeong Yi-Han's cheeks warmed further as she wondered if the drink truly had alcohol after all. Chi-Oh called out her name with a thoughtful expression, telling her that there was something important he was curious about deeply. The scene then transitioned to another setting where Ju-jian's type, wanting to understand what kind of woman he preferred. SEO Yu-jian said that he had never really given the matter much thought. Ju-jian responded that she understood, thinking to herself that his reply was surprisingly similar to Jeong Yi-Han's earlier answer. SEO Yu-jian confirmed without much reaction. Ju-young then mentioned that he had only been drinking water and asked if he disliked alcohol or simply found it dull. Seo Yujin felt that her conclusion was predictable and clarified that it was neither. He simply needed to watch his weight because he had a match coming up soon. Ja-young acknowledged this explanation. Sao Yujin then remarked that it seemed one person would not be showing up after all. Ja-young asked about Jeong Yi-Han, explaining that Jeong Yi-Han had messaged saying something came up and she would not be able to make it. Ja-young wondered aloud what the reason might have been. Seo Yujin brushed it off, saying it was nothing. Ja-young, however, thought it was amusing that he had been silent the entire time and chose now of all moments to speak. One of Ja-young's friends suggested that they should change seats, and the other agreed that she did not mind. Ja-young then thought if he had just checked Jeong Yi-Han's social media profile. Seo Yujin stood up, saying he had something to attend to and needed to leave. One of the boys protested, pointing out that the gathering was only just beginning, and asked where Seo Yujin was going. Seo Yujin explained that he needed to check on something at home. Meanwhile, Ju-young wondered if it might be true that he had come only to see Jeong Yi-Han. As Seo Yujin walked off, he muttered that the entire evening felt like a waste of time. The scene shifted back to Jeong Yi-Han, where Chio asked if the topic earlier had been about someone asking a person's type. Jeong Yi-Han questioned his sudden interest, and Chio explained that such questions were common on blind dates. Jeong Yi-Han wondered why he was asking with such a serious expression. Chi-Oh asked if she would not tell him her answer. Jeong Yi-Han tried to avoid the topic, thinking he was just being overly self-conscious. She remembered how when Ju-young had asked her the same question earlier, Chi-Oh had momentarily crossed her mind, and she imagined that if she had said so aloud, Chi-Oh would have told her that they should not see each other again. Jeong Yi-Han admitted that she had never truly thought about it and genuinely did not know her type. Chi-Oh commented that her response was plain and lacked charm. Jeong Yi-Han called him out for it, and Chi-Oh countered by asking if she had not just asked him about his type. Jeong Yi-Han replied that she was curious about what kind of women men tended to like. Chi-Oh then asked who she was thinking about as he noted that during his visit, she had placed him in several awkward situations. He wondered aloud what he should say and explained that he was somewhat possessive, He wanted someone who leaned on him and looked only at him, someone who naturally accepted what he offered. As he spoke, he gently took Jeong Yi-Han's finger, adding that she could picture someone beautiful out there fitting such an image. Jeong Yi-Han repeated his words in her thoughts, someone who could accept everything he gave and someone beautiful. She felt there was no way she could be such a person and believed she could never become the kind of woman Chi-Oh wanted. Later, Jeong Yi-Han thanked Chi-Oh for the meal and promised that next time she would treat him to something delicious. Chi-Oh said it was good enough for him that she enjoyed the meal and mentioned that it was still cold outside. He asked if she had managed to check what she needed to and handed her a heat pack. Jeong Yi-Han thought that the moment she realized she could not become the person he hoped for, a quiet disappointment settled within her. Chi-Oh blew onto her hand to warm it, deciding that it felt fine now, and asked where they should go next. Jeong Yi-Han realized in that instant how much she truly liked him. She thought that liking someone should be a happy feeling, yet for some reason it felt like the beginning of sadness. She told Chi-Oh that she wanted to go home. Specifically, their home. Chi-Oh smiled and jokingly refused, saying the line was too forward for the end of a date. Jeong Yi-Han tried to respond, but Chi-Oh surprised her by approving the sentiment anyway, leaving her startled. Chi-Oh remarked that they should return to their house. Jeong Yi-Han interjected, asking whether he was not supposed to be managing the room. Chi-Oh looked at her, puzzled by her sudden remark. Chi-Oh remembered Jeong Yi-Han's words echoing in his mind. The house searching was underway. Those words had been short yet unmistakably clear. He recalled how he had once said that until he found a new place, he would be in her care, making Chi-Oh think that the spot he had forced himself into would never be one meant to last. Even if his intentions had been warm toward the end, their shared space had only grown colder as time passed. They now stood upon a frozen past that neither of them could fully thaw. Chi-Oh reminded himself that he no longer wished to be a burden and reassured Jeong Yi-Han that she should not worry, as he had no intention of causing trouble any longer. He told her they should go, and Jeong Yi-Han quietly agreed, following behind him. Although Jeong Yi-Han walked alongside him, she felt inwardly that she never considered him a nuisance at all. Chi-Oh understood her silence and what she meant, yet he also sensed that she no longer had any other way of handling their situation. To remain a family, they could not allow themselves to grow any closer, because a single step in the wrong direction could crumble everything they had built over the years. At the crosswalk, Jeong Yi-Han's small hot pack slipped from her hands when the signal abruptly changed to red. Chi-Oh instinctively pulled her against him, telling her to be careful as a car brushed past them. Jeong Yi-Han felt a tremor in her heart, realizing that no matter how many times she distanced herself or drew a line, she was afraid she would be pulled back in before she could walk away. Chi-Oh asked if she was all right, and Jeong Yi-Han responded that she was fine, urging him to continue forward as she stepped away. Chi-Oh sensed that Jeong Yi-Han understood what he meant, and he told himself it was better that she continued pushing him away like that. He did not want her to give him her heart too easily or make it simple for him to approach. Both Chi-Oh and Jeong Yi-Han silently acknowledged that it would be dangerous for them to become closer than they already were. Chi-Oh told Jeong Yi-Han to go inside first, and Jeong Yi-Han asked where he was heading. Chi-Oh answered that someone was coming to see the rooftop house, and he needed to clean the space before they arrived. Jeong Yi-Han thought quietly that it made sense for him to pass the place along to someone else and nodded. Chi-Oh told her to rest, unaware of the quiet panic rising in Jeong Yi-Han's chest. Jeong Yi-Han thought about Chi-Oh's situation. His family had moved away, and if he left as well, she would be completely alone in the house they had always shared. Suddenly turning back, Chi-Oh called out to Jeong Yi-Han, asking her to wait. He told her that she may have misunderstood but clarified that he wasn't selling the rooftop place, only leasing it. He told him not to have unnecessary thoughts and simply take good care of the home. Chi-Oh watched her face flush, and she wondered when she had even jumped to such a conclusion. Chi-Oh smiled softly, brushing the matter aside and telling her it was nothing before saying he would return shortly. Jeong Yi-Han felt that perhaps he always treated her like a child, but despite that, her heart fluttered, and in that moment she realized she was glad he did. Inside the rooftop space, Chi-Oh began straightening up, thinking it looked tidy enough. At some point in the past, he had begun escaping to this very spot to avoid Jeong Yi-Han. Back then, he had only been a high school boy who could not even identify what his feelings for her meant. He wondered when he had started living downstairs again, remembering the day someone had confessed to Jeong Yi-Han. Chi-Oh had wanted to intervene, yet he stopped himself and walked away, cursing under his breath. A girl had called out to him that day, reminding him that he had told her he was going to visit his youngest sister, yet he had returned so quickly. She asked what they should do for fun since they had not gone on many dates lately due to his senior year schedule. But Chi-Oh was distant, brushing her aside. She noticed the sudden shift in his demeanor and asked what was wrong. Chi-Oh replied calmly that they should break up, leaving the girl stunned. He told her that he knew she did not truly like him anyway and that she only continued seeing him because it benefited her. He suggested that they stop wasting each other's time since he did not harbor affection for her either. He walked away, leaving the girl frozen. She shouted after him, accusing him of being unreasonable, and asked if he thought he could simply have the last word. She demanded to know if he did not like her, then who did he like? She accused him of liking Jeong Yi-Han, the girl he always protected, and reminded him sharply that Jeong Yi-Han was not even his real sister. She yelled that if he left now, he was admitting he had feelings for her, calling him awful and accusing him of pretending otherwise. Chi-Oh stopped in his tracks and warned her to be careful with her words. He repeated firmly that he had no feelings for Jeong Yi-Han in that way, insisting there was no possibility he could like her. He did not fully understand his own emotions back then, yet he held on to the place that had belonged to him, almost as if it were a silent punishment. He realized over time that he could no longer distance himself from Jeong Yi-Han, but his anxiety always returned to the same painful thought. The space he wanted to protect might eventually belong to someone else. He asked himself whether he had been acting childishly earlier, wondering if he had become irritated simply because Jeong Yi-Han asked if he was looking for a new place. After all, he was the one who had invited someone to see the house. Just then, Seo Yujin arrived, greeting him politely. Chi-Oh recognized the voice from the phone call earlier. Seo Yujin introduced himself as Seo Yujin, explaining that he had arranged to visit the rooftop home today. Chi-Oh suddenly felt unable to breathe. The dark hair, the sharp black eyes, every detail was strangely familiar. Not a single feature failed to match the memory of someone he once knew. Yet the energy and presence were different. How could someone resemble another person so closely, and yet remain entirely different? Seo Yujin said he would look around, and Chi-Oh remained silent, overwhelmed. A picture frame slipped and hit the floor. Chi-Oh was struck with the chilling reminder that Jung Yi-jun was undeniably dead, yet here stood someone who mirrored him so perfectly. Chi-Oh called out to Seo Yujin, questioning what this meant. Seo Yujin picked up the broken frame, looking at it steadily. Chi-Oh felt the world tilt as he asked the question that trembled from his chest. Who exactly was he? Seo Yujin remembered a childhood moment when he sat in front of the television, watching a broadcast in which an announcer praised a young boy. The announcer spoke admiringly, saying that the boy, despite only being in the 3rd grade of elementary school, already showed remarkable precision in his stance. His focus and presence on stage set him apart from others his age, and it was no surprise he was already being referred to as a future representative of the nation. The announcer added that his parents must surely be proud. Seo Yujin, watching from afar, hoped he could someday be like that boy too. He wished that if he became someone impressive, then one day his mother and father might return to take him back home. In the present, Seo Yujin stood quietly while glancing at the broken picture frame on the floor. Chi-Oh asked who he was. Even though Chi-Oh already understood he could not be the person he resembled, he still had to ask. The expression, the eyes, and the face were ones Chi-Oh had imagined in countless sleepless nights. Now, seeing them in front of him, reality shook violently. A wave of longing rose inside him, one so deep it nearly choked him, and that longing was tangled with something sharp and cold fear. Chi-Oh trembled not from the terror of seeing someone who should have been dead, but from the gut-deep dread that the questions he had carefully buried for so long could be shattered instantly. Who he was asking about was not merely the man's identity, but who Chi-Oh truly wished he could be seeing again. Seo Yujin bowed slightly and said that athlete Jeong Yi-jun must have been someone meaningful to Chi-Oh. He commented that Jeong Yi-jun had passed too early and that if he were still alive, he might have become a great athlete, offering his condolences. Chi-Oh apologized, admitting that Seo Yujin was simply too similar. Seo Yujin answered quietly that he had heard those words many times before and had grown used to such reactions. Chi-Oh acknowledged that there was no way it could be him, yet he could not understand the hollow emptiness that lingered inside his chest, as if this was not the answer he had been waiting for when looking at the photograph. Seo Yujin continued, saying that he understood that his appearance might make Chi-Oh uncomfortable, but he hoped it would not interfere with the signing of the contract. Chi-Oh thought that no matter how he answered, the conclusion would remain the same. Anything he said now might only make him appear weak or pathetic in front of the man who stood in front of him. He finished filling out and signing the contract, feeling that the matter was settled, at least externally. The scene shifted to Jeong Yi-Han sitting at a table with her notebook open, writing and trying to calculate what she should note down about the meal Chi-Oh had bought for her. She had no real idea of the exact price, but she assumed it must have been expensive. She wondered how she was supposed to repay him when she constantly received so much from him. She questioned why she only received and wanted to be useful to him in some way. As she looked up, she noticed that Chi-Oh was still not home and wondered if checking a house always took this long. When the front door finally opened, Jeong Yi-Han hurriedly stood and moved toward it. She asked excitedly if Chi-Oh had returned because she had been waiting for him since it was late. She asked whether they had decided on the contract for the rooftop place. Chi-Oh confirmed that the man had agreed and planned to move in the next day. Jeong Yi-Han nodded and asked whether something had happened. Chi-Oh thought to himself that he could not deceive her at times like this. If he told her what he had seen, he wondered what she would do. He imagined her reaction and feared she might run out to find the person and might never return to the home they shared again. Even though he stood right there, He felt the possibility that he could be forgotten, knowing that the relationship he wished to hold tightly could slip through his fingers. He also told himself he had no right to act childish. Chae-oh finally said that the truth was that a ghost had appeared when he was alone in the rooftop house. Jeong Yi-Han asked what he meant. Chae-oh leaned closer and said someone who looked exactly like that person had shown up, resembling him so closely that it was frightening. Jeong Yi-Han interrupted, asking whether he had really been terrified, for which Chae-oh affirmed, saying in a small voice that he had been truly and deeply frightened. Later that night, Jeong Yi-Han lay on her bed and felt that Chae-oh seemed to be sleeping peacefully. However, she could not close her own eyes, as her mind kept returning to the expression he had shown earlier. She wondered if Chi-oh had genuinely been afraid of something as simple as a ghost, or if he had actually been terrified of seeing a face that resembled someone who might have held resentment toward him. She understood all too well how it felt to see a phantom, as she had experienced something similar just a few days before, and the memory still remained vivid in her mind. She knew that if the figure she had seen had been someone who resented her, it would have been even more difficult to withstand. Jeong Yi-Han trembled slightly, thinking that it must have been incredibly frightening for Chi-oh as well. Meanwhile, Chi-oh lay awake in his room, surrounded by silence, wondering why he had said such a thing. He felt embarrassed because he was no longer a child and should not have reacted like one. Suddenly, Jeong Yi-Han's voice came from outside the door as she softly asked whether he was asleep. Chi-oh denied it and asked her to come inside, wondering what could have brought her to his room at such an hour. Jeong Yi-Han entered and remarked that, just as she had guessed, he had not been able to fall asleep. Chi-oh admitted he could not but asked why she had brought her pillow with her. Jeong Yi-Han explained that she had been worried about him, causing Chi-oh to question internally why she had come prepared to stay, wondering if she truly meant to do so. Jeong Yi-Han stated gently that she would remain by his side, since he had seen something so frightening, and she thought he might be scared if left alone. She added that she would remain there only until he fell asleep. Chi-oh thought that in truth it was difficult to tell who was worrying about whom. He tried to say that he was fine, but his thoughts kept circling around the surprising fact that she had been so concerned that she herself could not sleep. Jeong Yi-Han then commented that perhaps her presence was inconvenient. Chi-oh hesitated, uncertain what the proper response should be. Jeong Yi-Han apologized, saying that she had probably only made him stay awake even longer and that she would go back to her room. However, Chi-oh reached out and stopped her, quietly asking her to stay by his side. He wondered if it would be acceptable to behave a little childishly just this once. Chi-oh then admitted aloud that he was scared. Jeong Yi-Han looked delighted and said she would lie next to him. She settled beside him and asked how he felt, wondering if the fear had eased even slightly. Chi-oh thought that this situation should be acceptable, and that being next to her brought a sense of peace. Jeong Yi-Han felt that despite all her complicated emotions regarding Chi-oh, she felt more comfortable acting as his younger sister in moments like this, as it was the only way she could truly support him. Even if it was not much, she wanted to remain beside him. Chi-oh, meanwhile, wondered how he was supposed to fall asleep when she was staring at him with such intensity. Since he had brought the situation upon himself, he simply pretended to drift off. Chi-oh lay stiffly, barely holding on to his composure under the blanket. Jeong Yi-Han watched him and noticed he had been tensing up ever since she came in. She wondered whether he was cold or still afraid and questioned silently how she should handle this. Since it was her first time having feelings for someone, she did not know how to let them go. Jeong Yi-Han softly called out to Chi-oh and thought that perhaps it was acceptable to be a little selfish as his younger sister. She asked gently whether, if he was too scared, he would prefer her to be a little closer. She continued thinking that, because Chi-oh would never return her feelings if she could stay by his side in this familial way, perhaps she could slowly release the emotions in her heart. Even though she felt cowardly, she believed she could sort out her feelings while remaining near him under the guise of family. At that moment, Chi-oh, shocked and tense, let out a small chuckle as he propped himself up beside Jeong Yi-Han. Jeong Yi-Han, startled, called out to him in confusion. As Chi-oh was leaning over Jeong Yi-Han, she called out for him with uneasiness in her voice. Chi-oh felt the close distance that left him with nowhere to hide and no room to escape from the tension that settled heavily between them. To him, this moment felt a little dangerous, charged with emotions he was not sure he could control. Jeong Yi-Han questioned why he suddenly started acting like this, trying to understand what had changed in that instant. Chi-oh asked her instead what she was thinking right now, his voice low and rough. Jeong Yi-Han recognized the hoarse tone and said she was simply wondering why he was doing this. Chi-oh questioned her further, asking why she thought he was acting this way, to which Jeong Yi-Han replied that she honestly did not know. Chi-oh then pointed out that if she truly did not know, why was she not avoiding him? Jeong Yi-Han paused in confusion and asked if she was supposed to avoid him. Chi-oh flinched at her response as Jeong Yi-Han continued, saying she was sure he had a reason. She even tried to rationalize it, suggesting maybe he had just moved into an awkward position while trying to get up. Chi-oh was shivering inside, wondering why she was so unguarded. He questioned whether she would be this defenseless if another man were hovering over her like this. The thought unsettled him deeply, but Jeong Yi-Han immediately denied any concern, saying it was fine because it was him, because he was someone she liked. Chi-oh felt her words strike deeply within him. He thought to himself that because he had unknowingly become her fence, she had completely forgotten how to protect herself. She feared everything beyond the walls of her world, but believed he was safe, believed that everything inside that fence was harmless. Chio questioned whether he even had the right to be angry at her for that level of trust. He poked her cheek gently, thinking that her innocent trust felt like a privilege only he had been given. At the same time, it gave him a strange sense of satisfaction, making him feel like a shameless beast for even entertaining thoughts beyond what he should. Chio finally said that this situation could not continue. Jeong Yi-Han asked what he meant, genuinely curious. Without explaining, Chio picked her up, leaving her confused as she questioned what he was doing. Chio told her firmly to sleep in her own room tonight. He explained that the bed was too small and uncomfortable for both of them, so she should sleep separately. He instructed her to lock her door before sleeping, and even if he came later saying he was scared, she should never open the door for him. Jeong Yi-Han asked why he was saying such things, but Chio simply bid her goodnight, telling her to sleep well before sending her out. Jeong Yi-Han stood at the door afterward, wondering what was wrong with him. She sighed in relief, thinking about what she had blurted out earlier, that she liked him. She was afraid he would notice her feelings, but she was grateful he let it pass without questioning her further. She felt relieved he pretended not to hear it. Inside the room, Chio sat quietly and sighed to himself, thinking that he was truly a dirty man. Later that night, Jeong Yi-Han heard the noise of Chio knocking on her door, saying it was him. She asked what he was doing there so late. Chio leaned in closer and made her lie down. Jeong Yi-Han questioned what he meant, but Chio leaned in further and kissed her deeply, his tongue invading her mouth while he bit gently at her ear. Jeong Yi-Han asked him to stop, but he whispered that he had told her not to open the door. Jeong Yi-Han jolted awake in shock, breathing unevenly as she tried to understand what kind of dream she had just experienced. She felt distressed and wondered what she should do. She questioned whether she would ever be able to stop liking Chio, feeling annoyed and embarrassed with herself. Afterwards, at the gate, Chio noticed Jeong Yi-Han's red face and asked what was wrong with her. Noting that she looked unusually flushed, Jeong Yi-Han tried to avoid his gaze, saying nothing was wrong and she just had trouble sleeping. She could not bring herself to look him in the eye. She then asked if Chio had slept well, though she immediately regretted the question, wondering how she was supposed to speak naturally after dreaming of such things. She struggled, thinking how she could possibly explain that she had dreamed last night. Jeong Yi-Han tried to change the subject, asking what the person moving in was like. Chio paused before responding that she would find out when she saw him. Jeong Yi-Han stared at him in confusion, wondering what that vague answer was supposed to mean. Jeong Yi-Han felt slightly awkward, thinking it was her first time having a one-on-one conversation with Ju-young. She apologized, mentioning she could not make it the previous day, for which Ju-young responded it was fine because the numbers had been a complete mess without her, and then mentioned there was something she wished to ask regarding yesterday. Jeong Yi-Han felt curious and wondered what she wanted to know. Ju-young asked if she knew the athlete Seo Yoo-jin from the physical education department. Jeong Yi-Han murmured internally, thinking it was the person Ju-young had mentioned last time, yet she questioned why Ju-young was suddenly asking about him again. Jeong Yi-Han denied knowing him, claiming she did not even know what he looked like. Jeong displayed her phone and asked Jeong Yi-Han to look carefully, still questioning whether she really did not know him. Jeong Yi-Han affirmed again that she truly did not know him. Afterward, as they walked out, Da-eun stated it was fortunate Jeong Yi-Han had been late during the course registration change period. Jeong reminded her she had chosen to commute from far away to attend classes, while Da-eun muttered that 4 hours of travel back and forth seemed exhausting, and wondered whether Jeong Yi-Han should simply move out and get her own place instead. Da-eun added she was hungry because she had come in such a hurry and suggested grabbing a drink. Jeong Yi-Han, however, told them she needed to return a book to the library and asked if she could head out first. Da-eun suggested they go to the cafe beforehand, but Jeong Yi-Han insisted she would rather read a little since she was already on campus, and with the weekend approaching, she wished them a pleasant break and said she would see them the following week. Da-eun wondered why she seemed guilty for going on her own, yet Ju-young questioned why was she feeling guilty. Jeong Yi-Han walked faster, her heart pounding, thinking the two faces looked similar. She had stared at the photo shown by Ju-young and thought it was not merely a resemblance but felt almost as though Oppa had returned. She suddenly ran, believing she needed to see him with her own eyes and wondering where she should go to find him. Her eyes landed on the board of the athletic judo training room, and she questioned whether she should step inside. She thought she should at least try once, reasoning it was probably just someone who resembled him slightly, or perhaps a photograph that happened to appear similar. Inside, the teacher instructed the students to focus, warning mistakes could result in injuries. She felt overwhelmed because she had occasionally pictured him in her imagination, but only vaguely. From behind, a person approached and asked who she was, explaining that outsiders were not allowed in the area. Jeong Yi-Han stood frozen, thinking that if Yujin had been alive, she wondered how he might have looked now. She questioned whether he would have grown taller than her, whether his eyes would still curve gently when he smiled, and whether his voice would sound just as she remembered. She apologized softly, saying she was looking for someone, her thoughts racing because the image she had only ever shaped in her imagination was standing right in front of her in living form. At that moment, Seo Yujin recognized her and asked with surprise whether she was Jeong Yi-Han, leaving her stunned as reality began to settle around her. The scene moved into the past, where the injured Jeong Yi-jun had been rescued and rushed into the hospital. Doctors hurried beside the stretcher, shouting about the traffic accident while checking the bleeding and vitals. They stated the driver had been pronounced dead at the scene, and Jeong Yi-jun's blood pressure was rapidly dropping. He was taken immediately into the ICU. Jeong Yi-Han ran after him, desperately questioning the doctor about her mother and asking whether her brother had been hurt badly. The doctor apologized with a heavy expression, but Jeong Yi-Han blamed herself, thinking that if she had not asked her mother to buy her a cake, none of this would have happened, and Jeong Yi-jun would still be alive. Jeong Yi-Han felt devastated, thinking that he had never once called her by her name affectionately, and yet she blamed herself for everything. In her memory, Jeong Yi-jun had told her it was not her fault. He was the one who never lost his smile toward her, even while she suffered under the crushing weight of guilt. Soon the doctors announced that patient Jeong Yi-jun had been pronounced dead at 9:17. Jeong Yi-Han felt her heart sink, knowing that the person who had always smiled for her, even while she was crushed by regret, had been her older brother Jeong Yi-jun. Suddenly, in the present, Seo Yujin called out for Jeong Yi-Han. She looked up, realizing immediately that this person was not her older brother. His body felt much larger than she remembered. His eyes showed no trace of the warmth and smile she once knew, and his slow, somber voice revealed none of Jeong Yi-jun's softness. She could no longer find even a single shadow of the brother she had lost. She told herself this reaction was natural, because her brother was gone. Tears filled her eyes uncontrollably. Seo Yujin seemed surprised and asked if she was crying, and Jeong Yi-Han apologized through her tears. Seo Yujin felt she had no reason to apologize to him and gently mentioned he would at least lend her something to dry her tears. Jeong Yi-Han felt she should not be crying like this, but Seo Yujin softly warned that if she cried too much she would end up with a headache, so he hoped she could calm down. Jeong Yi-Han's memory flashed again to Jeong Yi-jun, who used to pat her head and tell her not to cry, reassuring her that everything would pass because her brother was there. She burst into tears again. Meanwhile, just a short distance away, Seo Yujin's friends saw them and began whispering among themselves, wondering what he was doing and whether the girl beside him was someone he knew. They asked if he was with a girl and who she was, prompting Seo Yujin to quickly take off his jacket and cover Jeong Yi-Han while saying she was just a friend. He guided her further toward the changing room, whispering that he would stay with her a little longer, while Chio's friends continued talking among themselves, asking they were switching classes this semester. One pointed out that no one truly knew because everything had become confusing. Lee Sol-gi complained that their schedule had ended up crammed from Monday morning to Friday evening, while Kim Min-jae teased that it was his own fault for messing up his registration. Young Taewon muttered that he was just choosing whatever general education course was still available. Lee Sol-gi then called out for Chi-oh and asked about his plans. Chi-oh said he was about to change his schedule too. Lee Sol-gi asked if he could take a general ed class with him, but Chi-oh apologized and said he could not choose his schedule freely since he needed to coordinate with someone he was taking classes with. His friends looked surprised and asked who he meant. Kim Min-jae jokingly guessed he must be dating, while Young Taewon commented that Chi-oh never even tried to coordinate schedules with them before, while Lee Sol-gi asked if he was abandoning them. Young Taewon called out and asked Chi-oh whether he planned to continue living with his younger sister, now that his parents had gone to Busan, or if he was planning to live on his own. Chi-oh answered he was still unsure about living separately. Young Taewon asked if he was just going to keep living with his sister, and Chi-oh replied perhaps, unless she kicked him out. Kim Min-jae commented that living with family could become uncomfortable and lead to arguments, saying he had lived with his sister for a while and could not even bring his girlfriend home, and they had both been tense all the time. Lee Sol-gi reminded everyone that he had barely attended any gatherings in the past because he was always looking after his younger sister. Chi-oh said she was his little sister, so of course he needed to take care of her, and thought internally that if he did not help her, then no one else would. Kim Min-jae argued that she was a college student and could surely look after herself. Lee Sol-gi pointed out that she was also at an age where she would naturally want a date, but how could she relax if she always had to consider her brother's presence? Chi-oh insisted she was not the type to bring a boy home just because she was dating, so he felt it was better to look after her, rather than risk her meeting someone untrustworthy. Lee Sol-gi teased him, asking if he was her father, but Young Taewon cut in, asking whether he was being too overprotective. Chi-oh felt himself flinch slightly. Outside, Seo Yujin asked Jeong Yi-han if she was all right, and Jeong Yi-han nodded, thanking him. She apologized again, thinking she could not believe she had cried in front of someone she had just met, and that he had even lent her his jacket. She worried he might think she was strange. She tried to explain the situation from earlier, but Seo Yujin interrupted and said if she really felt sorry, perhaps she could return his jacket because it was cold and he was shivering. Jeong Yi-Han apologized again and handed the jacket back, then asked how he even knew her name. Seo Yujin wondered how he should explain the situation, feeling uncertain because he had felt guilty for not apologizing properly during the club promotion. Then, by coincidence, he had seen her profile picture in the group blind date chat and learned her name. He believed that if he told her this directly, it might easily be misunderstood. So instead, Seo Yujin casually said her name had been written on her face, leaving Jeong Yi-Han confused. After a brief pause, he added that it was just a joke, and Jeong Yi-Han responded with a neutral expression, thinking he might be bad at jokes. Seo Yujin mentioned she had not attended the group blind date the previous day, and explained he had been in the group chat as well. He thought her name was beautiful, so he remembered it, feeling that this reason sounded reasonable enough without bringing up the awkward memory from the club promotion. Jeong Yi-Han recalled Chio once telling her that when someone met a girl for the first time and complimented her name, it usually meant they were at least a little interested and not just being polite. Jeong Yi-Han wondered silently why she had not realized this sooner. Seo Yujin then said he would be heading out, prompting Jeong Yi-Han to ask about it, but he simply wished her farewell. Jeong Yi-Han questioned why he had not asked anything further, wondering to herself what percentage of interest he truly had. As Seo Yujin walked away, he felt an odd sensation, wondering what was going on. He noticed they seemed to be heading in the same direction and questioned whether she had been following him since earlier. He remembered she had mentioned looking for someone, and he wondered if she had been referring to him all along. Seo Yujin recalled a girl previously asking if he had lived in an orphanage, saying he must have been lonely, and asking if he wanted to date her. Just then, he called out to Jeong Yi-Han, asking why she had been following him, and Jeong Yi-Han tried to deny it, saying he was misunderstanding her. She added nervously that this was her home, trying to explain herself. Chio, walking down the corridor, wondered whether his own behavior could be considered overprotectiveness. He admitted to himself that while others might think he was wrong, he believed he had no choice. In his heart, he felt that if he stopped paying attention and let go even a little, Jeong Yi-Han would eventually disappear, and he would again be left alone. Chio overheard Seo Yujin apologizing, and Jeong Yi-Han responded calmly that such things happened. Seo Yujin mentioned he had moved in next door that very day, and said it seemed they would be seeing each other often from now on. Jeong Yi-Han smiled warmly at the thought. Chio stared at her expression, praying silently that she would not leave, not go searching for her own place, because if she did, he believed he would be left all alone again. After Jeong Yi-Han stated softly that the place they were standing in was her home, Seo Yujin appeared noticeably troubled, and his ears slowly turned red in embarrassment. He apologized awkwardly, and Jeong Yi-Han responded gently that such things happened and there was nothing to feel uneasy about. However, she also could not help noticing that his ears were almost entirely flushed with color. Seo Yujin stepped in and tried to explain that he had moved in next door, though from the inside he felt he should not let his thoughts run wild with unwarranted suspicion. Seo Yujin lightly cleared his throat and commented that since they would now be living close by, they would be seeing each other quite frequently from this point on. Jeong Yi-Han realized that he was the new tenant scheduled to move in that day, and she affirmed this with a warm smile, expressing hope that they would get along well as neighbors. Suddenly, Seo Yujin became distracted as something seemed to occur to him. He recalled overhearing somewhere that the son of the house owner lived there, and he attempted to remember his name. Before he could finish his thought, Chi-Oh appeared beside Jeong Yi-Han. Jeong Yi-Han called out to Chi-Oh. Chi-Oh smiled politely and greeted Seo Yujin, mentioning that he had not realized Seo Yujin had already met his sister because he had assumed she would be busy helping prepare for their move. Seo Yujin replied that he did not have many belongings and could settle in quickly. Internally, Seo Yujin thought that the two of them did not resemble each other much and wondered if they might be cousins. Chi-Oh offered a polite farewell and told Seo Yujin that if he faced any issues with settling in, he could let them know. Chi-Oh also stated they should head home, calling out to Jeong Yi-Han, who affirmed and took Chi-Oh's hand before leaving. She told Seo Yujin she would greet him again another time as she moved away. Seo Yujin watched them and thought that Chi-Oh seemed naturally good at looking after his younger sibling. He wondered what it might feel like to have a family like that, and as he walked home, he smiled with a faint sense of envy for something he had never experienced. The next morning while jogging outside, Chi-Oh felt slightly cold due to the early hour. His thoughts drifted to Jeong Yi-Han's smiling face without warning. He was taken aback when a distant memory surfaced, recalling a patient once calling out for Chi-Oh. Chi-Oh's own thoughts replayed the words of Lee Sol-gi, who had asked if Chi-Oh was perhaps too overprotective. Chi-Oh had exhaled sharply afterward, not entirely pleased by the comment. After jogging, Chi-Oh entered the house. Jeong Yi-Han greeted him cheerfully and asked if he was back already. Chi-Oh asked if she was awake, to which Jeong Yi-Han explained that since it was the weekend, she wanted to have breakfast with him and had been waiting with a smile. Chi-Oh nodded and joined her at the table. As he sat down, he began to speak, but Jeong Yi-Han asked what he thought about the food and whether it was edible. Chi-Oh affirmed that it tasted good. Jeong Yi-Han appeared thoughtful and mentioned she was curious about something. Chi-Oh asked what it was. Jeong Yi-Han cautiously inquired about the new neighbor and how long his lease term might be. Chi-Oh questioned why she wanted to know, and she quickly answered that it was nothing serious and that she was simply curious. Chi-Oh showed signs of irritation that he did not try to hide. Jeong Yi-Han then asked if he did not think Seo Yujin resembled Jeong Yi-jun, especially considering his appearance and his posture. Even after that, she added that Seo Yujin even knew judo, prompting Chi-Oh to ask how she knew that. Jeong Yi-Han continued speaking as though she had not heard his annoyance and asked when Chi-Oh thought Seo Yujin might have begun practicing judo. Later, as they sat together watching television, Chi-Oh suddenly called out and asked if she realized that she had been talking about the new neighbor all day. Jeong Yi-Han looked surprised. Chi-Oh reflected that she usually did not talk excessively, so her sudden enthusiasm stood out. He pouted slightly and stated that he was also her oppa, and Jeong Yi-Han blinked in confusion as if she wondered whether she had misheard him. She asked what he was talking about so suddenly and reassured him by saying she already knew that he was her brother. She smiled faintly and asked if he was acting this way because he worried she might start thinking of the new neighbor as her real older brother simply because he reminded her of Jeong Yi-jun. Jeong Yi-Han felt deep in her heart that such a thing was impossible because Chi-Oh was not that kind of person. She thought he had not seemed to care about the resemblance the previous day and probably would have responded with his usual casual smirk and denied everything. Chi-Oh, however, said that Jeong Yi-Han was noticing things that did not even matter. His tone took Jeong Yi-Han aback, and she wondered if he was actually upset. Chi-Oh turned away slightly and asked her not to look at him, while Jeong Yi-Han thought privately that he looked cute in that moment. Jeong Yi-Han chuckled lightly, which only irritated him further, and he asked if she had just laughed at him. Jeong Yi-Han tried to reassure him with a calmer tone. She told him not to worry, stating earnestly that she would never think that way. Jeong Yi-Han admitted quietly that she sometimes wondered what Jeong Yi-jun might have looked like if he had been alive today. She confessed that when she first saw Seo Yujin, she had struggled to breathe because it felt for a moment as if Jeong Yi-jun truly had returned. Yet at the same time, she knew Seo Yujin was not Jeong Yi-jun. She thought it was strange that whenever she saw Seo Yujin's face, she saw fragments of memories she had long buried beneath years of regret. She even heard echoes of the voice she had forgotten, the one that never blamed her until his final moments. She realized she must have wished at some unconscious level that Jeong Yi-jun had resented her, because then her overwhelming guilt might have made more sense. Jeong Yi-Han thought she kept wanting to see Seo Yujin because it gave her a chance to believe that someday she might finally accept the forgiveness she had never been able to give herself. She asked Chi-Oh gently not to feel sad, because the only person she could call family now was him. Chi-Oh said that was all he needed, though inside he felt that once the comforting warmth faded, a stronger ache would follow. He believed he would crave their dependence even more and would cling tightly to the bond, tying Jeong Yi-Han to him like a chain around her ankle. He leaned down against her legs, and Jeong Yi-Han giggled slightly, saying it tickled. She touched his hair and thought of how soft it felt. She wondered if letting go of her guilt toward Jeong Yi-jun and her mother might someday allow her to see herself as someone who was no longer a burden. If that day arrived, she thought she might finally be able to call the two of them mother and father. She questioned whether they would be happy if that happened and whether the nature of her relationship with Chi-Oh would shift into something more than the bond of family. Because beneath the surface, her heart carried something deeper. Chi-Oh glanced upward and noticed her expression. He asked what she was doing. Jeong Yi-Han whispered under her breath that she liked him. She wondered if she would ever be able to tell Chi-Oh openly that she liked him. Realizing what she had just said aloud, she jolted in shock and hurriedly mumbled in surprise about what she had uttered. As Jeong Yi-Han realized the words slipped out, that she liked him, the moment they escaped her lips, she understood they came without preparation, without courage, and without a single thought of the consequences. It became her first confession in her entire life, and as her heart trembled, she prayed she could call it a mistake. Yet she also knew she could never take it back, and no amount of wishing would allow her to unsay what had already been spoken. She feared the possibility of Chi-Oh. Understanding what she truly meant, and the meaning behind those words frightened her more than the confession itself. Chi-Oh seemed genuinely taken aback, and Jeong Yi-Han jerked slightly, feeling a silence settle between them that held neither weight nor lightness. That silence broke only when Chi-Oh called her name in a low, steady voice that seemed too calm for the situation. As Chi-Oh stood up, he asked her directly if she liked him. Jeong Yi-Han attempted to deny it, scrambling for words, but Chi-Oh reached out and grabbed her hand, telling her he meant that he liked her. Jeong Yi-Han rushed to explain that she meant she liked him as family, that she thought he acted because he was concerned about neighbors, and that she believed he had overreacted for no real reason. However, Chi-Oh surprised her by admitting she was right and that he had been jealous of Seo Yujin, who resembled Jeong Yi-Jun. When Jeong Yi-Han questioned him about it, Chi-Oh asked her to repeat what she had said before. Jeong Yi-Han froze, taking a small breath, and realized quickly he wanted to hear her confession again. She asked if he was teasing her, but Chi-Oh barely held his composure as to burst into laughter. Jeong Yi-Han pouted softly that he was being mean, but Chi-Oh commented that he knew she said things out of concern because she was that type of person. He told her it did not matter if the meaning behind liking him was different. Feeling overwhelmed and cornered, Jeong Yi-Han asked him to stop teasing her and insisted she had not meant the confession in the way he thought. Still, Chi-Oh wanted to hear the words regardless of the meaning. Accepting defeat, Jeong Yi-Han muttered that she liked him. When Chi-Oh asked her to say it again, she repeated it again and again. While Chi-Oh thought the feeling and the sound of her voice were unexpectedly pleasant, the scene shifted towards Seo Yujin, who huffed while sweating as fragments of old memories crowded his mind. He recalled his time in the orphanage when he was beaten by other students who shouted at him, asking if he really believed he could ever catch up to Jeong Yi-jun, regardless of his efforts. They mocked him, yelling that he should stop acting so confident just because he resembled Jeong Yi-jun. One boy remarked cruelly that it was no wonder his parents abandoned him since he did not understand his own place. Another asked how it made sense that his parents were alive yet never came to see him even once. They told him to face reality and accept he was nothing but a replacement. Then the director rushed in, asking if they were bullying Seo Yujin again. The boys immediately flinched and muttered that the director had arrived before running off. The director scolded them to come back before kneeling down beside Seo Yujin, asking if he was alright. With trembling hands, Seo Yujin told her he could not continue anymore. He said he had no real skill, yet everyone placed their expectations on him simply because he looked like Jeong Yi-jun. He reminded her that he could not even place in the day's competition. Hearing his shaking voice, the director touched his shoulder and asked how long he planned to speak such weak words. She asked whether he truly believed his parents would ever return to look for him. She told him if he did not want to be called a fake, he had to endure and prove he was not Jeong Yi-jun but himself. Seo Yujin. Seo Yujin woke up from the nightmare, still feeling the heaviness of old wounds in his chest. After dressing, he stepped outside the building and encountered Jeong Yi-Han and Chi-Oh. He greeted them calmly. Jeong Yi-Han greeted him as well, and Seo Yujin commented that it appeared they were on their way to school. Jeong Yi-Han thought privately that they seemed to leave around the same time every day and hesitated while deciding how she should address him. She attempted to say he must also be heading to school, but Seo Yujin noticed her formal tone. He gently suggested that since they would see each other often, she should feel comfortable speaking casually with him. Jeong Yi-Han agreed and told him he could also address her casually, thinking Chi-Oh would not mind if the level of politeness remained harmless. Chi-Oh whispered to Jeong Yi-Han that the oppa she liked was waiting, making her blush a deep shade of red. She asked what he meant, but Chi-Oh simply glanced towards Seo Yujin and said they should get going. Seo Yujin noticed the coldness in Chi-Oh's eyes and wondered why the expression felt strangely sharp. He questioned whether the coldness existed because he resembled Jeong Yi-jun. Remembering the director's words, Seo Yujin felt weary of constantly being compared, but he had believed Jeong Yi-jun was his friend. Jeong Yi-Han smiled at him and said they would get going now, wishing him a good day. Seo Yujin repeated the words silently, thinking how strange they sounded, as if he wanted to hold on to them a little longer. Afterward, they boarded the same bus. Jeong Yi-Han felt awkward because they had already said their farewells, and sitting together suddenly felt unnatural. At the next stop, the passenger beside Seo Yujin stood up, apologizing softly as he moved past him. Seo Yujin acknowledged it and glanced toward Jeong Yi-Han, noticing she had not realized he wanted to speak casually, as she requested earlier. Seo Yujin hesitated, thinking he had never addressed any girl informally before, and wondering what he should call her without sounding strange. Seo Yujin called Yi-Han, asking if she wanted to sit beside him. She thanked him and sat down, startled because she had not expected him to say her name so casually. Her heart jumped for a moment, and she sat before she even gathered her thoughts, while Chi-Oh was gripping the rod beside her. She asked herself what she should do now, feeling rude for letting thoughts of Jeong Yi-jun intrude when Seo Yujin was right there. Seo Yujin continued to look at her, and Chi-Oh, noticing his gaze, understood the whole situation was bothering him a lot. Afterwards, upon reaching the college entrance, Seo Yujin bid a quiet farewell, indicating that he was heading off, to which Jeong Yi-Han readily affirmed, bidding him to have a good class. While walking away, Seo Yujin found himself thinking that the arts department lay in that direction, and the thought crossed his mind that if Jeong Yi-Han and Chi-Oh belonged to the same department, then it made sense why those two always seemed to work together. He reflected on how often they appeared side by side, wondering why they were always together like this, and feeling an odd sense of unease settle in his chest. Meanwhile, Chi-Oh teased Jeong Yi-Han about whether she would call him senior, to which Jeong Yi-Han, ignoring his words, responded by asking if they should pass through the main entrance. Chi-Oh replied in the negative, standing by his words, and remarked lightly that she seemed very strict out there, letting out a small chuckle. His tone remained casual, yet Jeong Yi-Han noticed how confidently he spoke, which made her hesitate for a moment before continuing to walk beside him. As Seo Yujin continued on his path, he questioned why he even cared so much, yet without realizing it, he called out Jeong Yi-Han's name. Jeong Yi-Han turned back immediately, questioning whether he had called for her. At that moment, Seo Yujin flinched slightly, wondering why he had done so in the first place. Jeong Yi-Han muttered to herself, questioning whether she had imagined it, while Seo Yujin sighed softly and simply told her to have a good day before moving away. As he walked off, he felt his ears burning red, thinking about why he called out to Jeong Yi-Han. From behind, Chio called out to Jeong Yi-Han, questioning why she had stopped walking. Jeong Yi-Han, feeling a little taken aback, quickly affirmed that they should go. As they resumed walking, Jeong Yi-Han questioned herself about what that moment had been about, reasoning that Seo Yujin probably just wanted to say goodbye. She remarked inwardly that it turned out he had a cute side as well. Chio glanced briefly in Seo Yujin's direction, while Jeong Yi-Han suddenly realized she was finding a grown man cute, questioning what was wrong with her. She reasoned that maybe he reminded her of her older brother from when they were little. Then she recalled that even Chio had looked this cute that day, which caused her to chuckle softly, realizing she had ended up thinking about it again. Noticing her reaction, Chio leaned slightly toward Jeong Yi-Han and stated that he did not know why, but maybe they could laugh together. Jeong Yi-Han was quite taken aback and questioned whether he had heard what she said. She reflected that it was kind of awkward to admit she had giggled because of him, and she questioned why it had happened. Suddenly, her gaze shifted toward the classroom ahead, and she called out Chio's name, questioning why they had come there in the first place. She thought that at this rate, he definitely had another class to attend. Chio questioned why she thought so and calmly stated that he had come for the lecture. Afterwards, once inside the classroom, the classmates appeared both surprised and delighted. Several of them called out to Chio, remarking on his presence, while Jeong Yi-Han remained quiet and kept her gaze lowered. As the people around Chio gathered, Jeong Yi-Han began to feel uncomfortable, especially as students whispered to Chio that they would be seeing each other more often. Chio responded casually while Jeong Yi-Han questioned why he was sitting with her in particular, especially since he had chosen the seat right next to her. One girl leaned toward Jeong Yi-Han and mentioned that it turned out senior Chio was really popular. Another student added that ever since he had returned to the university, many people had been seeking his attention. Jeong Yi-Han questioned whether that was really the case, to which the other girl readily affirmed, stating that he had a handsome face and a great personality. Jeong Yi-Han thought to herself that she had forgotten Chio was always surrounded by people. He never turned anyone away and was always kind, just as he had been back in school. She recalled that if they had not lived next door to each other, he might not have even known her name. The moment they stepped outside their shared space, they became people from entirely different worlds. As one of the students called out to Chio, questioning what he was doing that evening and suggesting they have dinner together after class, Chio merely glanced over without responding. He paid no heed to the invitation, while the students whispered that the professor had come and they would discuss it later. Chio then called out for Jeong Yi-Han, stating that since it was his first time attending this class, he asked whether she could help him by looking over her notes, to which Jeong Yi-Han readily affirmed. As time passed, Jeong Yi-Han quietly called out to Chio, questioning whether he understood the material. Chio gently twined his finger with hers for a brief moment, thanking her for the help. Jeong Yi-Han quickly pulled her finger back, and Chio noticed her reaction. He then wrote in his notebook, questioning whether she was upset about him changing his schedule like this. Jeong Yi-Han responded in writing, stating that she had only been a little surprised, asking why he didn't say anything about it. Chio thought she would have definitely run away if he had told her beforehand. He wrote again, explaining that being with her was what he liked the most. He added inwardly that if anyone else had said something like that, it would have been awkward, and he even chuckled at the thought, reasoning that he did not really have many friends. Jeong Yi-Han called out to him softly, remarking that he was lying. In contrast to her words, she found herself wishing that it were true. Chio questioned what kind of reaction that was, noticing her puzzled expression. Suddenly, the teacher spoke up, reminding the class that, as mentioned last time, the midterm evaluation would be conducted in the form of a group assignment. Starting from the next class, the students were instructed to sit with their assigned group members if possible. The teacher added that if anyone found errors in the list, they should report them immediately. Students who had recently changed their schedules were assigned randomly and were asked to take note. As Jeong Yi-Han looked at the list, she could hardly believe what she saw. A strange feeling crept over her as she realized she had been placed in the same group as Chio, along with two other students. She felt an eerie sense of disbelief, questioning how such a coincidence had occurred, while quietly accepting that she had now been mixed into Chio's group. Afterwards, the scene shifts toward a cafe, where Chio and the others greeted the students gathered there, expressing his hope that they would work well together. Mireille-kwan readily affirmed the sentiment, while Oh Hyun-jae added that having a senior in the group felt reassuring, stating that it made him feel much more confident. Jeong Yi-Han, however, quietly reflected on how they had all ended up meeting in a cafe to discuss a group assignment, still feeling uncertain about how this situation had even come to be. Chai-oh thanked Mirai and Oh Hyun-jae for their words, expressing his appreciation, while Mirai asked him to speak more casually with them instead. Chai-oh questioned whether the two of them were really friends, to which Mirai explained that they had gone to high school together. Oh, Hyunjae added that they had also taken prep courses side by side. Jeong Yi-Han muttered to herself that if they had taken prep courses together, then both of them must be 21. Mirai affirmed this, adding that she had assumed Jeong Yi-Han already knew, which explained why Jeong Yi-Han had been so polite with them. Jeong Yi-Han denied knowing their age, explaining that she had only been cautious because she did not know them well and did not want to appear rude. Oh Hyunjae then called out to Jeong Yi-Han, remarking that she was very considerate. Jeong Yi-Han thanked him quietly, to which Oh Hyunjae echoed the question, wondering how they should start, at which point Jeong Yi-Han stated that before anything else, she wanted to show them something. She explained that the theme of their project was boundaries and barriers, and since it was her first time working with such a topic, she had looked up materials in advance. She mentioned that there had been more resources than she initially expected, including articles on interpersonal relationships, social distancing, and statistics showing how different generations form relationships. She explained that she had organized everything carefully and suggested that, if they did not mind, they could use it as a foundation for their project. The three of them appeared touched by her effort. Oh Hyunjae called out to Jeong Yi-Han, asking whether she had organized all of it by herself. Chi-Oh realized inwardly that this must have been what she had spent her weekend doing, while Mirai remarked that it was impressive how well Jeong Yi-Han had prepared everything, adding that she was truly amazing. Jeong Yi-Han tried to downplay it, stating that she had only had some free time, though she suddenly felt a little embarrassed by the attention. As the bell rang, Chi-Oh mentioned that he would get the drinks, and Oh Hyunjae affirmed that he would go along with him. Just then, Mirai called out to Jeong Yi-Han, saying she had been curious about something. She asked whether Jeong Yi-Han found it difficult to work in a team. Jeong Yi-Han questioned why Mirai would think that, to which Mirai replied that she simply had the feeling Jeong Yi-Han was used to doing everything on her own. Jeong Yi-Han explained that she had only wanted to help everyone in the group a little. Mirai gently reminded her that, as she had said earlier, it was a group assignment, and there was no need for Jeong Yi-Han to handle everything by herself. She asked her not to work too hard and emphasized that they were one team. Feeling comforted by those words, Jeong Yi-Han affirmed in response. Suddenly, Mirai took a small step back and apologized, asking whether she had said something inappropriate. She explained that she sometimes spoke faster than she thought and apologized in case she had offended her. Jeong Yi-Han denied feeling offended and admitted that she herself was not the most patient person. She added that if there was something she wished to change about herself, it would be becoming as open and straightforward as Mirai, even referring to her as a sister. Jeong Yi-Han then reflected inwardly that she did not always know what the right thing to do was, yet she genuinely liked Mirai's personality. She admitted that she admired it. However, Mirai suddenly added that if there was something Jeong Yi-Han did not want to look stiff, she could try brushing her bangs away from her face. She gently moved Jeong Yi-Han's bangs aside, showing her that it looked fresher that way. Just then, Chi-Oh stepped in between them, stopping Mirai and stating firmly that she could not do that. Mirai was the first to raise the topic, remarking that she felt showing Jeong Yi-Han's forehead suited her better and casually asking whether he did not agree. Chi-Oh immediately denied it, which left Mirai visibly puzzled by his reaction. Chi-Oh did not explain himself aloud, only moving his lips as if quietly stating that Jeong Yi-Han could not do that. Mirai questioned his words, clearly confused, but before she could press further, Oh Hyunjae arrived, asking whether they had been waiting long. He explained that he had been held up because one of the drinks had been made incorrectly. Chi-Oh apologized lightly and turned toward Jeong Yi-Han, questioning whether he had startled her and asking if anything strange had happened. Jeong Yi-Han responded by questioning what could have possibly happened, maintaining a calm tone. Mirai, however, felt increasingly puzzled by Chi-Oh's earlier remark and quietly observed the exchange without saying anything further. Mirai then suggested that they move on to discussing the assignment. Jeong Yi-Han questioned who would take the role of group leader, wondering whether Chi-Oh would handle it. Chi-Oh, meanwhile, found his thoughts drifting to Mirai's name, and he questioned what Jeong Yi-Han had just said. Mirai then stated that she believed senior Chi-Oh would be the best choice for leader. Since all of them were freshmen, it felt safer to rely on a senior, and she added that he seemed to care deeply about underclassmen and would not push unreasonable responsibilities onto them. She questioned whether this was not the case, creating a subtle tension between them. Chi-Oh, sounding slightly annoyed, ultimately affirmed her reasoning. Jeong Yi-Han felt her fingers twitch slightly as she listened, questioning whether the feeling rising within her chest was jealousy. The scene then shifted toward home, where Chi-Oh called out to Jeong Yi-Han, saying it was time to leave. Jeong Yi-Han affirmed and began to follow but suddenly stopped. Chi-Oh questioned what was wrong, and Jeong Yi-Han asked whether they were taking the car. Chi-Oh affirmed, explaining that it was more comfortable and pleasant. Jeong Yi-Han questioned why he had decided this all of a sudden. Chi-Oh explained that the bus was crowded, and on days when they were running late, driving was simply easier. He then added that he had forgotten to mention he had changed his schedule, which meant they would have many overlapping classes. Jeong Yi-Han responded that it was fine, and asked him to drop her near the main entrance. Chi-Oh questioned her request, asking whether she was hurt somewhere. Before she could properly respond, he checked her himself, which caused Jeong Yi-Han to feel embarrassed. Chi-Oh remarked that she was acting strange, noting that she would usually grumble and question his actions. Jeong Yi-Han questioned when she had ever done such a thing, to which Chi-Oh affirmed confidently before suggesting they drop the topic altogether. As they continued, Jeong Yi-Han found herself recalling something she had not thought about in a long time. She remembered that all the girls Chi-Oh had dated were beautiful, with fresh appearances and uncovered foreheads. She even recalled a girl from high school who had attended the same school as them, someone similar to Mirai. Her thoughts returned to the incident from the previous day, when Chi-Oh had told Mirai that Jeong Yi-Han could not do that. Jeong Yi-Han had questioned why he was acting this way all of a sudden. She recalled Chi-Oh's words more clearly now. He had once said he wanted the girl he cared about to rely on him, to look only at him, to accept his actions naturally, and to be beautiful. As these memories surfaced, Chi-Oh's voice brought her back to the present, stating that they had arrived and should get out. Jeong Yi-Han wondered what it would feel like to hear the person she loved tell her directly that she was beautiful. Inside the college, Jeong Yi-Han and Chi-Oh soon encountered Oh Hyun-jae and Mirai. Oh Hyun-jae questioned Jeong Yi-Han, asking whether she was taking these classes as well. Mirai added that they even shared electives, then turned toward Chi-Oh with an annoyed expression, questioning whether senior Chi-Oh was taking the same course too. Chi-Oh affirmed calmly, which seemed to irritate her further. Jeong Yi-Han quietly took her seat, and soon Chi-Oh joined her. Jeong Yi-Han remarked that she had thought she would be alone at school, but it felt nice that they were all there together. Oh Hyun-jae then called out to Chi-Oh, questioning whether he had arrived with Jeong Yi-Han. Chi-Oh affirmed, explaining that they had run into each other at the entrance. Mirai then questioned Jeong Yi-Han about her plans after class, asking whether she could help with the research project. She explained that while reviewing the material, she noticed some overlap between their assigned parts. Jeong Yi-Han quietly affirmed with a small smile. Chi-Oh stepped in, suggesting that they should all work together. Mirai replied that she had not been speaking to him and had asked Jeong Yi-Han personally. Chi-Oh countered that since they were in the same group, it made sense for them to work together anyway. An invisible tension filled the air as Chi-Oh wondered whether Mirai intended to place all the workload on Jeong Yi-Han. He stated that he would help if needed, while Oh Hyun-jae glanced between them, sensing the unease. Mirai responded irritably, questioning why Chi-Oh was so insistent on helping. Chi-Oh attempted to explain that it was because he was the group leader. Jeong Yi-Han felt conflicted, wondering what Mirai truly thought. She muttered that she had only been trying to say something, but her words faded without resolution. The scene then shifted back to the cafe. Mirai and Jeong Yi-Han were seated together, discussing their work. Mirai stated that she had finally figured out which direction to take with her section. Since her part had been quite large, she had felt lost at first, but thanks to Jeong Yi-Han's help, everything had begun to make sense. Jeong Yi-Han responded that she needed to look up materials anyway and found it much easier working together. Mirai expressed sincere gratitude, adding that Jeong Yi-Han had even reviewed her section, which had helped greatly. Jeong Yi-Han felt relieved, realizing her efforts had not been wasted. She reflected that things had worked out better than she expected, especially since she had worried about offering help for nothing. Mirai, looking genuinely pleased, then stated cheerfully that dinner would be on her. As Jeong Yi-Han called out to Mirai, she remarked that Mirai could have prepared the materials on her own. Everything had been done so well, yet Jeong Yi-Han sensed that Mirai had wanted to speak to her privately. Mirai avoided her gaze and admitted that it seemed she could not fool her. She explained that the incident from the previous day had stayed on her mind, filling her with questions she could not easily dismiss. Mirai confessed that she had spoken too harshly at the time. Even though she had apologized, she remained worried that she might have hurt Jeong Yi-Han's feelings. She reflected that people often misunderstood words spoken without careful thought, then thanked Jeong Yi-Han for taking it so well. Mirai admitted openly that she tended to be very blunt, and because of that, she had lost many good friends back in school. She shared honestly that those days had been difficult, and she had spent a long time trying to figure herself out. Fortunately, Oh Hyun-jae had been by her side throughout that period, helping her endure it all. At that time, Oh Hyun-jae had appeared and pointed out that she was the only one who had not yet submitted her career guidance form. Jeong Yi-Han recalled Mirai mentioning earlier that she and Oh Hyun-jae had gone to the same school. Mirai explained further, stating that Oh Hyun-jae had been the class president during their third year of high school, which was how they had become close. She described him as a good student and mentioned that something unexpected had happened on the day of their final exam, leading them to retake it together. Mirai then shared her wish to make many friends at university and directly asked Jeong Yi-Han whether they could become friends as well. Jeong Yi-Han felt that Mirai would make a good friend. When Mirai asked what Jeong Yi-Han wanted to try during university life, Jeong Yi-Han answered honestly. She mentioned wanting to come home after 10 at night to have sleepovers at a friend's house, and to go on trips with good company. Mirai felt slightly stunned by these answers, realizing that things were far simpler than she had imagined. Jeong Yi-Han added softly that she also wanted to hear someone tell her she was beautiful, but quickly noted that it was a secret. Mirai found herself wondering what kind of girl Jeong Yi-Han really was, thinking that she seemed unexpectedly cute. She affirmed that she thought she might be able to help her with that wish even today. She hinted that she had an idea forming in her mind. The scene then shifted to Chi-Oh, who glanced at the clock and noted that it was already 22:28. She hinted that she had an idea forming in her mind. He questioned why Jeong Yi-Han was not home yet, wondering whether they were truly still working on the assignment. Irritation crept into his thoughts, and he found himself blaming Mirai inwardly. At that moment, a message from Oh Ha-yeonjae arrived. Chi-Oh wondered what Oh Ha-yeonjae could want at this hour. Oh Ha-yeonjae messaged him, explaining that Jeong Yi-Han and Mirai had gone to work on the assignment together and asked whether Chi-Oh had seen the photo. Chi-Oh questioned what it was about, feeling confused. Oh Ha-yeonjae replied that he must not have seen it yet, and told him to wait a moment before sending it. When Chi-Oh saw the photo, his expression darkened instantly. Anger flared within him, and he cursed Mirai under his breath. The scene then shifted back to Mirai, who questioned Jeong Yi-Han about whether they should go inside. Jeong Yi-Han hesitated, trying to say something. Wearing a short skirt, she felt embarrassed and questioned whether she could really go out dressed like that. When the question of ordering came up, Jeong Yi-Han found herself thinking that the cocktail in front of her looked quite good, and she wondered whether she should try it. Loud music filled the space, weaving through the air as bursts of laughter rose and fell around them, while glasses clinked together sharply, almost sounding as if they might shatter at any moment. Nearby, a group of boys whispered among themselves, casually suggesting to choose whatever sounded fine. Mirai turned to Jeong Yi-Han and encouraged her to pick anything she liked. Jeong Yi-Han admitted honestly that she had no idea what any of the drinks were. Mirai responded lightly, saying she would choose something for her instead. As Jeong Yi-Han looked around, she felt that everyone seemed to be smiling in the same carefree way, as if this were completely ordinary for them. Suddenly, Mirai commented that the lighting in the place looked beautiful and suggested they take a picture together for Instagram. Almost immediately, a boy approached and offered to take a photo of the two of them, to which Mirai readily agreed. As the boy positioned himself and confirmed he would take the picture, Jeong Yi-Han felt awkward, thinking that she had stepped into a completely different world from her own. Afterward, the boy complimented them, saying they both looked pretty and that the photo turned out great. Mirai thanked him and called out to Jeong Yi-Han, asking whether she could brag about it to Oh Hyunjae later, as Jeong Yi-Han affirmed quietly. The boy then mentioned that since the two of them had come together, they were welcome to sit with his group if they wanted. Mirai declined politely, explaining that they had come there just to talk with each other. The boy looked disappointed and returned to his friends, telling them he had been turned down. Jeong Yi-Han then turned to Mirai and expressed her gratitude for lending her the clothes. She questioned why they had even come to a place like this in the first place. After a brief pause, Mirai explained that she wanted to bring Jeong Yi-Han somewhere she had never been before so they could experience it together for the first time. She reminded Jeong Yi-Han of the things she had said she wanted to try. Mirai asked whether Jeong Yi-Han realized that those experiences were more fun when shared with someone else, such as coming home late after 10 or having a sleepover. Jeong Yi-Han reflected that she had not really thought about it that way. Mirai then gestured toward the cocktail and remarked that even though the colors did not mix, they still looked pretty together. She added that what she truly wanted was to share a moment like this, as if it were their first cocktail together. Jeong Yi-Han pondered her words while glancing at the drink. The sounds around her, which had once felt overwhelming, the music, the laughter, the clinking glasses, now began to feel different. She realized that she understood what Mirai meant. This was genuinely fun. As she took a sip, she thought about how she had told Ki-Oh that she was working on something, reasoning that it was fine to be out a little late. She noted to herself that the drink was actually quite delicious. Suddenly, Mirai's phone rang, and she saw that it was Oh Hyunjae calling. She guessed that he was probably calling because of the photo she had sent earlier. However, she apologized inwardly, thinking that she wanted to spend this time with Jeong Yi-Han, and decided not to answer. Mirai then asked Jeong Yi-Han whether she could borrow her phone for a moment. Jeong Yi-Han agreed without hesitation. Mirai switched off the phone and asked whether Jeong Yi-Han was expecting any important calls. Jeong Yi-Han replied that there were none at all. Mirai smiled, feeling satisfied that she had taken care of any possible interruptions. The scene then shifted to Chi-Oh. He repeatedly tried calling, only to hear the automated message stating that the phone of the person he was calling was turned off. Growing restless, he began to move outside. Just then, Oh Hyunjae came running up from behind and asked whether he was late. Chi-Oh explained that Jeong Yi-Han's phone was turned off. Oh Hyunjae affirmed that Mirai's phone was turned off as well. Chi-Oh thought to himself that this was exactly what he expected. Oh Hyunjae then questioned whether Chi-Oh smoked. Chi-Oh denied it, stating that what he had was just candy, and remarked that Oh Hyunjae could have gone alone if he wanted. Oh Hyunjae questioned him further, asking why he needed to go there at all. Chi-Oh asked why Oh Hyunjae felt the need to go. Oh Hyunjae answered that it was for the same reason as Chi-Oh's. When Chi-Oh questioned what he meant, Oh Hyunjae explained that he was worried about his team members because he did not know where they were, just as Chi-Oh was worried. Chi-Oh smiled slightly and affirmed that they should go together. He stated that he knew the place and mentioned that he had been there before. He then asked Oh Hyunjae to wait a moment. Oh Hyunjae questioned what he was doing, but Chi-Oh proceeded to adjust Hyunjae's appearance, fixing his clothes and hair until he looked much better. Chi-Oh remarked that this looked better and stated that they should go now. Afterwards at the club, Jeong Yi-Han had consumed quite a number of cocktails. Mireille attempted to point out that it was already their 9th drink, to which Jeong Yi-Han responded with a hiccup, admitting that they had drunk more than she initially realized. Mireille then asked if Jeong Yi-Han was feeling alright. Jeong Yi-Han attempted to reply, questioning herself in the process, before eventually affirming that she was not entirely sure. Mireille commented that this situation would not do and suggested that they step outside for some fresh air. The boy from earlier, having overheard their exchange, quietly followed them without being noticed. Once outside, Jeong Yi-Han remarked that the air felt refreshing. Mireille informed her that she was going to the nearby store and asked her to wait there for a moment. Jeong Yi-Han stated that she would accompany her, but Mireille refused, explaining that Jeong Yi-Han was clearly drunk and asking her to remain where she was and stay safe. Before leaving, Mireille cautioned her not to give her number to anyone, to turn down anyone who approached her, and to deny all advances. If questioned, Jeong Yi-Han was told to say that she had come with her mother. Jeong Yi-Han agreed to this and watched Mireille leave. She thought that Chi-Oh might start worrying if it got too late and considered whether she should call him. At that moment, someone approached her from behind and grabbed her, asking if she was all right. Jeong Yi-Han recognized him and thought that he was the same boy who had taken their picture earlier. The boy commented that she appeared to be very drunk, but Jeong Yi-Han tried to deny this. He then asked where her friend was, and she replied that Mireille had gone to the store. The boy suggested that she join them for another round. Feeling increasingly uncomfortable, Jeong Yi-Han refused and stated that she needed to leave, sensing that she should get away as soon as possible. Suddenly, the boy grabbed her arm and began pulling her, asking where she lived and offering to walk her home. Jeong Yi-Han felt scared and questioned his behavior internally. She tried to tell him that he did not need to do so and asked him to let her go. The boy insisted, claiming that it was dangerous for her to walk alone at such an hour. Jeong Yi-Han attempted to ask him to stop, but at that moment, a hand grabbed the boy from behind and warned him to let her go, reminding him that she had clearly asked to be released as it was none other than Chi-Oh. The boy remarked that he had been startled and asked who Chi-Oh was, questioning whether he was her boyfriend or something similar. Chi-Oh glanced at Jeong Yi-Han, who was holding onto his hand tightly. Chi-Oh then tightened his grip on the boy's arm, causing him to cry out in pain. He stated firmly that they lived together and ordered him to leave immediately. The boy apologized and quickly moved away. Chi-Oh then questioned Jeong Yi-Han, remarking that she had said she was working on an assignment and asking how she had ended up at the club, where Mireille was, and what could have happened if things had gone too far. As Jeong Yi-Han thanked him while still trembling from fear, she admitted that the experience had been terrifying and that it was her first time facing something like this. Chi-Oh called out her name in concern. At that moment, Mireille had returned from behind, observing the situation. She remarked in disbelief, questioning that he said that the two of them lived together, questioning what that was supposed to mean. As Mireille gets to know her, saying the two of them grew up together like a family, and now they live together because of certain circumstances, she asks if it is right. Jeong Yi-Han nods her head in affirmation, and Oh Hyunjae visibly relaxes. Mireille then mutters softly and questions why Jeong Yi-Han acted as if they did not know each other at school, since they could have simply said they had known each other for a long time. Jeong Yi-Han recalls Chi-Oh's words, remembering how he had warned her that if they acted overly close and someone later found out they were living together, it would become uncomfortable and troublesome for both of them. That had been her concern from the very beginning. Jeong Yi-Han states that if everyone finds out they are so close and living together, it could become awkward for both of them, which is why they remain extremely careful at school. Mireille agrees, saying it is true, knowing that if someone spends time with a senior like that, all eyes would naturally be drawn toward her. Jeong Yi-Han lies slightly, saying that if rumors suddenly start spreading about them living together, it would clearly become a problem. Mireille then calls Jeong Yi-Han's name and questions what she would do if she suddenly told everyone, and if rumors truly did begin to spread. Chi-Oh glances at Jeong Yi-Han, thinking she had become attached surprisingly quickly. He leans a little closer, wondering if she truly believed the secret would remain only between them. With a calm and confident smile, Jeong Yi-Han states that they are friends, and she trusts Mireille, which leaves Mireille momentarily confused. Mireille grows embarrassed and avoids Jeong Yi-Han's gaze. Mireille quickly denies, meaning that she would not run off and tell everyone immediately, explaining she only meant Jeong Yi-Han should be careful around other people. Oh Hyunjae notices Mireille becoming flustered and chuckles quietly, while Jeong Yi-Han nods and thanks Mireille. Mireille then says that now everything makes sense, since the strange atmosphere between the two of them had felt odd enough to make her think something was going on. She admits she had even suspected something, that Chi-Oh is in love with Jeong Yi-Han, causing Chi-Oh to flinch slightly. Chi-Oh questions what she means, and Mireille quickly apologizes, saying it was just a misunderstanding. Oh Hyunjae feels relieved and smiles faintly, thinking it had been a close thing. Afterward, as they prepare to leave, Oh Hyunjae says he will see Mirai off, while Chio says they will wait until she leaves. Chio then leans slightly toward Jeong Yi-Han and asks about her new outfit. Jeong Yi-Han replies that Mirai had lent it to her and asks how she looks. Jeong Yi-Han realizes she is actually asking how she looks to him. With a soft brightness in her expression, she asks whether it looks good on her while wondering why she feels so nervous over something so trivial. Chio thinks she should have covered herself more, then wonders if that would have made things even worse. He hesitates. Searching for a proper response, Chio struggles internally, trying to calm himself and avoid appearing awkward or unstable. He tells himself he cannot look pathetic and needs to hold himself together. He wonders what he is even supposed to look at and why clothes like this suit her so well. He feels he might lose his composure and scolds himself again and again. Suddenly, Chio calls out to Mirai and irritably warns her that if she ever lures Jeong Yi-Han somewhere strange again under the excuse of studying, he will not let it slide. He asks what kind of childish handkerchief the outfit is and whether it can even be called clothing. Mirai immediately retaliates, saying it looks pretty and questioning what his problem is. Chio, then calls out to Oh Hyunjae, asking if it does not suit Jeong Yi-Han, and Mirai scolds Chio for acting like a child. She asks if he is Jeong Yi-Han's boyfriend or something. Chio answers that he is her brother actually. Mirai then remarks that he is behaving like a massive buzzkill. Oh Hyunjae adds that he is not a big fan of overly revealing outfits either. Chio points out that even Oh Hyunjae agrees with him, which makes Mirai grow irritated with Oh Hyunjae as well. Oh Hyunjae gently directs Mirai into the cab, while Chio tells Jeong Yi-Han to get home safely. Inside the taxi, Mirai remarks that Jeong Yi-Han's siblings certainly had his moment, but it had still been fun. She adds that of course they had fun, mentioning the cocktails and how she had been surprised to learn they lived together. Oh Hyunjae asks if that is really so. Mirai confirms they live under the same roof and do not seem to feel anything for each other, questioning how that is possible unless their relationship is similar to hers and Oh Hyunjae's. She subtly says she might lean on his shoulder because she feels a little sick. Oh Hyunjae looks out at the passing scenery and quietly murmurs that maybe it is possible. The scene shifts back toward Jeong Yi-Han. Chio says they should get going as Jeong Yi-Han gets into the car, thinking that in the end he never said she looked pretty. It feels like a small thing, yet it still hurts in a quiet way. Jeong Yi-Han feels she is not supposed to have feelings like this for someone she considers an older brother. She wonders what it is she truly wants and whether he really feels nothing for her at all. She glances at Chio and sees him close beside her. Jeong Yi-Han asks what it is, sensing something off. Chio denies that anything is wrong and says it is nothing. He explains he is just a little unfamiliar with things like this. Chio says they should leave, but Jeong Yi-Han asks him to wait and says he did not buckle up. Jeong Yi-Han remembers how he used to buckle her seatbelt for her before. Chio asks her to wait, but then notices Jeong Yi-Han's hand resting on his thigh. Jeong Yi-Han thinks she might help him just this once. Jeong Yi-Han thanks him for coming to get her today, saying she does not even know what she would have done there without him. She feels like she is always causing him trouble and promises him that she will not get into situations like this again. She reaches for the seatbelt buckle while Chio's ears turn slightly red. Chio tries to keep himself composed and only asks her to be careful. Jeong Yi-Han then wonders why the seatbelt feels so difficult to pull, and Chio tells her that if she is going to do it, she should hurry. After moving inside the house and finally reaching home, Jeong Yi-Han says that Chio would be feeling very tired and mentions that since he has been driving for so long, he can shower first. Chio tells her to go ahead while he thinks about why the national anthem only has 4 verses, having already sung several military songs to himself on the way back. Jeong Yi-Han says she will be quick. Chio then wonders what he should do, as an uncomfortable thirst keeps bothering him. After bathing, Jeong Yi-Han comes out and asks if Chio has opened a beer. Chio replies that he will drink first, then shower, and if she's not busy, she can sit with him and talk for a while. Jeong Yi-Han asks him to wait and says she will at least bring some snacks, since drinking on an empty stomach is not good. Chio replies that it is already very late, and Jeong Yi-Han repeats that it is indeed quite late. Chio watches the foam on the beer and absent-mindedly licks it away. Chio then asks where she got all the snacks from. Jeong Yi-Han explains she had stocked up so she would have something to eat while studying. Chio hesitates, wondering whether he should say it or not. While Jeong Yi-Han struggles slightly to open one of the packets, Chio quietly mutters that she looked beautiful today. Jeong Yi-Han re-hacks in surprise, and the chips scatter into the air as the packet slips from her hand. She questions what she just heard and what he just said. Chio lightly taps the beer can against her head and tells her it is fine if she did not hear it, since he is going to shower now. Jeong Yi-Han remains confused, feeling certain he had called her beautiful. Jeong Yi-Han reflects that she wanted to hear those words from him because she had been gathering her feelings like scattered pieces, trying to understand and name them, hoping they could become something beautiful. Chio, on the other hand, feels he should not have said it so suddenly or so carelessly. The next day, Jeong Yi-Han recalls Chio's words from the night before, remembering how he had said she looked beautiful. She feels she is being too self-conscious about it, yet at the same time, it feels different from before. Until now, her heart had never been able to make up its mind, but now it feels as though something has shifted. She finds herself wishing he would come to like her. She covers her face in embarrassment, thinking how strange it feels just to imagine such a thing. Her gaze drifts to the photo frame nearby, and she reflects on how she always becomes afraid whenever she grows greedy for something, because in the past, things tended to disappear whenever she wanted them too much. It feels as if she might lose her family all over again, and that thought makes her cautious. Chio knocks on the door and asks if she is not going to come out. Jeong Yi-Han mutters that she is coming while thinking that even so, she has started to grow greedy for him. When she steps out, she stares at Chio a little longer than usual, and he notices and asks whether she wants him to tell her about Jeong Lee-jun. Jeong Yi-Han quickly affirms, although deep down she feels she wants to let go of the fear of losing her family. She decides she will expose her old wounds by herself and allow new feelings to grow in their place. Jeong Yi-Han then asks if he remembers her mother as well. Chio pauses and stares at her, and she questions why he is looking at her like that. Chio denies that it is anything. Jeong Yi-Han wonders how she should take this. At the same time, Chio wonders what it is that moved her to ask such a question so suddenly, seeing her ask about Jeong Lee-jun with such a calm expression. Jeong Yi-Han becomes aware of how close he feels standing there. Chio thinks it would become troublesome if this involved Seo Yujin. He lightly pats her and says that if she is going to school, she should hurry and go. Jeong Yi-Han feels annoyed and wonders who he thinks she is. Jeong Yi-Han explains that she simply feels she has lived knowing far too little about her brother and her mother. Chio checks her forehead and thinks she definitely does not have a fever. Jeong Yi-Han says she cannot keep burying everything forever. Chio starts to say something, but Jeong Yi-Han interrupts and says he was a sweet brother to her, yet she wonders what kind of person Lee-jun was as a friend. Chio reflects that the Jeong Lee-jun he remembers was not someone who fit the word sweet. He had been taller than his peers, always smiling, yet a man of few words. To adults, he looked reliable and mature, but to kids his age, he had seemed intimidating for no clear reason. Once when they met, Chio's mother greeted Seo Yeon and mentioned hearing that Jeong Lee-jun had won a gold medal again. Seo Yeon affirmed it, and Chio's mother complimented Jeong Lee-jun for being amazing. Chio remembers thinking that Jeong Lee-jun's truly gentle smile was something he showed only to one person. Jeong Lee-jun, as he was known then, said he was just lucky, while Jeong Yi-Han wished him a good day. Jeong Lee-jun then commented that she should have slept more and asked why she came out so early, lightly patting her head. Chio remembers thinking that perhaps that was why Jeong Lee-jun seemed perfect back then, always winning, always praised, always at the center of attention, as someone who had everything. Chio remembers calling out to Jeong Lee-jun and telling him to give him his sister, which had startled Jeong Lee-jun. Jeong Lee-jun had asked what kind of joke that was and said Jeong Lee-jun barely came home because of competitions, even during vacation. Chio had asked whether Jeong Lee-jun even knew how lonely she was and whether he knew she waited by the door until he came home. Chio had said that if it was going to be like that, he would be Jeong Yi-han's older brother instead, and Jeong Lee-jun should just keep training. Jeong Lee-jun had tried to explain himself, but Chio had accused him of caring more about judo than about Jeong Yi-han. Jeong Lee-jun had told him to say that again, and the scene had shifted when Seo Yeon apologized to Chio's mother for Jeong Lee-jun's behavior. Chio's mother had said it was fine, and that she had known Jeong Lee-jun would get into trouble someday anyway. Jeong Lee-jun had apologized, and Chio's mother had said it was no big deal and suggested they take a picture to commemorate their reconciliation. Chio had complained, but his mother had forced them to stand together for the photo. Afterward, Jeong Lee-jun had warned Chio that if he did something like that again, it would not end the same way. Back in the present, Chio says it was not exactly like that, as he curses under his breath. Jeong Yi-han listens quietly, feeling this might not be the answer she was hoping for. She asks what Jeong Lee-jun was like in Chio's opinion and what her mother was like, and whether he remembers anything about her at all. She asks him to tell her whatever he remembers. Chio suggests his mother would probably know more about her mother, to which Jeong Yi-han remarks that she is simply very curious. Chio looks at Jeong Yi-han and feels she looks strangely cute in her seriousness. He says the Jeong Lee-jun he knew pretended to be calm, but he had a temper and was actually a funny person with stubborn pride. Remembering Jeong Lee-jun's words about being Jeong Yi-han's older brother when he was not around, Chio could be her big brother. In the end, Chio mentions that Jeong Lee-jun had been a good person. The scene shifts inside the college, where students chatter that it is already mid-March and ask whether everyone has finally grown used to campus life. They mention how midterms and finals are coming soon, and how freshman year passes quickly, meaning they should not let their guard down and should manage their GPA whenever they have free time. Jeong Yi-han listens to it and feels it all sounds obvious, yet it still feels real to her that there was a side of her brother, Jeong Lee-jun, she never truly knew. She thinks she had wanted to know more about him back then, and wonders whether she might find something if she searches now. telling herself it should be fine. Among scattered traces and half-forgotten memories, trying to find her brother's name again feels harder than she expected. Still, slowly and carefully, his name begins to surface again. The world seems to remember her brother clearly, while she herself has not even been able to recall him properly since that day. She remembers him as someone cool and reliable and feels she should look him up again. While searching, she suddenly comes across an article about Yuha, an orphanage that supports youth independence by operating a judo club. Jeong Yi-Han feels surprised she never knew such a place existed. She remembers how after her mother and brother died, her aunt had once tried to send her to an orphanage, which makes the article feel strangely personal. Later, the teacher announces that for extracurricular activities such as volunteer work, it is good to prepare little by little. It is important for scholarship applications later, so students should not do everything at once and should also pay attention to overseas volunteer programs during vacation and apply early. Jeong Yi-Han listens and thinks about it as she leaves the classroom. Reaching the orphanage, she sees small children playing nearby and suddenly realizes she has ended up near the orphanage she saw in the article. She wonders whether the application process went well and whether she can simply go inside like this. Before she can think further, a football is suddenly kicked toward her. One of the mentors scolds a boy named Kim Soon-hoo, saying he had been told many times not to kick the ball toward the road because it is dangerous. Jeong Yi-Han says it is fine and bends down to pick it up. As she does, she looks up and is surprised to see Seo Yujin in an apron there. He looks just as startled and questions whether it is really Jeong Yi-Han, calling her by name in disbelief. As the phone's alarm rang, Seo Yujin woke up and stretched his body, knowing that the alarm that rang at exactly the same time every day. His day started with jogging, and then he went straight to practice. His days remained steady and unchanged. The changing seasons were more than enough change for him, enduring all of it, believing that it was the only way for his roots to grow stronger. That was what he had always believed to be true. But at the training, his friend remarked that there he went again. His friend thought that Seo Yujin would be back on his feet after finding a place, but his friend asked what the issue with him was this time, while Seo Yujin was thrown onto the ground. Seo Yujin replied that he could not see it himself. His friend questioned what he was trying to say. Seo Yujin thought that no matter how he considered it, something was wrong with Jeong Yi-Han. They had not run into each other even once since that day, even though they lived next door. He wondered how it was possible to avoid each other that much. He got up, thinking that he must continue his practice while thinking about their previous encounter and thinking about his next greeting. He questioned himself why he had been so out of character. It felt to him as if an unnecessary variable had been thrown into his days. But strangely, he ended up waiting for that variable to show up again. In the orphanage, Seo Yujin groaned at the child that he was told many times that it was dangerous, but Jeong Yi-Han replied that it was fine, and she could pick it up while holding a football. Seo Yujin was a little stunned on seeing Jeong Yi-Han. Seo Yujin was wearing an apron. Seo Yujin was not expecting to encounter Jeong Yi-Han at that place. Inside, the director of the orphanage remarked what a small world it was to think that today's volunteer lived right next to Yujin. Jeong Yi-Han realized that Seo Yujin must have been volunteering there for a long time. The director informed her that she had heard that it was her first time volunteering at an orphanage. Usually it was more cleaning or laundry than watching the kids, but the morning team had already finished everything, so there would not be much for her to do. She should just take care of the kids instead, to which she affirmed. The director told Jeong Yi-Han to come that way. She questioned where his head was. Seo Yujin informed that In-jae's dad had mentioned that he would be coming earlier that day, and told the director that she should not worry about it and should go ahead. He would show Jeong Yi-Han around. The director thanked Seo Yujin and told him that he should not forget that the judo program for the younger kids was in the afternoon. He knew what he needed to pay extra attention to that day, and he should make sure to brief Jeong Yi-Han about that. Seo Yujin replied that she should not worry about it, he would handle it himself. On the way, Jeong Yi-Han questioned what he previously meant by paying attention to. Seo Yujin revealed that it was the weekend, as he revealed that most kids with parents got day passes and headed out on days like those. The ones who stayed were the kids who had nowhere to go or felt more comfortable there. A lot of kids were going out that day, especially, so if there was someone unfamiliar, they would be more guarded. That was why she should approach them slowly. Jeong Yi-Han understood and said that she would be careful. To Jeong Yi-Han, it all felt too familiar. Seo Yujin instructed her, saying that she should not be too scared either. She should be more herself. Seo Yujin stated that it just felt like it had been a while since he last saw her. Jeong Yi-Han replied that she guessed it was lately. His brother had been driving her to school. Seo Yujin questioned driving her there. Jeong Yi-Han revealed to Seo Yujin that Chio had mentioned that buses were too crowded and uncomfortable. Seo Yujin realized that it was just rush hour, and it took about 40 minutes to school by public transport, but if you drove at the same time, it took at least an extra hour. He understood that Chio was not bothered by the people, but bothered by him. Seo Yujin thought that was kind of cute. Seo Yujin informed Jeong Yi-Han that it was free activity time then, so the kids would likely be separated out. He told Jeong Yi-Han that they should stay with the younger kids in the art room. As they entered the art room, Seo Yujin instructed the kids that they had not been causing any trouble and had been behaving themselves like he had mentioned in the morning. He introduced Jeong Yi-Han to them as their new volunteer teacher. Jeong Yi-Han greets everyone and introduces herself as Jeong Yi-Han, while Seo Yujin told them that they should take good care of her for that day. The kids remained unattended and were doing what they were doing. Seo Yujin tells them to greet the teacher back. Jeong Yi-Han understood the atmosphere was heavier than she expected. She approached a kid and asked what his name was. The kid introduced himself as Jae-hyun. Jeong Yi-Han remarked that that was a pretty name. Jeong Yi-Han questioned Jae-hyun what was he drawing. Jae-hyun replied that he didn't know. Jeong Yi-Han suggested should she take a guess. Was it a car or a house? Suddenly, he burst out crying, stating that he didn't know. Jeong Yi-Han apologized, trying to comfort him. Seo Yujin picked Jae-hyun up and told him why he was taking it out on his new teacher. Jae-hyun's tears were falling down. Jae-hyun remarked that his mother had mentioned that she would definitely come and pick him up that day. He didn't want Jeong Yi-Han but wanted his own mother. With that, all other students also started crying. Jeong Yi-Han was looking at them. She understood there was nothing that she could do for Jae-hyun and questioned herself what was she supposed to do in moments like that. Seo Yujin replied that she shouldn't worry about it too much, as there was a way for everything with a bright smile. Seo Yujin then changed into his judo uniform and commented, had they all changed into their judo uniforms. Seo Yujin instructed the kids that, like he had mentioned before, judo was all about who could keep their balance until the end. Jeong Yi-Han remembered that there was a judo event in the afternoon. Seo Yujin instructed the kids that if they learned how to hold their ground, waiting for the right moment became a little easier. That was why they would learn how to fall first. If they learned how to fall without getting hurt, it became easy to get back up. So there was no more moping around, and everyone must get on their feet. The boys remained seated with sad expressions on their faces. Seo Yujin stated that if anyone managed to take him down, he would buy them whatever they wanted to eat that day. The girl got excited and replied if he really mean it. This made the students excited about it. Even Jeong Yi-Han thought that Seo Yujin could really handle situations like those comfortably. Seo Yujin told the kids to come at him. After some time, Jeong Yi-Han was disgusted by Seo Yujin and remarked how he could go all out against young kids like that. Seo Yujin replied, that's what sportsmanship is about. Jeong Yi-Han thought what kind of a human was Seo Yujin. Seo Yujin told the kids to come at him again. The kids got up, stating that they would win against him for sure that time. Jeong Yi-Han thought that they all were cute, but they could not do anything to Seo Yujin. She thought that she should help with that. Jeong Yi-Han got up and thought what her appa had previously mentioned to her. She grabbed Seo Yujin, recalling that his brother had told her to pull the hand to draw out the opponent's foot and lower her knees. Seo Yujin understood that it was a spin-back kick. Thinking about it, Seo Yujin commented that it was really something. Suddenly Jeong Yi-Han made Seo Yujin fall down, while Jeong Yi-Han was on his top. Seo Yujin commented that he admitted his defeat. The kids were looking at the treat, and they commented that it all looked delicious and thanked for the food. Jeong Yi-Han told the kids to slow down as they would have a stomachache. The kid commented that it had been long since they had a pizza that good, while the little girl commented that it was so yummy. Seo Yujin commented that Jeong Yi-Han should let the kids be themselves, as they wouldn't even probably listen to her anyway. Seo Yujin mentioned that they weren't actually supposed to buy them snacks with their own money. Snacks were given out on set days and only with the director's permission. Jeong Yi-Han commented if they going to be in trouble if they were caught while pouring the soda in the little girl's cup. The little girl replied that it would be fine, the director never got mad at Seo Yujin anyway, so it didn't matter. Jeong Yi-Han was stunned, questioning what was with Seo Yujin. The director did leave him in charge earlier without a second thought, meaning that he must have been working there for a long time for them to have that much trust. Seo Yujin revealed that was because he had grown up in that orphanage. Jeong Yi-Han was a little shocked. The kids were enjoying their time. Seo Yujin and Jeong Yi-Han had an awkward little silence between them. Seo Yujin thought were things going to get awkward between them. Suddenly Jeong Yi-Han commented that that was why the kids were that much fond of him. Jeong Yi-Han commented that still, they couldn't have the director getting mad, so they should clean up thoroughly when they were done. Seo Yujin was a little shocked on seeing it, realizing that Jeong Yi-Han wasn't bothered by it. The reactions of the people who found out that Seo Yujin had grown up in the orphanage were always the same. They either offered pity as if reading from a script, or swallowed a silence just as uncomfortable as the words they spoke. Or if not that, they used it to pass out strange comments. But Jeong Yi-Han was different. She was able to treat it normally. Seo Yujin realized that something was different about Jeong Yi-Han. The kids requested Jeong Yi-Han to come back again, as she should come back and beat Seo Yujin again. Jeong Yi-Han commented that she didn't think she could win against him a second chance. Kids said that she should just come and meet with them again. They were going to miss her calling Jeong Yi-Han sis. With that, Jeong Yi-Han smiled and said that she would do the same. Seo Yujin thought that her cautious calm put him at ease. Afterwards, getting down from the bus, Jeong Yi-Han said to Seo Yujin that he really didn't have to walk her to the home, he still had things to wrap up. Seo Yujin replied that it was late, and they were neighbors anyway. Seo Yujin questioned Jeong Yi-Han how was the volunteering that day. It looked like she got much closer with the kids. Jeong Yi-Han questioned did it look that way. Seo Yujin replied that when it was time to leave, they didn't even give him a second glance, even though he was the one who bought them the pizza. Seo Yujin commented that he guessed that helping them during judo practice made a very big impression. Seo Yujin questioned Jeong Yi-Han, where did she learn the judo? She knew the stances perfectly. Jeong Yi-Han replied that her older brother did judo when he was young, and she learned it from him whenever he got the time. Seo Yujin thought did Chio do judo? According to Seo Yujin, Chio did have good physique, but still, thinking of him doing judo was something that really didn't suit him. Seeing the bother on Seo Yujin's face, Jeong Yi-Han questioned what it was about. Seo Yoo-jin replied that it was just that he could not imagine Mr. Chio doing judo. Jeong Yi-Han looked towards him and remarked that the one who did the judo was his biological brother, and revealed that his brother was Jeong Lee-jun, the athlete. Seo Yoo-jin understood that all of their previous encounters made sense, why she looked at him like that with those sad eyes. She was just seeing him superimposed over his face, the one who could never come back. Seo Yoo-jin clenched his fist, thinking again because of that name he was called a fake. Because of that name he had endured the grueling training, the name that dragged him down. While clenching his fist, Jeong Yi-Han grabbed his sleeve and remarked if he very surprised. Seo Yoo-jin was thinking that that name pulled him all over there. Jeong Yi-Han stated that she wasn't trying to hide it, she was just worried that he would become uncomfortable. Seo Yoo-jin thought that he thought admitting it would hurt. Seo Yoo-jin stated to Jeong Yi-Han that she shouldn't call him with you, making Jeong Yi-Han startled. Seo Yoo-jin thought now that he had accepted it. While grabbing Jeong Yi-Han's hand and crossing little fingers with each other, he reminded Jeong Yi-Han they had made a promise. Remember to speak with each other casually. Right then, Seo Yoo-jin thought that the name felt like an opportunity. Back at home, Chi-hyo was putting up the jogging suit. Jeong Yi-Han woke up and called Chi-hyo, questioning him was he going for a run again. Chi-hyo apologized, asking if he wake her up. Jeong Yi-Han replied no, she had just woken up earlier. With that she informed Chi-hyo that she would get the breakfast ready so he could eat as soon as he got back. Chi-hyo teased, suggesting why didn't she get some more sleep instead. Jeong Yi-Han replied no, she would be waiting for him, so he should be careful out there. Chi-hyo looked at Jeong Yi-Han, feeling strangely that she had been in a good mood ever since she came back from volunteering the previous day, even though he couldn't talk to her about it, because she directly went to sleep after coming back. Chi-hyo thought was it really that fun? Suddenly, Chi-hyo's laces were loosened as he was fixing them. Suddenly, Seo Yoo-jin came from the front, stating it was fancy seeing him there irritating Chi-hyo, thinking why of all places they had to cross paths with each other. Siwa Yoo-jin stated that he must have been working out there often. Chi-hyo replied that there wasn't really anywhere else to run nearby. With that, Siwa Yoo-jin replied that was true. He realized that Siwa Yoo-jin was really happy. With that, Siwa Yoo-jin stated that he had heard that they were of the same age, so he should speak casually with him if he wanted. Chi-hyo replied, well, he didn't mind that. Suddenly, Chi-hyo questioned where he heard about his age. Siwa Yoo-jin replied if he hadn't heard it from Jeong Yi-han as they had gotten pretty close the previous day. He also heard that Jeong Yi-han was the athlete Jeong Lee-jun's sister, not his, who was a stranger to her, which pissed off Chi-hyo a lot. Chi-hyo controlled his emotions and turned away, saying that Jeong Yi-han had mentioned they had gotten close, but wondered if that was really all he understood from it. With a faint smile, he walked off as if the matter did not bother him. Feeling irritated, Seo Yoo-jin stretched his neck and started running after him, saying that he thought he had already heard everything he needed to know, though he was not completely sure anymore. The two ended up running side by side, exchanging awkward smiles. Chi-hyo suddenly picked up his pace and said lightly that maybe people only needed to know as much as they were meant to know, smiling as if nothing was wrong. Seo Yoo-jin sighed to himself, thinking that Chi-hyo looked relaxed even though there was a strange tension between them. At the same time, Chi-hyo wondered if Jeong Yi-han always managed to stir people up like that without realizing it. Later at home, Chi-hyo was washing the dishes after dinner when Jeong Yi-han told him she could do it instead. He answered that it was fine since she had already cooked. While continuing the dishes, he casually asked about the volunteer work from the previous day and wondered if she had met Seo Yoo-jin there. Jeong Yi-han admitted that she had been so tired yesterday that she fell asleep without telling him about it. She explained that she did not know beforehand, but Siwa Yoo-jin turned out to be a regular volunteer at the orphanage she visited. After that, she asked how he even found out. Chi-hyo replied that he had run into Seo Yoo-jin earlier while jogging and that they talked for a bit, which was how her name came up. While he was explaining, Jeong Yi-han quietly stepped closer from the side and stared at him, wondering to herself what would happen if those two became close. Noticing her gaze, Chi-hyo asked what was wrong. She quickly said it was nothing, but he splashed a little water toward her and asked why she seemed so curious about whether he and Seo Yoo-jin had gotten friendly. Surprised, she asked how he could tell what she was thinking. He answered by asking why she cared so much in the first place. She started to reply but stopped halfway, saying it was nothing important. That moment reminded her of something from the past, when she had once bombarded him with questions about Lee-jun. She had kept asking what he was like, what his mother was like, and whether he remembered anything about her. She had even insisted that he tell her whatever he could remember. At that time, he told her she should ask his mother instead, because she knew more. After thinking for a moment, he described the Lee-jun he knew as someone who pretended not to care, but actually had a bad temper and could be stubborn and ridiculous, even though he was still a good person. Remembering that day now, Jeong Yi-han realized that he had looked sad while saying it, and she felt that she had been careless back then. He must have missed Lee-jun just as much as she did. Trying to hide her thoughts, she said she was going to her room to work on an assignment. As she walked away, she wondered if Chi-hyun had been worried about what Seo Yoo-jin might have said about him. Before she could leave, Chi-hyun grabbed her hand and asked directly if something had happened between her and Seo Yoo-jin yesterday. The question made her recall the moment when Seo Yoo-jin had said they should call each other by name. At that time, she did not know what to call someone who looked exactly like his older brother. She understood better than anyone that he was not Lee-jun, yet seeing his face kept reminding her of him. After thinking for a long time, she had finally suggested that she would call him Yujin Oppa, believing that she was the one who needed to face the past and let that old wound heal. Then Siwa Yujin asked if calling him Yujin Oppa was really that serious. Jeong Yi-Han answered that he did not think it was a problem and asked if it sounded strange. Siwa Yujin said it was not strange at all, and that it actually sounded better that way. Back in the present, Chio thought that in the past she would have immediately refused, saying it was too difficult or awkward. The fact that she did not react like that now made her wonder if she had changed a little. A moment later, Ji-hyun suddenly called out to Jeong Yi-Han and demanded to know why he reacted like that and what had happened after that. Startled by his sudden question, she stepped back and hurriedly explained that nothing special happened. They simply agreed that she would call him Oppa, and after that Seo Yujin mentioned an old photo he had seen of Ji-hyun with Lee Jun Oppa and asked if they were friends. According to him, she just answered yes, and the conversation ended there. Hearing that, Ji-hyun responded quietly, asking if that was really all that happened. At night, while lying on his bed, Ji-hyun suddenly realized how many years it had been since he last stood there like this. The memory of their first days in that house came back to him, when he once complained that she had not let him enter her room even once since middle school. He had always waited for her to invite him herself, but just like the promise they made back then, she never did. Seeing her keep that distance had hurt him more than he admitted at the time. What scared him the most back then was the thought that Seo Yujin could cross the boundary of that house whenever he wanted. If that ever happened, he felt that Jeong Yi-Han would naturally go to him and he alone would be the one left behind. Inside her room, Jeong Yi-Han was thinking about what time she should set the alarm for the next morning when she suddenly heard a knock. Chiho's voice came from outside, asking if she was asleep. She answered that she was not, and wondered why he was there at this hour, asking if something had happened. After a short pause, he replied in a low voice that he felt uneasy, and asked if she could let him in. Hearing the tone of his voice through the door, she froze for a moment. It sounded exactly like the voice she had heard in that dream before, the one she could not forget. For a second, she wondered if she was overthinking again, telling herself that it had only been a dream. Still, the hesitation did not go away. When she heard him say again that he was scared, she finally opened the door, feeling slightly embarrassed for taking so long. With a faint blush, she apologized and asked what he meant when he said he was scared. She called him Appa, trying to sound normal, but he kept looking at her without speaking, his eyes fixed on her as if he had something important to say. Concerned, she asked what was wrong and told him to say it clearly. Instead of answering right away, he took her hand and placed it over his chest, letting her feel his heartbeat. He reminded her that she once told him she would stay by his side whenever he felt afraid. Then, in a quiet voice, he admitted that he really was scared at that moment, and because of that, he asked if he could stay with her that night. Ji-hyun asked if he could sleep beside Jeong Yi-Han. For a moment, she could not even process what he had said. He leaned slightly on her shoulder and quietly asked her to let him come in. The way he spoke made him look strangely vulnerable, and she felt it was unfairly cute, which only made her more confused. Because of that feeling, she pushed him back and refused at first, thinking that letting him in would only make things worse. She already felt that if he stayed, she would not be able to sleep at all. She noticed her hands trembling and wondered why he was not moving away. He asked why she was acting like that, reminding her that the last time she was the one who came to him because she was scared. If that was the case, he asked, why could he not rely on her now? She knew the reason but could not say it. It was not that she did not care, it was because she cared too much. Seeing him look disappointed made it even harder to stand firm, and she started to wonder if she was being too sensitive. When she saw the hurt on his face, she apologized and grabbed his shirt before he could leave. Blushing, she admitted that she was only being stubborn and told him he could come in. They lay down on the bed together, with him beside her. The moment she realized how close they were, her face turned red again. She tried to act calm and said they were not really going to sleep like that, were they? He simply replied that her bed felt smaller than his. Hearing that only made her more aware of the distance between them, which was exactly why she had hesitated before. She turned her back and said she would just sleep facing the other side. Before she could move away, he reached out and held her from behind, resting against her as he repeated that he really was scared. She did not know what she was supposed to do anymore. He was too close, and she immediately regretted letting him in, worrying that he might hear how fast her heart was beating. While she was trying to calm herself, she noticed his hands were shaking. She called his name softly and asked what he was actually afraid of. He could not answer right away. Deep down, he felt that even though she was closer to him than anyone else, she still seemed just out of reach. What scared him most was not that she might move forward without him, or that he might slowly disappear from her life. What scared him was the moment she might realize the true meaning of his feelings for her, and the look she might give him after that. He bit his lip without noticing, and she quickly reached out and touched his cheek to stop him. When he asked what she was doing, she told him he would hurt himself if he kept biting like that, then laughed softly and said he looked strange. Trying to change the mood, she even asked why his skin looked so good, as if nothing serious had happened. He smiled faintly, but inside, he knew that he wanted to step out of the safe relationship he had held onto for so long. He also knew she had no idea how hard he had tried to change things in the past. He remembered the time he dyed his hair black so that he would look more like her. He had stood in front of the mirror and joked that they looked similar now. When she saw him like that, she was surprised and asked why he suddenly dyed his hair. He told her it was because he would enlist soon and wanted to try it once before then, even though the real reason was different. He had hoped she would like it. Instead, she said he looked scary, and even joked that he already looked scary before, so becoming an adult only made it worse. Hearing that, he laughed it off, but later he shaved his head completely after the dye would not come out, wondering if he looked even worse now. When she saw him again, she just said he looked like a hedgehog, and that was when he realized they would never see each other the same way. Back in the present, lying beside her, he felt that there were still many things he wanted to say but could not. After a long silence, he suddenly asked if he should dye his hair black again, like before he went to the army. She was confused and asked why he would think about that now. He answered that maybe it would be nice if they looked more like a family. Hearing that, she felt a strange discomfort. In the past, those words would have made her feel safe, but now they only made her hesitate. He leaned closer and told her to say what she was really thinking. She realized then that the truth she could not say out loud was simple. She did not want to stay his little sibling forever. Ji-Hyun felt a strange sense of relief lying there beside her. Just being that close, hearing her breathing, made his chest feel lighter in a way he had not felt for a long time. For a moment, he thought that staying like this forever would be enough. Then he heard her voice. She called him softly, calling him Oppa, and asked if he really wanted her to remain his little sister. Her tone was calm, but the question struck him harder than anything she had said that night. He lifted his head, realizing what she meant, but before he could answer, she moved closer. She held his face with both hands and looked straight into his eyes. Her expression was trembling, yet determined. She said she did not want that anymore. Before he could react, she leaned forward and kissed him. While kissing him, Jeong Yi-Han felt fear rising inside her because she knew exactly what would come after making that choice. Once she crossed that line, there would be no going back to the way things were before. Even if it meant that she might lose him, even if it meant they might never be able to stand beside each other like before, she did not want to keep living while hiding her true feelings. In her heart, she apologized to him for breaking the promise they had made long ago, the promise to remain family no matter what. When the kiss ended, she looked straight into his eyes and quietly apologized. For a moment, he just stared at her as if he could not believe what had happened. Then the hesitation inside him broke, and he pulled her close again. This time his movements were faster and less controlled, as if the emotions he had been holding back for years had finally rushed out at once. He pushed her down onto the bed and kissed her again, unable to stop himself. She was surprised by how suddenly he changed. She tried to call his name, wanting to slow him down, but he did not stop. He kept kissing her, holding her tightly as if afraid she would disappear if he let go. The closeness made it hard for her to breathe, and for a moment she wondered why he was being so intense. Part of her wanted to stop him, but another part could not move at all. Her mind told her that this was going too far, yet the warmth she felt made her hesitate. She realized that she had already taken the first step, and because of that, she slowly wrapped her arms around him instead of pushing him away, trying to accept the situation she had created herself. Just when the moment felt like it would go even further, he suddenly froze. As if waking up from a dream, he stopped and pulled back, creating distance between them. Confused, she asked what was wrong. He was staring at her with shaken eyes as if he had only just realized what he had done. When she looked back at him, the weight of the situation hit her all at once, and she understood how big of a mistake this could become. Her chest tightened as she wondered what she should do now. He told her quietly that she needed to sit up. She quickly apologized without thinking, but to her surprise, he covered his face with one hand and apologized first. She asked why he was the one saying sorry. He answered that no matter how it started, he should have been the one to stop. For a moment, he had completely lost control, and he admitted that he felt like he might keep going without thinking about anything else. If he had not stopped himself, he was afraid he would have let his desire take over, and that thought alone made him feel ashamed. He could not stop thinking about what he had just done. At the same time, she sat there thinking the same thing. It was her selfish feelings that pushed everything this far. She believed she should be the one apologizing, not him. When he finally looked at her again, he noticed tears falling from her eyes. He immediately panicked and asked what was wrong, wondering if she was scared of him now. He told her to look at him, but instead of blaming him, she apologized again. Her voice trembled as she confessed that she loved him. She reminded him of the words he once said, that if they ever started seeing each other as more than family, they might not be able to stay together anymore. She knew that, and still she confessed. She apologized for loving him even though she knew it might hurt him, and for being selfish enough to want something more. Before she could say anything else, he pulled her into his arms. He told her it was his fault, not hers, and held her while she cried against his chest. He gently patted her head, letting her calm down while the tension slowly faded. After a long time, she realized how long she had been crying like that. She felt too embarrassed to even lift her head, but he called her name softly and told her to look at him. He said he should be the one apologizing. The words he spoke in the past about not crossing the line were never meant to become a burden for her. He had said them carelessly, only to keep himself from going too far. That line was something he drew for his own sake, not to push her away. He apologized for making her feel afraid. She asked quietly if that meant they could still stay together. He gave a small smirk and asked if she was planning to use this chance to avoid him forever. She shook her head, her face red, and hesitated before asking if she was allowed to keep loving him. He answered honestly. He said he did not think her feelings were wrong, but he was not sure they were the final answer either. They had been together for so long that their closeness could easily turn into something that felt like love. He thought she needed time to understand what she truly felt. She asked if he believed she was just confused. He said even if she was, that would be fine. Before he could say anything more, she suddenly pushed him down onto the bed and climbed over him. He asked in surprise what she was doing, but she leaned down and kissed him again, her face burning red. She told him that if he doubted her feelings, then she would make him believe them. As for his answer, she said she would wait for it no matter how long it took. He lay there stunned, unable to move, realizing that the distance between them had already begun to disappear. Back in the past, when Chio had rescued Jeong Yi-Han after she was discharged from the hospital, Chio asked whether she was feeling better. Jeong Yi-Han replied that she was fine and added that the nurse had even given her some snacks earlier. Because the paperwork still needed to be finished, Chio explained that his mother would take care of it, so they should head home first and rest. After hearing that, Jeong Yi-Han asked whether he himself was okay. Ji-hyo replied that he was fine, which made Jeong Yi-Han say that it was a relief to see that he was safe. Ji-hyo then admitted that he had been very worried because he had not seen her since the funeral. Hearing that, Jeong Yi-Han quietly agreed, although she still looked uneasy. Because he had heard something earlier, Ji-hyun mentioned that he was told she had been staying at her uncle's place, so he wanted to know why she had come back to her old home. He asked whether she was really doing okay and what exactly had been going on with her. Ji-hyun then revealed that she did not want to go back there anymore. Hearing that, Ji-hyun grabbed her hands tightly and told her that in that case, she should come stay at his place, just like he had suggested before. He promised that he would love her even more than her parents ever could. Back in the present, Ji-hyun woke up thinking that he had just seen a dream from the past. When he looked beside him, he saw Jeong Yi-Han sleeping while holding his hand. Because of that sight, he recalled what had happened the previous night. The moment she had confessed her feelings, all the emotions he had kept suppressed for so long had suddenly rushed back into his heart. However, since he had been the one who reached out to her when she was at her lowest, he began to wonder whether those feelings were simply being mistaken for love. Because of that doubt, he thought that if they became a couple, and she later realized that it had all been a mistake, then he would not even be able to stay by her side the way he always had. He felt that the place he had tried so hard to protect would collapse, and he did not think he could endure that. With those thoughts in mind, he questioned why Jeong Yi-Han would even like someone like him. Yet at the same time, he realized that her feelings were making him greedier than he should be. Because of that, he quietly pulled his hand back. After some time, Chio called her name. Hearing his voice, Jeong Yi-Han realized that it was Chio's voice waking her up. Chio asked how much longer she planned to sleep, pointing out that she had even missed her alarm and must have had a rough night. Because of what had happened the night before, Jeong Yi-Han thought that it was obvious she had not been able to sleep well at all. Chio then told her that she needed to hurry and get ready because she had to go to university. Jeong Yi-Han called his name, and when he asked what it was, she hesitated. She remembered that she had confessed her feelings to him the previous day, yet he was acting exactly the same as always. Because of that, she began to wonder if everything had been a dream. Seeing her stop mid-sentence, Chio asked why she had suddenly gone quiet. After gathering her courage, Jeong Yi-Han held his hands and told him that he should know that she loved him. She repeated that she loved him and asked whether he had heard her properly. When he did not respond right away, she thought that she would have to make him believe her. Ji-hyun looked away and replied that he knew, so she should hurry up and get ready. Hearing that, Jeong Yi-Han realized that it had not been a dream after all. After she left the room, Ji-hyo sat down outside, blushing as he thought that he finally understood how she intended to act from now on. Because of that, he realized that he was in serious trouble. On the way to the university, Ji-hyo casually commented that the traffic seemed unusually heavy that day. He then asked Jeong Yi-Han how her studying was going since midterms were only a week away. Because he was treating her the same as always, Jeong Yi-Han felt relieved. She could not think of anything to say except thank you. She had believed that everything would change after her confession, or at least that they would never be able to go back to how things were, yet he had not let anything fade away. Because of that kindness, she felt that she could not help loving him even more. She remembered that he had said her feelings were not wrong, but he also did not think they were the right answer either. Thinking about it again, she felt that his reasoning made sense, especially since she had always acted like his little sister before suddenly confessing. Still, the fact that he had not treated her confession lightly only made her feelings stronger. However, one question kept bothering her. She wondered why he had gone along with the kiss if he did not even like her. She questioned whether he had done it because he did not want to hurt her feelings, or whether it meant nothing to him. Knowing him, she did not think he was the kind of person who would treat a kiss so casually. While she was lost in those thoughts, Ji-hyun glanced at her and noticed that she was blushing. Seeing that, he asked what kind of strange thoughts she was getting into now. Because of that, Jeong Yi-Han became even more embarrassed and thought that it could not be true. Yet she could not help remembering that he had been far too good at kissing. That thought made her suspect that he might have had plenty of dating experience before, and she wondered whether he had gone much further than just kissing with other girls. Because of those thoughts, she suddenly felt the urge to be closer to him and wanted his touch to become part of her everyday life. With that feeling, she grabbed his hand, Surprised, Ji-hyun asked what she was doing. Ji-han replied with a red face that she was only holding his hand like she always had, so she did not see why she could not do it now. She even pointed out that they had already kissed. Hearing that, Ji-hyun called her name and asked whether she was doing it on purpose first thing in the morning. Confused, Jeong Yi-Han asked what she had done. Because of her reaction, Ji-hyun suddenly parked the car, took off his seatbelt, and leaned closer to her. Seeing him so close made Ji-hyun nervous, and she thought that the distance between them was far too small. When he leaned even closer, she did not know what to do, so she closed her eyes without thinking. Seeing that reaction, Ji-hyun immediately asked what she thought she was doing and told her that anyone having strange thoughts should get out of the car. With that, he reached over, removed her seatbelt, and asked what was going on inside her head, calling her a pervert. Embarrassed, Jeong Yi-Han quickly got out of the car, saying that she could not help it because she liked him too much. As she stepped away with a red face, she added that she wished she could love him a little less. After she left, Ji-hyun finally relaxed and thought that she had gone at last. However, his own face was completely red as well, and he muttered to himself that it was not like he could just lose control and do something reckless right there.